Black Zetsu's mental fortitude is truly impressive. The enormous trouble caused by Akihara Kagura quickly overshadowed the joy of Uchiha Madara's revival through the Edo Tensei, forcing Black Zetsu to suppress his excitement once more. This also served as a wake-up call for Black Zetsu. While the ninjas were undoubtedly his pawns, not all of them were committed to the Eye of the Moon plan. Among them were always those with greed, willing to disrupt things, such as Akihara Kagura. This man's power is exceedingly strong. Fortunately, within this ruined warehouse, there were still two dueling Uchiha brothers. Perhaps an eternal Mangekyou Sharingan could emerge. Black Zetsu wanted to abandon Akihara Kagura, but feared he might continue to cause trouble since Akihara Kagura was strong enough to stop Uchiha Madara. At the same time, Uchiha Madara was also not in a good mood. This prominent figure from the Warring States period slowly grasped the situation. From the brief exchange between Akihara Kagura and Black Zetsu, Uchiha Madara understood a crucial point. There seemed to be a minor flaw in the Eye of the Moon plan. Akihara Kagura, the Hokage's assistant, attacked Nagato out of greed for the Rinnegan, resulting in Nagato fleeing with the Rinnegan and the Eye of the Moon plan to Konoha, possibly even destroying the Rinnegan. The Eye of the Moon plan remains, but the eyes to execute the plan are lost. This generation's Hokage assistant is more of a hindrance than a help. No, something seems off. How could such a greedy person defeat Nagato? Though Nagato's body must be weakening from the frequent use of the Rinnegan's power isn't something an ordinary person can handle. Even the Jido statue of the outer path was destroyed by this guy. Uchiha Madara lightly tapped his arm with his fingers, contemplating the true extent of Akihara Kagura's strength while listening to Black Zetsu's report on the feud between Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Sasuke. 8 years ago, Uchiha Itachi nearly annihilated the Uchiha clan. As Black Zetsu reached this part, he couldn't help but glance at Akihara Kagura. Kagura should know the full story, right? I do know a bit. Akihara Kagura took over the conversation, actively explaining. Due to the policies left behind by the second Hokage, Tabarama, the Uchiha clan and the Konoha leadership were always in conflict. Danzo, the Hokage's assistant at the time, constantly sought to exterminate the Uchiha clan. HMPH. Uchiha Madara's lips curled into a sneer. That inherently insidious Tabarama saw everyone as evil and always harbored malice towards the Uchiha. Back then, when Uchiha Madara intended to leave Konoha, he planned to take the Uchiha clan with him. However, the clan, longing for so-called peace, refused to follow their former leader. As a result, the remaining Uchiha were indeed suppressed by the Konoha leadership. Akihara Kagura was well aware of Uchiha Madara's personal inclinations and didn't mind his continuous criticism of the second Hokage. He continued discussing matters concerning the Uchiha. Uchiha clan intended to revolt, and the Konoha leadership sought to prevent it. The previous Hokage assistant Danzo colluded with Uchiha Itachi, and together with Albedo, they massacred the Uchiha clan, including his parents, sparing only Uchiha Sasuke, Itachi's younger brother. According to information I received from Danzo, Uchiha Itachi killed his clan to ensure his brother Uchiha Sasuke's survival and to pledge loyalty to the Konoha leadership. Of course. Perhaps it was also for power. Akihara Kagura casually glanced at Black Zetsu and continued. Because Uchiha Itachi awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan, he might have aimed to obtain the eternal Mangekyou Sharingan, intending to provoke his brother Uchiha Sasuke to awaken his Sharingan. Uchiha Madara fell silent. He could accept the Uchiha clan's destruction. After obtaining the Eye of the Moon plan and being abandoned by his clan, Uchiha Madara had long broken free from familial bonds. The clan's demise didn't stir him. The problem is, Uchiha Itachi's actions were somewhat suffocating. If it was for the power of the eternal Mangekyou Sharingan, Uchiha Madara could understand the ruthless pursuit of power, killing other clan members, even parents, to provoke his brother's Sharingan. But if it was merely to ensure Uchiha Sasuke's survival by killing all clan members to pledge loyalty to the Konoha leadership, then something must be wrong with his head. To betray all his clan members? After a long silence, Uchiha Madara suddenly asked, "Did that Uchiha Itachi ever ask his brother what he thought?" "Probably not." Akihara Kagura chuckled lightly and continued nonchalantly. The third Hokage was still Akihara Kagura chuckled lightly and continued nonchalantly. The third Hokage was still contemplating how to prevent a coup at that time. The situation had not yet escalated to that point. My power was sufficient to suppress the Uchiha who sought to incite rebellion. However, Lord Danzo acted privately, aiming to annihilate the Uchiha clan. He used Uchiha Sasuke to lure Uchiha Itachi into slaughtering the Uchiha. The most interesting part is, Uchiha Itachi was well aware that Lord Danzo wanted to kill all the Uchiha, yet he still chose to cooperate with Danzo because he always believed that his path was the right one. He thought that this was the only way for his brother Uchiha Sasuke to survive. This reason is a bit far-fetched. Uchiha Madara shook his head, unable to comprehend Uchiha Itachi's thinking, and said, if it was for this reason, how could his brother Uchiha Sasuke live on knowing his brother slaughtered their clan for his survival? Upon learning the truth, what would his path forward be? Staying in Konoha would be impossible. Even if he becomes a rogue ninja, he would certainly be scorned. This kind of existence is actually more painful than death. Anyone should understand this truth. Uchiha Itachi definitely wouldn't think this way. He definitely wasn't doing it just so his brother could live. Uchiha Madara pondered for a while and finally found a key reason. I guess it was still for the power of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. This prominent figure from the Warring States period suddenly laughed, eager to see what exactly was Uchiha Itachi's situation. This kid named Uchiha Itachi is really interesting. To go to the extent of killing his own clan for the power of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, his determination is indeed commendable. However, Uchiha Madara's praise was quickly cut off. Uchiha Madara and Akihara Kagura arrived at a corner of the base's warehouse. An Uchiha wearing a mask was guarding there. Upon seeing Akihara Kagura and Uchiha Madara, he looked at them with astonishment. Lord Kagura, this is... Step aside. Akihara Kagura waved his hand. Wait. Uchiha Madara frowned and looked into the other's eyes. Didn't you just say that the Uchiha clan was all killed by Uchiha Itachi? There are still some survivors. Akihara Kagura took over the conversation and continued. At that time, Lord Danzo didn't want to relinquish his position as head of the root and assistant to the Hokage, causing tension between us. Whatever Lord Danzo wanted to do, I would certainly oppose. Uchiha Madara glanced at Akihara Kagura in confusion. This guy. How relaxed must he be to talk so casually about his own power struggles? Of course. This was also for revenge. Akihara Kagura seemed to have no psychological obstacles and continued proactively. Uchiha Itachi almost killed 2 people important to me in order to join Lord Danzo. These survivors hate Uchiha Itachi to the core, and they are also my means to deal with Uchiha Itachi. Let me introduce. This is Uchiha Madara. Akihara Kagura introduced Uchiha Madara to his subordinate and instructed, you may go now, don't disclose this matter. Madara, Uchiha Madara. This Uchiha widened his eyes in shock. The Uchiha clan might forget many people, but they would never forget the renowned Uchiha Madara. Step aside! Akihara Kagura waved his hand. Uchiha Madara glanced strangely at Akihara Kagura. This guy could make the inherently proud Uchiha clan so obedient. Uchiha Madara leaped onto a beam, looking down at the interior of the warehouse, wanting to see the situation of the fratricidal brothers Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Sasuke. The younger generation of this era, even brothers have to kill each other. Uchiha Madara thought of his younger brother, Uchiha Izuna. The Warring States period was 10,000 times harsher than the current environment, yet the 2 brothers supported each other. Even before his death, Izuna entrusted his eyes to Madara. Just then, Uchiha Itachi's voice echoed in the warehouse. Itachi was narrating the story of Uchiha Madara to all the Uchihas present. During the Warring States period, there were 2 brothers from the Uchiha clan. The elder brother's name was Uchiha Madara, and the younger brother's name was Uchiha Izuna. They both awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. Uchiha Madara became the leader of the Uchiha, and the brothers led the clan. Uchiha Madara nodded silently. In the past, he and his brother Izuna had led the Uchiha clan to great fame during the Warring States period. Although that era was extremely cruel, it was still worth mentioning. Speaking of which, that era was quite interesting. At least Hashirama was still around. However, Itachi changed his tone and spoke of Uchiha Madara's misfortune. All along, the successful Uchiha Madara underwent a certain mutation. I just mentioned that the Mangekyo Sharingan is a special kind of eye. Using its power, Using its power causes a severe decline in vision. The more it's used, the worse it gets, ultimately leading to endless darkness. That is the fate of the Mangekyo Sharingan. The powerful eye technique comes at a great cost. This power will lead the Uchiha into the abyss. The power gained through the eyes will ultimately be lost through them, resulting in complete blindness. All the Uchihas listened quietly. Even Uchiha Madara above was listening silently. Reflecting on his past, he indeed suffered from the deteriorating vision of the Mangekyo Sharingan. However, it didn't seem to matter. Most of the time, the Mangekyo Sharingan was only needed to deal with Hashirama's wood release. In other battles, his taijutsu and ninjutsu were enough to easily defeat opponents. Uchiha Madara went blind. Uchiha Itachi continued the legend with an unchanged expression. He was a master storyteller and didn't think the subject of his story would be present. To regain his sight, Uchiha Madara used various methods, but none of these methods were effective. Everyone present felt a tug at their hearts. Although they might have known the ending, they still felt uneasy, and many of the Uchihas present had troubled expressions. Did I go blind back then? Uchiha Madara doubted his own memory. If his memory served him right, his eyes shouldn't have gone blind. It was only after his brother Izuna was severely injured by Tabarama Senju and entrusted his eyes to Madara before his death that Madara learned the secret of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Madara despaired. Uchiha Itachi calmly slandered the family ancestor. Uchiha Madara frowned. As a naturally strong ninja, how could he despair over something like this? Just a pair of eyes, he could still unleash immense power without them. However, this young Uchiha Itachi indeed had a talent for storytelling. Even though he knew the story's protagonist was himself and was well aware of the story's ending, Madara unconsciously wanted to continue listening. Uchiha Madara, misled by the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan in his quest for sight. Itachi's voice turned gloomy, decided to take his brother's eyes. Uchiha Izuna, completely unsuspecting, never imagined his brother would want to take his eyes. He was caught off guard and had his eyes taken by Madara. Uchiha Madara's eyes twitched. Is this person really out of his mind? Uchiha Madara's brows furrowed slightly. Why is this guy called Uchiha Itachi making up stories about him? Does this Uchiha kid not understand the history of the Uchiha clan, nor know about his and Izuna's story, and is he just making things up here? Although Uchiha Madara no longer cared about his reputation, his brother Uchiha Izuna was the most important person in his life. The bond between the brothers was once so strong that they were willing to sacrifice their lives for each other. However, just as Uchiha Madara was about to jump down and argue, Akihara Kagura hurriedly reached out to stop him. It's still early. Uchiha Itachi hasn't even gotten to the good part yet. Sure enough, Uchiha Itachi spoke again, continuing to fabricate stories about Uchiha Madara to the gathered Uchiha. Uchiha Madara gained sight by taking his brother's eyes, which would never go blind, and granted him eternal vision. Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Uchiha Itachi spread his arms wide, his voice growing louder. This allowed Uchiha Itachi spread his arms wide, his voice growing louder. This allowed Uchiha Madara to awaken new powers, enabling him to defeat other ninja clans with these eyes, and together with the then most powerful Senju clan leader Hashirama, founded Konoha. Uchiha Madara's brows furrowed again. In fact, the founding of Konoha was far from the truth. At that time he was too young and naive, believing in Hashirama's foolish words, which led him to co-found Konoha with him. But after the establishment of Konoha, Hashirama changed, no longer being the person who wanted to protect everyone. Konoha had long become a memory. This story should also come to an end, right? However, Uchiha Itachi abruptly continued. Not long after the founding of Konoha, Uchiha Madara and Hashirama fought a great battle at the Valley of the End due to differing philosophies about Konoha's future. After his defeat, Madara fled Konoha. Subsequently, Itachi paused briefly before continuing. Many believed Uchiha Madara to be long dead, but in truth he had been hiding in the corners of the world, surviving in disgrace, fearing that Konoha would discover his whereabouts. These were things Uchiha Abido had told him. After Abido's identity was revealed, to maintain his own stature before Itachi, he had no choice but to use Uchiha Madara's name. Of course, all of this was true. Uchiha Itachi had only made some artistic embellishments. Uchiha Madara's face darkened as he listened. He had been hiding in the corners of the ninja world to awaken the Rinnegan, to find a suitable pawn, not to survive in disgrace fearing detection by Konoha, mere Konoha. Without Hashirama, who could stop him? Perhaps Madara is dead, or perhaps he is still alive. Uchiha Itachi narrowed his eyes coldly. Now Uchiha Madara can only manipulate others as his pawns, never daring to show himself to anyone, nothing more than a pathetic, defeated dog. Uchiha Madara's forehead veins bulged as he eavesdropped. This person is cursing quite viciously. Can he find out the truth before slandering someone? The one who truly approaches the peak of Uchiha is no longer that guy. Uchiha Itachi's voice grew sinister, and a murderous intent flickered in his eyes. The one who truly surpasses Uchiha Madara surpasses that man is me. The one who will truly reach the peak of Uchiha is me. I will take your eyes here, and I will gain power surpassing Uchiha Madara here. Sasuke, you are my new light. You are nothing more than a part I prepared long ago. Uchiha Itachi's face showed a trace of madness. His eyes gradually grew wider, and his murderous intent became increasingly intense. The Uchiha clan has always been one that kills family and friends for the Sharingan. For the sake of eternal Mangekyo power, they kill their own siblings and take pride in such power, a hideous clan. When an Uchiha is born, their fate is sealed at that moment. The murderous intent emanating from Uchiha Itachi was almost tangible, sweeping toward Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke, you will be entangled in this bloody and cruel destiny for your entire life. Come on, Sasuke, let me kill you with my own hands, and then take care of the one who escaped that night. Uchiha Itachi suddenly extended his hand, almost completely consumed by madness, shouting loudly, "Let me kill all of you to free you from the shackles of fate and let my power transcend." Uchiha Itachi's roars were deafening. No one present had ever seen Uchiha Itachi in such a state. The Uchiha Itachi before them was unprecedentedly out of control, as if he had become a lunatic driven mad for the Mangekyo Sharingan. Uchiha Sasuke remained silent. At this moment, Uchiha Sasuke recalled an evening many years ago when he softly asked his brother why he was so good to him. At that time, Uchiha Itachi told him they were forever brothers, a scene now appearing exceedingly ironic in his mind. After a long time, a trace of regret and sigh passed over Uchiha Sasuke's face. He looked at Uchiha Itachi with a hint of pity in his eyes, as if he were looking at a pitiful creature. "I thought it would be something, but it turns out it's for the so-called eternal Mangekyo Sharingan." Uchiha Sasuke's expression was unusually calm, and his voice became increasingly steady, though his words were full of sarcasm, unclear whether directed at himself or his brother. "Uchiha Itachi, since I was born, I have always looked up to you as a role model. Since I was born, I have always looked up to you as a role model. Even on the night of the clan's annihilation, I had to admit your terror, and I had nightmares every night of being killed by you during my revenge. Everyone praised your excellence. Even after that night, now it seems—" Uchiha Sasuke gently shook his head, looking at his still mad brother, and said coldly, "You have truly disappointed me." Disappointed? The madness on Uchiha Itachi's face gradually faded. He looked at his brother, unable to understand Uchiha Sasuke's words, feeling that this brother seemed to become increasingly unfamiliar. "Yes, truly disappointing." Uchiha Sasuke stared at Uchiha Itachi, continuing coldly, "Just some hearsay and gossip made you fall into madness for the so-called Mangekyo Sharingan, becoming this twisted and sick state." Uchiha Sasuke gripped his ninja sword tightly and pointed it at Uchiha Itachi again. "There is one thing you got wrong. Uchiha Madara didn't kill his brother. Uchiha Izuna was accidentally killed by the second Hokage, Tobirama." Uchiha Itachi's heart skipped a beat. How did Uchiha Sasuke know about this? "Of course, there's one thing you didn't get wrong." Uchiha Sasuke did not entirely refute Uchiha Itachi. In a cold voice he continued, "Before Uchiha Izuna died, he entrusted his eyes and the future of the Uchiha clan to his brother, which is why Uchiha Madara obtained the more powerful Mangekyo Sharingan, or what you call the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan." Uchiha Madara, standing on the beam, nodded in satisfaction. The man's displeasure slightly faded as his gaze fell upon Uchiha Sasuke. Seeing the face that greatly resembled Uchiha Izuna, a look of surprise appeared on his face. This child, he looked so much like Uchiha Izuna. How ugly! Itachi! Uchiha Sasuke looked at his brother and slowly shook his head. "Seeing you completely lost in pursuit of power makes me feel immensely disgusted. Killing our kin, our father and mother, to force me to awaken my Sharingan for the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan. I've never seen you become so repulsive." Uchiha Sasuke fixed his gaze on Uchiha Itachi and coldly reminded him, "A senior I don't much respect told me how the Uchiha clan's Sharingan manifests. When we lose something, a special chakra is secreted in our brains, allowing us to awaken the Sharingan. Each loss makes the Sharingan stronger. However, some Uchiha believe that losing something will enable them to awaken a more powerful Sharingan, forgetting why they gained this power in the first place. Such Uchiha become extreme and lose themselves. The power of the Uchiha is not for hatred and slaughter. The strength our Sharingan brings is to ensure we no longer face irreparable regrets due to our weakness. Uchiha Itachi, you have chosen the wrong path." Uchiha Itachi's hands began to tremble slightly. At this moment, Uchiha Itachi felt a mixture of relief, guilt, and pain, because he knew that his brother Uchiha Sasuke had chosen the right path, not only Uchiha Itachi. All the Uchiha present were deeply shocked by Sasuke's words, realizing that everything he said was correct. However, the next moment, everyone's thoughts were interrupted. "Interesting." A round of applause broke the silence. A figure clad in red armor suddenly leaped down, causing the ground to crack as he landed, and dust filled the warehouse. "Who is it?" All the Uchiha in the warehouse were immediately alarmed by the newcomer. The root ninjas present instinctively drew their swords, not wanting their revenge to be interrupted. "This viewpoint is very interesting. The figure in red armor seemed indifferent to the rudeness of those present, slowly emerging from the dust with a light laugh, asking, "Who proposed this viewpoint? It seems he knows the Uchiha very well. Do not be nervous. That guy is Edo Tensei." Uchiha Sasuke signaled the root ninjas to calm down as he looked at the somewhat familiar man, noticing the cracks on his face. He is Madara. He is Uchiha Madara." Someone present suddenly recognized the newcomer's identity. The entire warehouse buzzed with excitement. As everyone remembered this name, they couldn't help but recall the legend he left within the clan. Quiet! He is under the Edo Tensei. As the future head of the Root and the recognized future clan leader of these surviving Uchiha members, Uchiha Sasuke was actually quite nervous. He was just a young man of 16 or 17, yet he had to remain calm in front of these clansmen. "Everyone, quiet down! All those in the ninja world capable of using the Edo Tensei are in the Root. He is one of us." Uchiha Sasuke raised his hand, signaling the people present to quiet down. He knew that a figure of Uchiha Madara's caliber couldn't have been resurrected by Orochimaru and Kabuto. This person appearing here couldn't possibly be their enemy. "You truly have the bearing of a great leader." Uchiha Madara looked at Uchiha Sasuke in front of him and unexpectedly let out a light laugh, praising, "When Izuna was your age, he couldn't achieve what you have done. He even came to me for advice when he encountered trouble. By the way, who mentioned the secret about the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan just now? They seem to know quite a lot about our clan's bloodline." "Second Hokage, Senju Tabarama." Uchiha Sasuke frowned, seemingly reluctant to bring up this name. Although Uchiha Sasuke had received considerable guidance from Senju Tabarama and even trusted Tabarama's expertise deep down, he felt that he and Tabarama had an innate mutual dislike for each other. "That guy!" The smile on Uchiha Madara's face faded. The person he disliked the most had a profound understanding of his clan's bloodline, which was inevitably irritating, especially since Tabarama, that insidious and despicable person, studied the Sharingan with the obvious intent of countering the Uchiha. "Enough!" Uchiha Sasuke looked at Uchiha Madara in front of him, frowned, and coldly questioned. "Lord Kagura sent you here, certainly not to hinder our revenge. What mission do you have to convey?" Did you actually think I am that kid's subordinate?" Uchiha Madara lightly smiled at the corners of his mouth. His gaze fell on Uchiha Itachi as he continued with a light laugh. "I originally came along with that kid just to watch the excitement, but I didn't expect to hear someone here slandering my name. I initially thought you kids who covet life in Konoha were a bit disappointing, but I sensed just now that some of you might not be completely useless." Uchiha Itachi felt a strong sense of unease. Uchiha Madara. How could he appear here? Why would Uchiha Madara be resurrected through the Edo Tensei? What secrets lie behind this? However, all of this was extremely unfamiliar to Uchiha Itachi. He had no relevant information. He could only stand where he was, staring intently at Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara, however, ignored him, turned around, and walked straight to the stone chair where Uchiha Sasuke had previously sat. As soon as his body settled down, he naturally crossed his legs and looked down at everyone present arrogantly. At this moment, this man seemed to be the true master of these Uchiha. Uchiha Madara extended his arm, resting it on the armrest of the stone chair, and propped up his slightly tilted head with his hand, as if this position made him more comfortable. However, this posture was a display of contempt for everyone present. The corners of Uchiha Madara's mouth curled into a smile. Looking at Uchiha Sasuke, he softly ordered, "All right, I won't hinder your revenge. The only thing that interests me is whether the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan will be born today. If the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan is born in your brother's eyes, no one present should be his match. I could help kill that guy." Uchiha Madara looked at Uchiha Itachi, noticing the Mangekyo Sharingan in Itachi's eyes, and casually continued, "I am not a fool who would harm his own brother for power. Of course, there is one thing worth praising you for." The smile at the corners of Uchiha Madara's mouth remained, but it was quite eerie. To achieve one's goals, one's own brother, blood relatives, and friends can all be sacrificed. "This I learned from Hashirama. Just like back then, he would kill relatives and friends to protect the so-called village with his dark will." Uchiha Madara sat proudly on the stone chair, like a judge of this duel, commenting on the impending battle between the brothers, Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Sasuke. This man indeed had the qualifications to be a judge. Even though Uchiha Madara had long left the Uchiha clan, the reputation he brought to the clan and his personal prestige in both the Uchiha clan and the ninja world left no room for objection from those present. "You may begin." Uchiha Madara raised his eyebrows. A flash of dissatisfaction appeared in Uchiha Sasuke's eyes. Given his proud nature, how could he be willing to follow someone else's orders? However, Uchiha Itachi did not hesitate. Uchiha Itachi raised his hand and threw several shuriken at Uchiha Sasuke, quickly forming hand seals and spitting out flames. Phoenix Sage Flower Nail Crimson! The flames attached to the shuriken. The shuriken, wrapped in flames, flew towards Uchiha Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke's ninja sword danced, deflecting the flaming shuriken. His palm turned over, revealing several kunai, one of which had a flying thunder god mark. He threw it towards Uchiha Itachi. Uchiha Madara, observing, immediately became curious. Uchiha Madara's Sharingan noticed something unusual among the kunai. One bore the Uchiha clan's fan emblem, evoking some unpleasant memories for him. Uchiha Itachi also noticed the marks on the kunai. Having fought Uchiha Sasuke before, Uchiha Itachi was particularly wary of Sasuke, leaving a flying thunder god mark around him. However, what surprised Uchiha Itachi most was Sasuke's kunai throwing technique, a release he thought only he and Uchiha Shisui could use. He didn't expect Sasuke to have mastered it as well. Uchiha Itachi produced a kunai in his hand, his technique sharp and precise, striking down the kunai with the flying thunder god mark. He sidestepped the other kunai with slight movements. In the next moment, taking advantage of the cover provided by the kunai, Uchiha Sasuke dashed towards Uchiha Itachi with his ninja sword, prompting Itachi's first thought to be to retreat. If it came to close combat, Uchiha Sasuke would surely leave a flying thunder god mark on him. Uchiha Itachi frowned slightly, his fingers moved lightly, and a clone instantly split off, charging towards Sasuke. Clone Great Explosion! Uchiha Itachi's clone exploded as it neared Sasuke, the blast forcing him back. Sasuke had to retreat a few steps, raising his ninja sword, his eyes flickering. To complete the clone jutsu in such a short time, the speed of forming hand seals, it was indeed impressive. I've heard people say you can form 6 seals in a second. Sasuke, who had long heard of Itachi's seal-forming speed from others, coldly remarked, "Your speed should be even faster, right? Seems your intel is quite thorough." Uchiha Itachi's expression tensed slightly, surprised that his younger brother knew even this. His hand flipped slightly, quickly forming a seal. Fire release, great fireball jutsu! A massive flame rushed towards Sasuke. So fast! Sasuke was shocked, quickly clasping his hands together to form the fastest defensive jutsu he could. Earth release, earth flow wall! A wall carved with an eagle's head appeared in front of him. The great fireball's flames instantly rendered the earth flow wall into a tattered mess. Uchiha Sasuke gripped his ninja sword, stepping hard on the ground, and charged towards Uchiha Itachi again. Clearly, Uchiha Sasuke was eager to close the distance with Uchiha Itachi. Uchiha Itachi frowned slightly, activating the Mangekyo Sharingan's ability, releasing the Tsukuyomi illusion towards Sasuke at that moment. Tsukuyomi! In the next second, Uchiha Sasuke fell into the Tsukuyomi illusion. This time, Sasuke found himself in the Tsukuyomi illusion space, his body trapped within the illusion, and Itachi's figure appeared in the illusion space. Uchiha Itachi wanted to use this opportunity to have a serious talk with Sasuke, at least to give his brother a wake-up call. "Sasuke, you've become a pawn of Kaguya." "So what?" Uchiha Sasuke sneered, showing no kindness to Uchiha Itachi. "What's the point of saying these things now? If becoming a pawn means I can avenge you and save the Uchiha clan, then I'm willing." For Uchiha Sasuke, Akihara Kaguya is certainly more trustworthy than Uchiha Itachi, because Akihara Kaguya saved many Uchiha on the night of the clan's massacre, taught him many ninjutsu, and even arranged for others to teach him. Moreover, Akihara Kaguya also allowed him and Karin to compete for the future leader position of Akihara Kaguya also allowed him and Karin to compete for the future leader position of the Root, paving a way for the revival of the Uchiha clan. If it weren't for Akihara Kaguya, Uchiha Sasuke wouldn't have understood his future direction, wouldn't have found his life's goal, and might have gone to any lengths for revenge, thus becoming estranged from his former companions. But now, he is living well. In his life of vengeance, Uchiha Sasuke always believed himself to be in darkness, but the appearance of Akihara Kaguya and the Root brought a glimmer of light to his life. The Root is Uchiha Sasuke's new home. Akihara Kaguya is the head of this home. If Uchiha Sasuke were to say, as Naruto often liked to put it, his mentor Kakashi was like a lackluster father, while Akihara Kaguya was the most promising older brother in the family. Uchiha Itachi hesitated for a moment, unable to say more. Because his younger brother didn't understand the dangers of Akihara Kaguya well enough, Uchiha Itachi had vaguely heard some information from Uchiha Obaido. Akihara Kaguya seems to have colluded with the Akatsuki organization. That former opponent certainly has a huge conspiracy. Uchiha Sasuke ignored Uchiha Itachi, quickly raising his fingers. His crimson eyes glowed red in the Tsukuyomi space as he tried hard to break the Tsukuyomi illusion. "Uchiha Itachi!" A contemptuous smile flashed at the corner of Uchiha Sasuke's mouth as he coldly said, "The stronger the person you pull into your Tsukuyomi, the harder it is for your mind to sustain, right?" The next moment, a mass of flowing liquid suddenly appeared on Uchiha Sasuke's body. Uchiha Itachi immediately felt a headache. Originally, Uchiha Itachi's body was seriously ill and his mental state was not good. At this moment, he was unable to sustain it any longer, and the Tsukuyomi space was about to be shattered by Uchiha Sasuke. However, Uchiha Itachi could not stop it, because if it continued, to avoid blindness, he would be unable to use other Mangekyou Sharingan techniques. The Tsukuyomi space suddenly shattered. Uchiha Sasuke broke through the Tsukuyomi illusion with his 3 Tamo Sharingan. Uchiha Itachi's eyes lowered, his hand tightly covering one eye. Not bad! Uchiha Madara noticed this, chuckling lightly in praise. Although Uchiha Madara didn't think much of Uchiha Itachi's Tsukuyomi, this illusion was still quite troublesome for Uchiha Sasuke with his 3 Tamo Sharingan. "Uchiha Itachi!" Uchiha Sasuke wielded his sword and charged towards Uchiha Itachi, shouting fiercely, "You are no longer my match!" Clang! Uchiha Itachi raised his kunai to block the sword, but he didn't want to have any contact with Uchiha Sasuke, fearing the flying thunder god mark would be placed on him. Uchiha Itachi's kunai danced back and forth in front of Uchiha Sasuke, forcing his body to retreat constantly. Lightning Release Chakra Mode! A burst of strong chakra erupted from Uchiha Sasuke's body, with streaks of electricity flashing within the chakra. Uchiha Sasuke rushed towards Uchiha Itachi again. Uchiha Sasuke's figure was as fast as lightning, catching Uchiha Itachi off guard, a look of surprise flashing across his face. A streak of lightning flashed. The sword in Uchiha Sasuke's hand crossed paths with Uchiha Itachi's body in mid-air, about to leave a wound on Uchiha Itachi's body. The next second, Uchiha Itachi's body dissipated into a flock of crows. Terrifying! Uchiha Itachi's body slowly reformed in place, turning to look at his brother, unable to help but praise. "You have become very strong." This speed was not much slower than the Flying Thunder God technique's movement speed. If he hadn't been alert and used the Crow Clone technique in advance, if his speed had been slightly slower, his body would have been cut open by Uchiha Sasuke's sword. HMPH! Uchiha Sasuke sneered, slowly turning to look at his brother. "I told you, you are absolutely no match for me now." As Uchiha Sasuke finished speaking, he swung his sword again, charging towards Uchiha Itachi, his eyes filled with murderous intent. "You can't escape forever." Uchiha Sasuke's face even carried a hint of madness, his body transforming into a bolt of lightning again. "Uchiha Itachi, I have countless chances to attack you, and you have only one chance to make a mistake. If I get close to you once, you will die under my blade." Uchiha Sasuke now believed he was strong, and indeed now he really was strong. Uchiha Itachi never expected this. His own brother had become so powerful. With the enhancement of the Lightning Release Chakra mode, Uchiha Sasuke's figure was as fast as lightning, so fast that even Uchiha Itachi had to predict his movements in advance. Moreover, the speed exploded into immense strength. Even Uchiha Itachi didn't dare to directly confront the sword in Uchiha Sasuke's hand. As Uchiha Sasuke said, he had countless opportunities to attack, and just one mistake from Uchiha Itachi would split him in two with the sword. This intense battle posed a huge challenge for Uchiha Itachi. No matter how fast his hand signs were, they couldn't keep up with Uchiha Sasuke's speed. A simple Great Fireball technique, a jutsu that usually only took 1 second to complete, took Uchiha Itachi a full 5 seconds to finish the hand signs. Fire Release Great Fireball Technique! Uchiha Itachi spat out a massive flame towards the direction Uchiha Sasuke was charging from, hoping this technique would buy him some breathing time. Bang! Uchiha Sasuke directly broke through the flames. The Lightning Release Chakra mode granted him both speed and defense, allowing him to ignore the damage from this jutsu. Clang! Uchiha Sasuke swung his sword towards Uchiha Itachi's chest. Uchiha Itachi could only hastily extend a kunai to block. In the instant they clashed head-on, the power from Uchiha Sasuke's speed gave him the upper hand, sending Uchiha Itachi flying, and the kunai in his hand shattered in an instant. Completely unmatched! A serious expression slowly appeared on Uchiha Itachi's face. "Even among the many opponents I've faced, none could match you in close combat." "That's only natural." Uchiha Sasuke snorted coldly, extremely satisfied with his training in the Lightning Release Chakra mode, a secret technique only the Raikage of the Cloud Village could master. In the next moment, Uchiha Sasuke charged towards his brother again. However, this time it was clearly different. because red, ethereal skeletal structures suddenly emerged from Uchiha Itachi, appearing extremely solid like armor protecting his body. Finally using it, the legendary Aijutsu Susanoo. Uchiha Sasuke watched his sword strike the skeletal structure of Susanoo, observing Uchiha Itachi within, who seemed slightly relieved. Indeed, only Susanoo could ensure his safety. Uchiha Itachi finally took a breath under the protection of Susanoo. First form of Susanoo, Sitting on a stone chair, Uchiha Madara seemed a bit disdainful, laughing contemptuously. Is this level of Susanoo meant to be a joke? For Uchiha Madara, it was naturally insignificant. For Uchiha Sasuke, this level of Susanoo was a considerable nuisance, as he lacked the Mangekyo Sharingan to contend with it. Bang! Uchiha Itachi manipulated the first form of Susanoo to grow a skeletal hand, slamming it heavily towards Uchiha Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke quickly retreated. The solid stone ground was instantly shattered into rubble by Susanoo's hand. Standing at a distance, Uchiha Sasuke slowly inserted his sword into the ground, scrutinizing Susanoo, seemingly trying to find its weakness. Now, it's my turn. Uchiha Itachi's eyes flickered, calmly forming hand signs under Susanoo's protection, and spat out numerous flames towards Uchiha Sasuke. Fire release, Phoenix Sage Fire Technique. Fire release, Dragon Fire Jutsu. Fire release, Dragon Fire Jutsu. Barrage of flames chased after Uchiha Sasuke, who could only dodge swiftly. Although these techniques couldn't harm him, he couldn't stay in one place either, which made him look slightly embarrassed. However, this was a good thing. Chidori! Uchiha Sasuke's expression changed, swiftly forming hand signs, a mass of lightning appearing in his palm, as Chidori required extreme acceleration for maximum impact. Is that Captain Kakashi's jutsu? Uchiha Itachi saw the lightning in Uchiha Sasuke's hand. No! Uchiha Itachi frowned, watching Uchiha Sasuke running around Susanoo, gradually transforming into a bolt of lightning. In the next moment, Uchiha Sasuke suddenly dashed towards Susanoo, thrusting his Chidori into the skeletal structure of Susanoo. Crack! The sound of a bone breaking was crisp. The corners of Uchiha Sasuke's mouth curled into a smug smile. The speed of the lightning release chakra mode combined with the accelerated impact of Chidori was enough to pierce through the defense of Susanoo. In the face of the high-speed Chidori lightning release, the first form of Susanoo was as fragile as a paper wall, completely unable to resist. Not good! Uchiha Itachi's figure rapidly retreated. However, Uchiha Sasuke pressed forward. The first form of Susanoo shattered instantly. Uchiha Itachi's body was about to be pierced directly by the Chidori in an instant, and he could already feel the sharpness of the Chidori on his body. Boom! Susanoo reformed. This time it wasn't just a simple first form. A red Susanoo skeleton suddenly appeared, and lines of chakra filled Susanoo's body in an instant, enveloping Uchiha Itachi in a complete Susanoo giant. The walls and ceiling of the entire warehouse were instantly shattered by the Susanoo giant's body. However, it wasn't over yet. The evolution of Susanoo continued. Chakra formed a thick layer of armor over Susanoo's body in an instant, covering Susanoo entirely. In one hand, Susanoo held a blazing red shield, and in the other a gored sword hilt. Uchiha Itachi spat out a mouthful of blood. Forcibly using Susanoo in this form was taking a heavy toll on his body, but this was already his strongest defensive technique. Uchiha Itachi raised his hand, manipulating Susanoo to raise the shield, directly knocking Uchiha Sasuke away. The Chidori posed no threat to that shield. In the next moment, Uchiha Itachi manipulated Susanoo to raise the gored sword hilt, stabbing it towards Uchiha Sasuke. A stream of liquid-like light emanated from the gored sword hilt. Uchiha Sasuke rolled on the ground to avoid the light. Uchiha Itachi's Susanoo had already reached the limit of his control. The defensive shield in his hand could resist any attack, and the gored sword light in his other hand could extend indefinitely. Yata Mirror, Tatsuka Blade. Among those present, only Uchiha Madara understood these the best. Sitting on a stone chair, Uchiha Madara's eyes finally showed interest. He watched Uchiha Itachi's Susanoo wielding its weapons with great interest. The Yata Mirror that is said to be able to defend against any attack, and the Tatsuka Blade that can seal anything. Uchiha Madara smiled lightly, not withholding his praise. Even I feel a bit envious of these two weapons. However, just as Uchiha Madara was smiling lightly, Uchiha Itachi's Tatsuka Blade continued to attack Uchiha Sasuke, forcing him to dodge in a sorry state. Until Uchiha Itachi saw the figures of Uchiha Sasuke and Uchiha Madara overlap, his expression changed slightly, and he suddenly retracted the gored sword hilt. In the next moment, the Tatsuka Blade shot out from the gored sword hilt again. The light of the Tatsuka Blade was dazzling, forcing Uchiha Sasuke to dodge instantly. At the moment Uchiha Sasuke dodged, the Tatsuka Blade continued with undiminished momentum, suddenly striking Uchiha Madara, who was sitting on the stone chair. No one present had expected such a twist in the duel. No one had anticipated that during the battle between Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Sasuke, Uchiha Itachi's Susanoo would make a mistake and directly hit Uchiha Madara. The light of the Totsuka blade grew intense. No matter how strong Uchiha Madara was, his soul was being involuntarily drawn back by the Totsuka blade, seemingly about to be sealed. This unexpected turn caught everyone off guard. Black Zetsu suddenly became tense. Because the Totsuka blade was the most terrifying Kusanagi sword in the ninja world, capable of sealing all evil and strange forces, it was especially effective against reanimated beings like Uchiha Madara. Interesting. Uchiha Madara looked at the Totsuka blade piercing his body without a trace of panic. Uchiha Madara looked at the Totsuka blade piercing his body without a trace of panic, but his eyes grew dangerously sharp. For an Uchiha with the Sharingan, such a basic mistake of injuring a spectator shouldn't happen. Sorry. Standing within Susanoo, Uchiha Itachi lowered his eyes slightly, seemingly apologetic. My vision has deteriorated significantly. I didn't see your position clearly, but Uchiha Itachi suddenly manipulated Susanoo to retract the Totsuka blade, intending to seize this opportunity to seal the reanimated Uchiha Madara into the Totsuka blade. Since the mistake has been made, I might as well let it be. This was a plan Uchiha Itachi had conceived long ago. This was also why Uchiha Itachi hadn't used Amaterasu. He had to save enough eye power to deal with the reanimated Uchiha Madara. Without a doubt, Uchiha Madara was an evil person. Uchiha Itachi took advantage of Uchiha Sasuke's attack momentum, gradually forcing himself to use Susanoo, forcing himself to confront his brother with Susanoo. Taking this opportunity, while Susanoo could still be maintained, he caused a mistake with the Totsuka blade in the battle, thereby injuring the always watching Uchiha Madara. The other surviving Uchiha posed no threat. However, the reanimated Uchiha Madara would definitely instill evil thoughts into Uchiha Sasuke, and Uchiha Madara's power would pose a huge threat to Uchiha Sasuke, which Uchiha Itachi could never tolerate. This kind of mistake shouldn't happen. Uchiha Madara stroked his eye sockets, still resisting the sealing power of the Totsuka blade, his battle intent shining fiercely in his eyes. Kid, should I take this as a premeditated challenge against your predecessor? You can. Killing Sasuke is just a minor issue. Uchiha Itachi raised his gaze, looking at the Uchiha Madara sitting on the stone chair. Eliminating the souls that should be buried is the real issue. I originally didn't want to intervene. Uchiha Madara shook his head, a pale blue skeleton gradually appearing around him, a chilling chakra suddenly bursting from his body, his face revealing an arrogant smile. Kid, you're the one who initiated the provocation. Uchiha Madara's spirit was somewhat excited. As a militant, killing an annoying junior and demonstrating the ultimate power of the Uchiha to those present was something he enjoyed. A deep blue chakra erupted from Uchiha Madara, forming a towering Susanoo. A sickly madness appeared on his face. This chakra made all the Uchihas involuntarily feel a deep sense of fear. Uchiha Itachi also felt uneasy because the Totsuka blade carried a deadly sealing genjutsu. Anyone struck by it should be drawn into an illusionary world of drunken dreams. However, Uchiha Madara's will was astonishingly strong. The genjutsu of the Totsuka blade was easily seen through by such a person, and he even possessed the will to resist it. The stronger his will to resist the Totsuka blade, the harder it was for the blade to absorb him into its gourd. Uchiha Itachi watched the blazing light emanating from the Totsuka blade. The light remained embedded in Uchiha Madara, but he had already gained the upper hand. I have the advantage. The sealing power of the Totsuka blade is absolute and cannot be resisted. That's not entirely wrong. Uchiha Madara's mouth curled into a slight smile. The blue Susanoo extended 2 more arms, making it appear extremely bizarre. The 2 arms of the blue Susanoo firmly grasped the blazing light of the Totsuka blade, doing everything possible to prevent Uchiha Madara's body from being sealed. The legendary sealing power of the Totsuka blade is indeed invincible. Uchiha Madara disdainfully looked at Uchiha Itachi's red Susanoo, then suddenly sneered. But I have a curious question. Can the Susanoo wielding the Totsuka blade last long enough to seal my body? Uchiha Itachi was shocked. If his red Susanoo was broken by Uchiha Madara, the Totsuka blade would not have time to seal him and would disappear immediately. However, as the owner of the Mangekyou Sharingan, the third form of Susanoo was his limit. Its defense was said to be invincible. Until now, Uchiha Itachi had only seen Akihara Kagura break through Susanoo's defense. Your weapon is indeed good. Uchiha Madara stood inside the head of the blue Susanoo, looking down haughtily at Uchiha Itachi inside the red Susanoo. If you had a pair of eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, even I might find it troublesome and annoying. Unfortunately, a look of regret appeared on Uchiha Madara's face. His hand suddenly clenched into a look of regret appeared on Uchiha Madara's face. His hand suddenly clenched into a fist, and the blue Susanoo expanded once again. A Susanoo as tall as a mountain lifted the roof and stood on the land once owned by the Uchiha. The complete Susanoo, over 100 meters tall, appeared with clasped hands. The armor of chakra immediately covered its body. This was a true demon god. Uchiha Madara stood within a crystal on the forehead of this demon, his face full of arrogance and battle intent. Every use of Susanoo brought him immense confidence. Whether it was Uchiha Shisui's green Susanoo of Uchiha Itachi's red giant Susanoo in front of the blue complete Susanoo, they were like immature children, seemingly easy to crush. Is this a joke? This level of Susanoo? One by one, the Uchihas looked up in horror. There was no place left for them to stay in this warehouse. If they stayed, they might die from the collateral damage of the battle. The blue Susanoo stood towering. Even the outside observers, Hoshigaki Kisame and Karin, saw this scene. Hoshigaki Kisame tightly gripped his Samehada sword, while Karin remained calm because she had witnessed Akihara Kagura's true several thousand hands. However, those facing the blue Susanoo would not remain calm. Uchiha Itachi was terrified. This usually calm man couldn't hold back, desperately manipulating the red Susanoo's arms to pull back, trying to seal Uchiha Madara as quickly as possible. The light of the Totsuka blade was still embedded in Uchiha Madara, but part of it was stuck in the crystal of the blue Susanoo, unable to move. This is the complete form of Susanoo. Uchiha Madara stood in the crystal of the complete Susanoo, looking down coldly at the red Susanoo below. Even a child with a sharp weapon is just a child to an adult, easily dealt with. Such a pity. Uchiha Madara controlled Susanoo to slowly draw a giant katana, slashing it towards Uchiha Itachi's Susanoo. Boom! Uchiha Itachi manipulated Susanoo to raise the Yata mirror. This divine weapon was renowned for its defense, and he could only use the Yata mirror to block the blue Susanoo's blade. The third form of Susanoo couldn't move flexibly. The moment the Yata mirror and the blue katana clashed, a powerful shockwave erupted, sending everyone flying. The entire Uchiha clan's old base was leveled instantly. Even those outside, Karin and Hoshigaki Kisame, felt the intense shock and their bodies were thrown back. However, one person remained as steady as a mountain. Akihara Kagura stood on the flattened ground, gently raising his hand. Vines sprouted from the ground, catching all the root ninjas, ensuring everyone landed safely. Lord Kagura! The Uchihas present finally found their backbone. Lord Kagura! Lord Kagura, why are you here? Karin and Uchiha Sasuke landed beside Akihara Kagura, wanting to ask or report something, but Akihara Kagura stopped them with a wave of his hand. No hurry! Akihara Kagura waved his hand, watching the tall blue Susanoo. Let's wait until their battle is over. Crack! A crack suddenly appeared on the armor of the red Susanoo. The Yata mirror in the hand of the red Susanoo, truly a legendary artifact, did indeed block the powerful slash from the blue Susanoo. However, the body of the red Susanoo could not withstand it. Even though the Yata mirror could block all attacks and even counterattack with its original strength, the body of the red Susanoo couldn't endure even the residual power of this slash. Crack! Crack! The cracks on the armor of the red Susanoo spread faster and faster. The next moment, the entire red Susanoo collapsed instantly. Uchiha Itachi spat out a mouthful of blood, unable to suppress his pain, with blood continuously flowing from the corners of his mouth. He felt a sharp pain in his eyes and brain, as expected. As the red Susanoo collapsed, the sealing power of the Totsuka blade also quickly disintegrated. Uchiha Madara finally slowly dispelled his Susanoo. I have many ways to break your Susanoo. Uchiha Madara landed beside Uchiha Itachi, still looking at him arrogantly. However, consider this slash a reward for daring to challenge your predecessor. In this battle, Uchiha Itachi had already lost to Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Itachi, holding his mouth, blood gushing from his fingers, staggered and could not stand. Uchiha Itachi could only stand amidst the ruins, leaning against a broken wall with the Uchiha clan symbol on it. He turned his head to look at the crowd, searching for something. However, where his eyes rested was a group of hostile clansmen. Kill him! We must kill him here! We must kill him here! He's just a traitorous dog who abandoned his clan! All the Uchihas present slowly surrounded Uchiha Itachi, showing no mercy as they revealed their killing intent upon seeing he was still alive. Behind these clansmen, Uchiha Itachi saw the figure of Akihara Kagura, the man who had been his opponent since the Chunin exams. Akihara Kagura seemed to notice Uchiha Itachi's gaze. He turned to look at Itachi, a strange smile appearing on his face. What is this guy smiling about? Uchiha Itachi frowned. He did not want to look at Akihara Kagura anymore because his body was already about to give out when Susanoo was destroyed. His chronically ill body had been torturing him, and he could only lean against the wall in his current state. Even if his clansmen did not strike, he would die here. Uchiha Itachi wanted to find his brother Uchiha Sasuke before he died, to tell Sasuke something he had always wanted to say. However, Uchiha Sasuke appeared beside Akihara Kagura. Uchiha Sasuke looked at his brother with disgust, as if annoyed that Uchiha Itachi had not died in the previous Susanoo battle. Under Itachi's gaze, he saw Akihara Kagura pat Sasuke's shoulder, and the disgust and impatience on Sasuke's face gradually faded. This younger brother seemed very close to Akihara Kagura. The brother who was once closest to him would no longer be close, instead, obediently following the commands of his longtime enemy. Cough, cough! Uchiha Itachi spat out another mouthful of blood. All of this now. Is it the price he has to pay? But if he were to die like this, to suffer this cruelty as atonement, at least Sasuke now has found a home. Perhaps. For Sasuke, this current life is not bad. At least Sasuke is not alone, with a goal to revive the Uchiha clan, surrounded by many Uchihas. The only problem is Akihara Kagura. Do you want to see him one last time? Akihara Kagura glanced at Sasuke beside him and asked. I see his body seems to be giving out. Although Uchiha Itachi might be heartless, he is still your brother. Sasuke turned his head away impatiently. Let's go, I'll accompany you to see him. Akihara Kagura led Sasuke step by step toward Uchiha Itachi, speaking softly. No matter what, I have known him since we were 10. The crowd parted to make way. Uchiha Itachi watched Sasuke approach step by step, ignoring Akihara Kagura beside him, a hint of anticipation appearing in his eyes. Uchiha Itachi! Sasuke looked at Itachi coldly, his voice icy. At this point, do you have any last words? Cough, cough! Blood was still pouring from Uchiha Itachi's mouth. Gaze fixed on Uchiha Sasuke, and he surprisingly revealed a relieved smile. I'm sorry, Sasuke. If your last words are an apology, then there's no need to say them. Uchiha Sasuke coldly rejected Itachi's apology, showing no regard for it. His eyes even showed more disgust. It's a pity I didn't defeat you with my own hands. I had meticulously prepared a technique to bury you. Sorry. Uchiha Itachi seemed to still want to maintain his politeness. It seems to be a deathbed confession. Akihara Kagura tilted his head, waved to Uchiha Sasuke beside him, and said, All right, let me talk to Uchiha Itachi next. As his former comrade and enemy, let me send him off. Everyone else, step back. Yes, a group of Uchiha members retreated swiftly. Even Uchiha Sasuke left the scene. Uchiha Madara, obviously insensitive to the situation, stood nearby, watching them with great interest, seemingly wanting to hear what Akihara Kagura had to say to Uchiha Itachi. Are you satisfied with Sasuke's life? Akihara Kagura's lips curled into a slight smile. He continued, smiling. If nothing unexpected happens in the future, he will likely stay in the Root Division for his life, perhaps becoming the third leader of Root, continuing to protect Konoha alongside the surviving Uchiha. A glimmer of light appeared in Uchiha Itachi's eyes. But Akihara Kagura suddenly approached Uchiha Itachi slowly, a slight smile on his lips as he lowered his voice. If I choose to tell him the truth about the Uchiha clan's massacre, letting him know that all those dead family and clan members died for his sake, and let the current survivors around him know that they ended up like this because his brother, Uchiha Itachi, chose to slaughter his clan and parents to let him live. Uchiha Itachi looked as if he had seen a devil. If that happens, how could Uchiha Sasuke have a place to stand? How could this younger brother continue to stay among the clan members? This younger brother would be despised by all the clan members. Perhaps this younger brother wouldn't even want to live anymore. Perhaps this younger brother wouldn't even want to live anymore. Uchiha Itachi, you have thrown Sasuke's life into the depths of hell. Akihara Kagura placed his hand on Uchiha Itachi's neck, as if they were very close. I personally rescued Sasuke from hell. I turned his dark future into a warm and bright one. But Akihara Kagura's smile grew stronger as he continued with a light chuckle. I've heard an interesting theory. If a person in darkness gets a little warmth and then loses that warmth, it will drive them into an even more obsessive darkness. You! Uchiha Itachi looked at Akihara Kagura with a face full of terror, his eyes filled with disbelief at what Akihara Kagura was saying. Because Uchiha Itachi knew how severe it would be if this happened. If Uchiha Sasuke only experienced the pain of losing his family and clan once, but then gained their admiration again, and then was made to lose it all once more, his younger brother would completely collapse. Is this Akihara Kagura's scheme? Is this the revenge you want against me? Uchiha Itachi, trembling, looked at Akihara Kagura with blood still on his lips and pleaded in a low voice, Don't drag Sasuke into our hatred. Of course. Akihara Kagura patted his shoulder, smiling as he spoke. It all depends on your performance, Itachi. You don't want Sasuke to know the truth, right? What do you want me to do? Uchiha Itachi, striving to pull himself together, asked in a deep voice. There's nothing I can do to help you now. If you need, you can use Edo Tensei to bring me back. What a coincidence! I also prepared a surprise resurrection for you. Akihara Kagura slowly took a few steps back, waving goodbye to Uchiha Itachi. Before that, mourn for your soon-to-end life. Uchiha Itachi collapsed to the ground in defeat. This man, who had once massacred his clan, finally died on the land that once belonged to his family. His eyes seemed to still show some unwillingness before he died. Did he die with his eyes open? Akihara Kagura glanced at Uchiha Itachi's wide-open eyes, shook his head, and sighed. It seems he still regrets not being able to take Sasuke's eyes. This guy! Was it really all for his brother? Uchiha Madara stood in front of Akihara Kagura, having listened to their entire conversation and roughly understood the truth about Uchiha Sasuke and Uchiha Itachi. You knew all of this? Uchiha Madara looked at Akihara Kagura with a strange expression and said, But you deliberately trained his brother to kill him, for the eternal Mangekyou Sharingan? No! A smile appeared at the corner of Akihara Kagura's mouth as he said something that even Uchiha Madara found somewhat shameless. I did it for fairness and justice. Ha! Uchiha Madara looked at Akihara Kagura with a hint of confusion in his eyes, seemingly unable to understand why someone like Akihara Kagura existed in the ninja world. You are truly despicable and shameless in your methods. Uchiha Madara sneered and directly issued a regional insult to Akihara Kagura. No wonder you are an advisor to the Hokage of Konoha. Thank you for the compliment. Akihara Kagura was not bothered by Uchiha Madara's insults toward the Hokage advisor. All right, Uchiha Madara snorted coldly and said, Now that this amusement is almost over, it's time to drag out that kid Nagato. Understood. Akihara Kagura nodded and brought up a problem to Uchiha Madara. But there are still 4 previous Hokages I resurrected with Edo Tensei running rampant in Konoha. Lord Madara should be able to handle them, right? 4. A look of interest immediately appeared on Uchiha Madara's face. He was only concerned about one of the 4 Hokages. Hashirama, did you also resurrect him? Yes, Akihara Kagura nodded. Ha 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 ha! Uchiha Madara suddenly burst into laughter, even sounding somewhat delighted. Hashirama was resurrected too. This resurrection is truly interesting, ha ha ha. At this point, Uchiha Madara even clenched his fist, grinning. I thought this resurrection would be boring, just following the plan step by step, but now it seems this world is more interesting than I imagined. Uchiha Madara's excitement surged again. This war-loving ambitionist found his opponent. Let's first attack Konoha to find Nagato's whereabouts, and in the meantime have a fight with Hashirama to show him my strength, to be honest. After awakening the Rinnegan before his death, Uchiha Madara's other wish besides completing the Eye of the Moon plan was to show off in front of his old teammate and friend, Senju Hashirama, to let him know how strong he had become. This was something Uchiha Madara had wanted to do for a long time. Unfortunately, by then, Senju Hashirama was already dead, and Uchiha Madara was old, unable to fight Senju Hashirama anymore. Now, Uchiha Madara was in his prime. As far as he remembered, Senju Hashirama had also died in his prime. Uchiha Madara, being a complete battle maniac, immediately wanted to take action. His figure instantly leaped several times, heading towards Konoha. Madara! Black Zetsu wanted to remind Uchiha Madara that it had seen Senju Hashirama's strength when he chased Uchiha Obaido. Senju Hashirama's power is also nearly at his peak. Huh, isn't that perfect for me? Uchiha Madara's excitement only grew. There was nothing more exhilarating than this. He originally thought he would just be slightly beating up juniors, but now Senju Hashirama was also resurrected, making this extremely interesting for him. This time, it's my turn to attack Konoha. Uchiha Madara smirked, recalling his past, his smile turning somewhat sinister. Hashirama, can you protect Konoha this time? In the old Uchiha clan territory, a group of Uchiha members stood there, some still stunned as they watched Uchiha Madara leave to attack Konoha. They looked at Akihara Kagura in surprise. That guy is going to attack Konoha. Uchiha Sasuke stood beside Akihara Kagura and took the initiative to ask, shouldn't we stop him? Let the first Hokage deal with him. Akihara Kagura shook his head gently and said in a low voice, there should be no one more suitable than the first Hokage. Let him test his own strength. A strange smile appeared on Akihara Kagura's lips. If he still loses to the first Hokage, then he will understand his own weakness. If he wins against the first Hokage, I will make him realize that there is always someone stronger. Yes! Uchiha Sasuke nodded, glanced at his brother's corpse, and said softly, "Can I bury Itachi's body before leading the team to hunt down Uchiha Obaido?" This was the wish of the surviving Uchiha. Hunting down Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Obaido was necessary because they were the ones who had exterminated the clan. They could not be forgiven under any circumstances. "Karin!" Akihara Kagura beckoned to Karin and instructed, "Help take Uchiha Itachi's eyes and give them to Sasuke. When Sasuke awakens the Mangekyo Sharingan in the future, he can use Itachi's eyes to prevent blindness." "Yes," Karin immediately complied. Uchiha Sasuke fell into silence. Because Uchiha Itachi wanted to kill the entire clan to obtain the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, Sasuke couldn't quite bring himself to appreciate its power. Power itself is not wrong. Akihara Kagura, like an elder brother, patted Uchiha Sasuke's shoulder gently and consoled him. The ones who make mistakes are always the people who wield the power. While speaking, Akihara Kagura glanced at the people present. "If you want to revive the Uchiha clan, you need a pair of powerful eyes to gain recognition. The leader of the root in the future must be as strong as possible, right?" Uchiha Sasuke nodded, slowly reached out, and took the bottle containing the sealed eyes from Karin. He didn't want to dwell on these eyes and changed the subject. "Captain Kakashi and Naruto are still holding off Uchiha Obaido. Or perhaps they are the ones being held off by Uchiha Obaido." Akihara Kagura chuckled and waved his hand. "Sasuke, you all should go. This time finish off Uchiha Obaido." "Yes," Uchiha Sasuke agreed, and as he led a group of root ninjas away, he suddenly said, "By the way, that guy Hoshigaki Kisame escaped." "It doesn't matter." Akihara Kagura shook his head, unconcerned. Since the Akatsuki base had been destroyed and these root ninjas were going to eliminate Uchiha Obaido, Hoshigaki Kisame was certainly homeless. There was no need to worry about him. Hoshigaki Kisame would eventually fall into their hands. Just as the group of root ninjas was about to leave, Akihara Kagura waved at them as if bidding them farewell. "Sasuke!" Akihara Kagura called out to Uchiha Sasuke, smiling gently. "You've achieved your goal." Akihara Kagura called out to Uchiha Sasuke, smiling gently. "You've achieved your goal today. The path ahead is for you to decide." These root ninjas had all had tragic lives. Whether it was Uchiha Sasuke or the surviving Uchiha, they were victims of Konoha's internal conflicts. He had given them a home and the power to protect themselves. The future path no longer needed his guidance. Now, he had his own matters to attend to. The Uchiha looked at Akihara Kagura in surprise. "What?" Uchiha Sasuke looked at Akihara Kagura in astonishment but seemed to understand his meaning. With a serious and determined expression, he nodded. "Yes, I will not disappoint you." Perhaps, Akihara Kagura meant, that with Uchiha Itachi dead, his desire for revenge was gone. What remained was the matter of the Root and Team 7. Uchiha Sasuke quickly left with the Root ninjas, as he still needed to lead his clan to deal with the traitor Uchiha Obaido, who had brought calamity to the Uchiha clan. "Lord Kagura." After Uchiha Sasuke left, Karin looked at Akihara Kagura in surprise. "Lord Kagura, are you leaving the Root?" Karin could sense Akihara Kagura's intention to leave the Root. She was uneasy, knowing about his collusion with the Akatsuki, and asked, "Or are you leaving Konoha? Wasn't this always going to happen?" Akihara Kagura smiled, turned to look at Uchiha Itachi's burial site, and continued, "Karin, if you want to return to Konoha and live a peaceful life, you can follow them. I can appoint you as the third leader of the Root in advance." "Absolutely not." Karin clenched her fist, a trace of unwillingness still on her face. "I don't really care much about these things, but that idiot Sasuke always wants to compete with me for the future leader position. I'm only 21 years old." Akihara Kagura cracked his fingers and tapped Karin's forehead. "You two youngsters are still a bit early to be thinking about inheriting the leader's position. Lord Kagura, you never really valued the leader position of the Root either. This position was passed to me by Lord Danzo. Danzo has long since become a sacrifice. Show some respect to our first leader." Akihara Kagura shook his head, seemingly a bit dissatisfied with Karin's bluntness. "No matter what, he created a home for us, the homeless." "Yes," Karin sighed and continued, "to thank Lord Danzo, we first helped him with his arduous work, then helped him transcend the shackles of life. Saying it like this makes us sound like heinous criminals. Clearly, Lord Kagura is the good person." Karin looked at Akihara Kagura's figure, slightly lowering her head, not voicing her inner thoughts. Unfortunately, most people in the ninja world would not agree with what she wanted to say. "Let's get to business." Akihara Kagura's gaze fell on Uchiha Itachi's burial site. From the shadow on the ground, a figure slowly emerged. It was Akihara Kagura's Tendo Shisui. Evidently, everything that happened today had not escaped Shisui's notice. "Itachi!" Uchiha Shisui felt particularly complex, looking at Akihara Kagura. What do we do now? Revive Itachi with Edo Tensei? First, help me collect his body. Akihara Kagura waved his hand and slowly spoke. Next is just to wait for a big news explosion, wait for the 5 great villages of the ninja world to unite and come after me. And then, catch them all in one go. Akihara Kagura lightly tapped his arm with his fingers. The progress of collecting the chakra of the 10 tails within Akihara Kagura's body had long surpassed 70% over the years. According to Akihara Kagura's judgment, he needed the opportunity of a great ninja world war to fully revive the 10 tails within him. Let's go! Akihara Kagura watched as Shisui collected Uchiha Itachi's body and said to himself, before the real war starts, let's find a peaceful place to rest. A peaceful place? Let's go to the Valley of the End first. Akihara Kagura mentioned a nostalgic name and slowly said, it's a great place for fishing, outside Konoha village. Chunin Kotsuhagen and Izumo Kamizuki were still guarding the gate. Just as the two of them were feeling a bit bored, a group of toads appeared here, among them a particularly huge toad. This huge toad seemed to be just a bearer, carrying a cradle on its back, in which sat a toad wrapped in bandages. It was none other than Fukasaku, the sage of Mount Maiboku, and his son Gamabunta. Fukasaku had black bandages wrapped around his claws and arms, and his face showed a look of dejection and sadness, as if an important person had passed away. We are from Mount Maiboku, here to visit the 5th Hokage of Konoha to discuss some important matters. Yes, Kotsuhagen dared not be careless. Kotsuhagen dared not be careless. This matter was quickly reported to the Hokage's office. As the 5th Hokage, Tsunade did not hesitate, swiftly ordering the Konoha ninja to clear the way and invite Fukasaku to the Hokage's office for a meeting. While Fukasaku and Gamabunta were heading to the Hokage's office, a team of rain ninjas rushed over, carrying a pile of stretchers, led by a person of seemingly significant status. I am Hanzo of the Salamander. Hanzo's first words startled Kotsuhagen. That one! That one! Kotsuhagen's eyes widened in disbelief. Hanzo of the Salamander was used to such reactions and spoke in a deep voice. Go inform your 5th Hokage I have come to Konoha for an important discussion with her. Additionally, Hanzo pointed to one of the stretchers, on which lay a tall, white-haired man. I also brought a ninja who needs her treatment. Hokage building. Gamabunta lay beside the Hokage building. Fukasaku straightened his robe, sitting in the Hokage office with a sorrowful expression, and softly began to convey the distressing news to Tsunade. First, Jiraiya has died in battle. Tsunade's mind instantly went blank. As the Hokage of Konoha, Tsunade's emotions had just begun to grieve. Even as she recalled various conversations with Jiraiya, she had to suppress her inner sorrow and maintain a composed demeanor. Lady Tsunade, Shizu noticed Tsunade's body trembling slightly. It's okay. Tsunade shook her head, lowering it slowly to control her emotions, and continued, Fukasaku, please tell me what happened. Sorry, Fukasaku closed his eyes, continuing calmly. What I am about to say might shock you even more. It won't. Tsunade shook her head firmly, though her voice trembled as she continued. Nothing could shock me more than Jiraiya's death, compared to what I'm about to say. Fukasaku sighed and was about to continue with more troubling news. Lady Tsunade. An ANBU suddenly interrupted them, loudly announcing, Lord Jiraiya has returned, along with Hanzo of the Salamander from Rain Village. Upon hearing the first part, Tsunade hurriedly stood up, her excitement evident to anyone observing the 5th Hokage's reaction. Jiraiya is still alive. Fukasaku, unaware of the false information, showed a bit of joy on his face. I thought he had died at the hands of Akihara Kagura. Wait, who? Tsunade's forward steps abruptly stopped, feeling as if she had just misheard, a wave of dizziness overcoming her. Did you just say that the one who tried to kill Jiraiya was? Who? Akihara Kagura. Fukasaku had to state this harsh truth, even adding, he's Jiraiya's student and Konoha's advisor to the Hokage. In Tsunade's mind, it was as if a tightly stretched string suddenly snapped upon hearing that name. Fukasaku, this joke is not funny. Tsunade angrily punched through the office door, intending to see Jiraiya first to ensure his safety, and then to hear the truth directly from him. A minute later, Tsunade saw Jiraiya. She also saw Konan and Nagato who had come along, and a man wearing a gas mask. Hanzo of the Salamander. Tsunade's nerves immediately tightened. Even though her current strength was vastly different from her younger days, she had never forgotten how terrifying the leader of Rain Village was. Don't be nervous, young lady. Hanzo spoke with magnanimity and gentleness, regarding Tsunade still as a junior, yet showing respect for the Hokage. Now you have become the Hokage. After many years, their statuses had changed. The female ninja who once survived by naming herself on the battlefield had become the 5th Hokage of Konoha, and the proud demigod ninja of the battlefield had aged. This time we must thank Lord Hanzo. This time we must thank Lord Hanzo. Jirya, lying weakly on the sickbed, spoke softly. If not for Lord Hanzo, I might have died at the hands of Kagura. Was it really Akihara Kagura? The fifth Hokage had to accept a harsh truth. Jirya was indeed injured by Akihara Kagura and almost died in the Land of Rain. We've all been fooled by the young ones. Jirya held his hand to his forehead, his face no longer cheerful, but rather showing a self-deprecating bitter smile. About 10 years ago, when Uchiha Obaido first revealed his identity in Konoha, Akihara Kagura was already conspiring with him. Wait, Tsunade interrupted Jirya, raising a doubt. Although we were not in Konoha at that time, I checked the village records about Uchiha Obaido. Tsunade's expression turned strange. If I remember correctly, the first person to discover Uchiha Obaido's identity and report it to the village was Akihara Kagura. Yes! Jirya looked at Tsunade, a helpless look on his face. So, no one in the village would suspect that Uchiha Obaido and Akihara Kagura were colluding, right? This was so obvious. Uchiha Obaido had been active under the guise of the mysterious masked man and Uchiha Madara, even gaining the respect of Konan and Nagato with this identity. However, Uchiha Obaido's identity was suddenly exposed. This caused a lot of trouble for Uchiha Obaido and almost led to the breakdown of his cooperation with the Akatsuki organization. The identities of Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obaido were vastly different. Uchiha Obaido managed to survive this crisis thanks to the power of his Mangekyo Sharingan, but the cost of this exposure to his reputation was significant. However, the benefits were also substantial. Because it was Akihara Kagura who exposed Uchiha Obaido's identity, Konoha never suspected that Akihara Kagura would have any collusion with the Akatsuki organization. When I took Akihara Kagura on a journey through the ninja world and met Nagato and Konan again, by then, Kagura had completely colluded with the Akatsuki organization. Jirya's expression grew serious as he began to talk about something troublesome. Over the years, Akihara Kagura has maintained contact with the Akatsuki organization, secretly interfering with Konoha's investigations into Uchiha Obaido and the Akatsuki. Tsunade gasped, because this news was quite shocking to her. Jirya glanced at Konan and Nagato in the hospital room, adding, the reason Kagura colluded with the Akatsuki organization back then was that he wanted their support to become Hokage, and he would assist them in capturing the tailed beasts and cover their tracks. This plan, Jirya hesitated for a moment, then looked towards Hanzo of the Salamander. It was probably learned from the previous root leader, Danzo. Danzo had contacts with Lord Hanzo in the past, and Danzo's goal was also to get Lord Hanzo's support to become Hokage, but Lord Hanzo didn't agree. Of course, the Akatsuki organization couldn't do much for Akihara Kagura either. Tsunade's eyes twitched. Why are the two root leaders of Konoha so troublesome? The previous root leader was always detestable, and the current one, who was supposed to be less annoying, ended up being even more extreme. I have a question. Tsunade hesitated for a moment, then asked Jirya, did Kagura not become Hokage and thus break ties with the Akatsuki? Because becoming Hokage was never his true goal. Jirya shook his head and continued in a serious tone. Having the Akatsuki's secret support for his bid to become Hokage was just an excuse for his collusion with the Akatsuki. His real aim was Nagato's Rinnegan. Tsunade was at a loss for words. Although Akihara Kagura's actions were rather dark and he did collude with the Akatsuki, aiming for the Rinnegan wasn't entirely unacceptable. The root has always dealt with the dirty work. Moreover, Akihara Kagura had been actively pushing Konoha's investigation into the Akatsuki and Uchiha Obaido, even proposing at the 5-Cage Summit that the former Hokage should kill Uchiha Obaido. Tsunade frowned and raised another doubt. All along, Kagura has been vehemently advocating for the pursuit of the Akatsuki and Uchiha Obaido at all costs in front of me. But none of these pursuits have ever succeeded, have they? Jirya looked again at Nagato and Konan, answering, because Nagato and Uchiha Obaido kept asking Kagura to call off Konoha's actions, the former Hokage's efforts to chase Uchiha Obaido were always intermittent. And, no matter what he did, no one would suspect him of colluding with the Akatsuki or having secret contacts with Uchiha Obaido. And the ultimate goal of all this was to obtain Nagato's Rinnegan, and the war weapon that the Rinnegan can control. This time, when I went to the Land of Rain to investigate the Akatsuki's base, all my movements were within Akihara Kagura's plans. Jirya looked at Tsunade and spoke in a deep voice. Kagura is using the potential conflict between Nagato and me to gather information on Nagato. He thinks I can't collect much intel alone, and even Orochimaru has been used by him. Orochimaru. Tsunade heard a name that should have been long dead. Yes, Akihara Kagura has always colluded with Orochimaru. In fact, he might be a spy planted in Konoha by Orochimaru. Perhaps he returned to Konoha through Orochimaru's help. Jiraiya recounted these past events and continued solemnly. Uchiha Sasuke didn't kill Orochimaru. It might have been a ploy for Orochimaru to escape Konoha's animosity under the guise of death. Orochimaru and Akihara Kagura have always been in contact. Orochimaru blew up the trap set by Konan to cover Nagato and Konan's escape. He is still missing. Wait a minute. The information was overwhelming for Tsunade. The Hokage felt she needed a moment to process everything, rubbing her temples and trying to piece it all together. A Hokage advisor in the village is a spy for Orochimaru. The person who has been actively pushing the investigation of the Akatsuki and Uchiha Obaido is actually deeply colluding with these enemy ninjas. Tsunade, sorry, there is no time for you to take a break now. Jiraiya shook his head, looking at his old friend who seemed to have a headache, and continued to explain the tricky situation. We escaped Akihara Kagura's assassination, but this doesn't mean the end of the matter. The real trouble is just beginning. There's no rush to issue a wanted order. Tsunade, still rubbing her temples, stated her stance in a deep voice. Jiraiya, do you know how much turmoil it will cause if it's revealed that the Hokage advisor is colluding with the Akatsuki and Orochimaru? Bluntly speaking, most of Konoha's crises have been resolved by Akihara Kagura, even though many of these crises were also caused by Akihara Kagura. Tsunade, the fifth Hokage of Konoha, understood very well how much the ninjas of Konoha admired Akihara Kagura during this period. They have witnessed Akihara Kagura's strength. The village can do without her as the fifth Hokage, but absolutely cannot do without the Hokage's advisor. Compared to what I'm about to say next, these matters are insignificant. Jiraiya shook his head, his expression becoming extremely serious. He looked at Tsunade and continued, the ninja world is about to face a terrifying crisis. The Akatsuki's plan was to gather the tailed beasts to create a terrifying war weapon controlled by Nagato's Rinnegan. They originally intended to use this weapon, capable of destroying a major village with a single strike, to intimidate the ninja villages into not starting wars. But this plan is going to be used by Akihara Kagura. Akihara Kagura is seeking Nagato's Rinnegan to use that war weapon to destroy the ninja world. He wants to kill all the ninjas, end all the ninja villages of this era, and create new ninjas, ushering in a new era of the ancient ninja. Give me a moment to process this. Tsunade took a deep breath again and turned to punch the wall. For Tsunade, today felt like a roller coaster ride. She was mourning Jiraiya's death, and then Jiraiya returned alive. All right, this was something worth celebrating. But then she found out her Hokage advisor was colluding with the Akatsuki and Orochimaru. Actually, internal Konoha issues were manageable, as this wasn't unprecedented. The previous Hokage advisor, Danzo, often did things behind the third Hokage's back. As long as it was within Konoha, discussing it in a small meeting room could resolve it. But then Jiraiya came to tell her. The future of Konoha, that the Konoha ninjas always liked to talk about, had become the most dangerous and terrifying rogue ninja in the history of the ninja world. Tsunade looked at everyone present, her gaze falling on Nagato's Rinnegan. Her solution was often a bit violent. Since everything is caused by the Rinnegan and the war weapon, why don't we just destroy these eyes that bring disaster? No, this was Konan's firm objection. It seems not possible. This was Jiraiya shaking his head with a troubled look. Tsunade, it's best not to do that. This was Orochimaru, stretching his neck as he crawled into the hospital room through the window. Wait, Orochimaru? Orochimaru! Everyone present stared in shock at the man with the elongated neck. This man, is he even mortal? Whenever people in the ninja world thought Orochimaru had died, even when they mourned his passing or were on the verge of forgetting him, this guy always reappeared mysteriously, reminding everyone he was still alive. You're still alive! A hint of surprise flashed across Jiraiya's face as he deliberately lied with good intentions. We could never find any trace of you. We thought you died in that big explosion. Thanks to you. Orochimaru's body slithered into the hospital room like a snake, then quickly transformed back into human form. He smirked mysteriously. I've been following you all along and noticed you didn't seem to be looking for me. Ha ha ha! Jiraiya scratched the back of his head, laughing awkwardly. The situation was urgent, you understand. No problem, I can forgive that. Orochimaru's smile deepened. I was following you to see if anyone was trying to kill you. You rascal! Jiraiya angrily retorted, instantly displaying a double standard. Enough! Orochimaru chuckled, not wanting to argue with Jiraiya over this matter. He had come with an important message. According to my information, Akihara Kagura has found another way to obtain the Rinnegan. It's very likely that Uchiha Sasuke and Uchiha Itachi, the Uchiha brothers, also have a pair of Rinnegan. The Rinnegan evolved from the Uchiha clan's Sharingan. Akihara Kagura doesn't care about this pair of Rinnegan. He's long prepared an alternative plan. Everyone's expressions changed. If this is true, what should they do? First, we need to control Sasuke. Jiraiya suggested a plan. You're too late. Tsunede's face darkened, her brows furrowing with worry. Jiraiya, shortly after you left Konoha, the entire route mobilized to hunt down Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Abide. I also dispatched several teams to assist them. Everyone fell silent. I see. Orochimaru's eyes narrowed as he continued. That little guy initiated his plan when Jiraiya went to the Land of Rain. With two plans in action, at least one will succeed. There's another troubling issue. I included Team 7 among the dispatched teams. Tsunede's eye twitched as she seemed to recall something terrifying. If Akihara Kagura's goal includes the tailed beasts, then she had essentially handed the 9 tails to Akihara Kagura. The 9 tails is crucial. Nagato, lying on the hospital bed, reminded in a low voice, if Akihara Kagura wants to revive the war weapon, he will definitely try to capture the 9 tails. I will immediately send the 4 Hokages. Tsunade decided to leave immediately, stating firmly, with the 4 Hokages, Kagura can't. Wait! Jiraiya quickly stopped her, mentioning another problem. Kagura has always claimed that the 4 reanimated Hokages are under his control. Our first priority should be to seal the previous Hokages to prevent them from being manipulated by Kagura to attack us. That's impossible. Tsunade shook her head quickly, not believing it. From my observations, the previous Hokages and Akihara Kagura have never gotten along. To put it bluntly, the 4 previous Hokages never agreed with Akihara Kagura's proposals. Of course, most of this is because Akihara Kagura's proposals were too frightening. Naturally, 4 previous Hokages also did not agree with Tsunade's proposals. These 4 previous Hokages had more governing experience than she and Akihara Kagura. Their policies and proposals were more in line with Konoha's interests. I do believe this matter. Orochimaru smiled slightly and offered an intriguing perspective. When Akihara Kagura and I were colluding, I saw with my own eyes that he used the reanimation jutsu to revive the 4 Hokages, who were then unable to escape his control. Everyone present looked at Orochimaru with strange expressions. This guy, why does what he says always sound so odd? Orochimaru spread his palms and smiled, reminding Tsunade, if the 4 Hokages had escaped Akihara Kagura's control, why didn't they tell you about his collusion with me? Tsunade fell silent. Yes, Orochimaru hit the nail on the head. Orochimaru hit the nail on the head. If the previous Hokages knew about Akihara Kagura's collusion with Orochimaru, why hadn't they told her, at least to make her more cautious of Akihara Kagura? Moreover, if I'm not mistaken, Orochimaru looked at Tsunade and asked, didn't Akihara Kagura claim in Konoha that Danzo was still alive and that he always respected Danzo? Yes, Tsunade nodded. Jiraiya couldn't help but frown and said in a deep voice, Danzo's influence on Akihara Kagura is too deep, which is why he turned out this way. Ha! Orochimaru sneered, mocking his 2 old friends. Has anyone seen Danzo since I caused the Konoha's incident? Well, Tsunade recalled what Akihara Kagura had said about Danzo and explained in a deep voice, Danzo colluded with you to kill the old man, which is why he's been hiding in the root. Danzo has long been dead. Orochimaru shook his head and sneered. That incident was a plan orchestrated by Danzo, Akihara Kagura, and me. If it weren't for the cooperation of Konoha's strongest, how would I have dared to initiate the plan? The plan was to elevate Akihara Kagura to the Hokage position. However, midway through, Tsunade reaped the benefits of the plan, and on the night the plan ended, Danzo was used as a sacrifice by Kagura to resurrect the old man, and the previous Hokages were also revived that very night. I know about this too, Nagato cautiously added from the side. When Danzo died, Akatsuki's contact person Zetsu reported this to me. Tsunade widened her eyes, took a deep breath, and suppressed her rising anger. This matter. Kagura revived the previous Hokages with the High Level's permission. The purpose was to prevent you from using the Edo Tensei to control the previous Hokages to attack Konoha. That was a lie, Orochimaru chuckled, looking at his old friend Tsunade as if she were a naive little girl. In fact, when you were chosen to succeed as Hokage, Kagura had already figured out how to avoid your influence. Therefore, before you returned to Konoha to take over the Hokage position, Kagura had me and Kabuto take the reanimated Dan Kato to attack you. He even knew about your relationship with Dan Kato. All of this was to make you believe one thing. He must use the Edo Tensei to revive the previous Hokages. Otherwise, it would be me controlling the previous Hokages to threaten Konoha. After you became Hokage, he pretended to have just revived the 4 previous Hokages and began to secretly use their identities to control Konoha's political situation. That bastard! Tsunade swung her fist, smashing it against the hospital wall. Boom! The entire wall was suddenly shattered by a single punch. However, no one present said a word. They merely shrank back. They all understood the Hokage's feelings. They all understood. They all understood. As someone who had ascended to the position of Hokage, she had been pre-planned to become a puppet even before taking office, with every step controlled by others. After completely shattering the hospital wall with one punch, Tsunade's mood remained unsettled for a long time. She recalled the first time she met Akihara Kageura. Back then, she had just become Hokage and was thinking about how to cooperate with this Hokage advisor, working together to protect Konoha. Even after the resurrection of the 4 previous Hokages, that advisor always supported her proposals and even took the initiative to handle some inconvenient matters for her. At that time, Tsunade even understood why Sarutobi Hiruzen used Shimura Danzo, but the result, the resurrection of the 4 Hokages, was his conspiracy. Their participation in governance was his conspiracy. The decisions made by the 4 Hokages were his conspiracy. That bastard! When the 4 Hokages were resurrected, she thought they would support her, making it easier to govern Konoha. Instead, she found herself constantly hindered. So that's how it is! Tsunade stood before the broken wall of the hospital, gazing at the scenery of Konoha, and said coldly with narrowed eyes, "It turns out that before I even entered Konoha, I had already stepped into his trap without the slightest awareness. Actually, it's not entirely bad." Orochimaru, seeing Tsunade on the verge of rage, chuckled and consoled. After all, while Kageura was in Konoha, he did solve many problems for Konoha, and it is indeed because of his presence that Konoha has come this far. Without Akihara Kageura, Konoha would have just been one of the great ninja villages occupying fertile land, constantly coveted by other villages. It was precisely because of Akihara Kageura that Konoha could thrive, even conquering Sand Village and Mist Village, with Rock Village and Cloud Village also forced to bow down. "I will immediately dispatch the sealing team." Tsunade glanced at those present and said in a deep voice. The Ambu personnel must. Tsunade glanced at those present and said in a deep voice. The Ambu personnel must also be mobilized to first find a way to seal the 4 previous Hokages to prevent them from becoming tools for Akihara Kageura to attack Konoha. I quite agree with this suggestion. Orochimaru smiled as he looked at Tsunade. The combat power of the 4 previous Hokages, especially the strength of the first Hokage, Hashirama, is enough to destroy the entire village of Konoha. Tsunade felt her head was about to explode, yet she had to forcefully carry out this task. Even so, we cannot sit idly by. We must not let Akihara Kageura lead us by the nose. We must find a way to seal the 4 previous Hokage first. This is not easy. Orochimaru, smiling, shared his thoughts. To seal them, we must first destroy the bodies of these reanimated beings. Among the 4 previous Hokages, the 2nd Hokage and 4th Hokage are skilled in the Flying Thunder God technique. If they want to leave, they can easily escape. But, Jiraiya interrupted Orochimaru, stating something favorable to them. Moreover, I believe the 4 previous Hokages still want to protect Konoha. Kageura has likely not extinguished their will, and I think they will cooperate with us to be sealed. Konan and I can also help. Nagato, lying on a hospital bed, proactively suggested. Although the 6 paths of pain were mostly destroyed by Kageura, I have revived them. Besides, this matter is also a mess we created. Nagato, looking at everyone present, took the initiative to admit his mistake. If it weren't for us trying to collect tailed beasts to create war weapons, Kageura wouldn't have been able to exploit this. This is not your fault, Nagato. Hanzo of the Salamander, patting his shoulder, coldly comforted him. If you must blame someone, it's because Shimura Danzo, the former advisor to the Hokage, conspired with me to kill Yahiko that led to your thoughts. All right. Is the Land of Rain shirking responsibility like this? Tsunade clenched her fist, unable to argue because at the root of the issue, this was all Danzo's fault. At this point, we shouldn't be shirking responsibility. As the Hokage of Konoha, Tsunade had to deal with the problems left behind by Shimura Danzo. After all, these issues were nothing compared to the trouble brought by Akihara Kageura. Now, we must first address the crisis of Akihara Kageura. Tsunade tightened her fist and solemnly began to give orders. First, we need to gather our forces and seal the previous Hokages. Based on my understanding of Akihara Kageura, Orochimaru narrowed his eyes and pondered. He might already have a way for the 4 Hokages to escape from Konoha. This was a lesson Orochimaru had learned long ago. Akihara Kagura always had a follow-up plan before executing any scheme, never giving them time to react. And about Naruto, Jiraiya reminded Tsunade. And about Sasuke, Orochimaru also reminded Tsunade. I know. Tsunade waved her hand impatiently, feeling a bit annoyed with her two old friends. Did they think she was unaware? But what could she do even if she knew? Both Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke had already fallen into Akihara Kagura's trap. She could only send the Ambu to search for them to prevent them from going missing. I think. Hanzo of the Salamander looked at Tsunade and proactively suggested, this crisis might be beyond the power of Konoha alone to solve. Does Lord Hanzo have any suggestions? Tsunade frowned. Summon all the ninjas in the ninja world. Hanzo of the Salamander looked at Tsunade and suggested, at least be prepared for the worst. This is a crisis that could destroy the entire ninja world. Relying solely on Konoha's power may not be enough to stop the dangerous man named Akihara Kagura. I understand. Tsunade had to admit that Hanzo had a point. Akihara Kagura had never lost, whether his opponent was a person or an entire village. Hanzo of the Salamander continued, perhaps this might seem disrespectful to Konoha. Hanzo of the Salamander continued, perhaps this might seem disrespectful to Konoha, but the only hope of resolving this crisis lies in gathering enough people and combining their strengths. I support Lord Hanzo's idea. Nagato strongly supported Hanzo, recalling the principle once mentioned by his old friend Yahiko. A single straw is easily broken, but a bundle of straws is still easily broken. Conan had to remind Nagato. This was a metaphor Yahiko once used to gather stray ninjas, intending to demonstrate the strength of unity, but during his speech the straws broke easily. It was a lousy yet memorable speech. This straw example gave Conan a bad feeling. The first group of Akatsuki members who had gathered like straws had almost been wiped out, leaving only her and Nagato. Would the ninjas gathered this time be able to defeat Akihara Kagura? Having more strength is never a bad thing. Hanzo of the Salamander shook his head and said, I will go around the ninja world, dragging this old body of mine to persuade others to unite and solve this crisis, to avoid being defeated one by one. As far as I know. Hanzo of the Salamander looked at Tsunade and the others, saying in a deep voice, so far no major ninja village in the ninja world has ever won against Akihara Kagura. Yes, Tsunade had to admit this. Although Konoha had never faced the crisis of the village being destroyed, Akihara Kagura had once saved Konoha single-handedly. It was also possible for him to destroy Konoha single-handedly. Then I leave it to you, Lord Hanzo. Tsunade had to thank Hanzo of the Salamander for his goodwill. This is also a selfish idea of mine. Hanzo of the Salamander waved his hand and said, on the way here, they also discussed letting Nagato revive the war weapons, but every power comes with a price. If it doesn't require Nagato to pay a heavy price, at least it could leave a qualified successor for Rain Village. Lord Hanzo. Nagato stopped Hanzo of the Salamander and had to speak a truth to this respected elder. My life is nearing its end. If it comes to a critical point, I am prepared to sacrifice myself. Tsunade glanced at the emaciated Nagato. To be honest, based on her years of medical experience, it would be surprising if Nagato lived for another month or two. It was impossible for him to last much longer. Hanzo of the Salamander hesitated for a moment, perhaps a bit surprised. His body trembled slightly, and he slowly nodded. I understand. After Hanzo spoke, he continued in his deep voice, Nagato, death is not the end of life. If your journey is coming to an end, then do your best to leave your story in the ninja world. Let the ninjas of Rain Village and everyone in this ninja world remember that there was a man named Nagato who sacrificed himself for the survival of the ninja world. His will shall remain forever. Yes! Nagato's hand clenched tightly. I still need to go and contact the other ninja villages. Hanzo of the Salamander gazed at Nagato and continued softly, the survival of the ninja world does not depend on the strength of one person. I once thought I could shoulder the piece of the land of Rain alone, but ultimately I brought greater disaster to it. Even if we once called ourselves gods, we are ultimately mere mortals. The greatness of mortals lies in uniting all their strength. This is also the will that Yahiko left behind, and one that I deeply agreed with back then. After Hanzo finished speaking, he turned back and instructed the remaining Rain Village ninjas in Konoha. After I leave, you will follow Nagato's orders in everything. Lord Hanzo. Tsunade stopped Hanzo of the Salamander, who was about to leave, and instructed in a serious tone, after we resolve Konoha's internal issues, I want to use Rain Village to convene a 5-cage summit, inviting the leaders of the other great ninja villages to attend. Rain Village. It's indeed a suitable place. Because Rain Village is located in the center of the ninja world, it is convenient for all the major countries to reach, except for the Mist Village overseas. And, Tsunade added in a solemn tone, if necessary, Lord Hanzo can use the name of the Hokage to invite others. Konoha will support Lord Hanzo's actions. All right. Hanzo of the Salamander nodded and readily agreed. After this ninja demigod finished speaking, he left Konoha. At least he had gained Konoha's approval to gather everyone in the ninja world to solve this crisis together. This man once stood like a mountain in the ninja world. Tsunade sighed as she watched Hanzo's departing figure. Jiraiya, Orochimaru, I always thought we had already caught up to him, at least in terms of spirit. During the Second Ninja World War, the three legendary Sannin of Konoha had felt powerless against Hanzo's might. As they gradually grew stronger, the three legendary Sannin of Konoha's perspectives widened, and they thought they had equaled Hanzo. But now Tsunade suddenly realized that the gap between her and this ninja demigod was not just in power. Should I also go seek reinforcements? Jiraiya proposed his idea. I can go dig up some graves in the village. Orochimaru also offered his suggestion. Shut up! Tsunade turned around, swinging her fist, smashing the hospital table. What was wrong with these two old friends? Jiraiya was one thing, but Orochimaru wanted to take this opportunity to dig up graves. Nagato looked at the annoyed Tsunade, unsure if he should speak. What is it? Tsunade's expression softened. While she could lose her temper with Jiraiya and Orochimaru, she needed to maintain a friendly demeanor with others. Is there anything else we should be aware of? Could you ask Konoha to contact Sasori of the Red Sand? Nagato looked at Tsunade and spoke up. Members of the Akatsuki organization have grudges with Ikehara Kageura, especially Sasori, whose combat strength is considerable. Orochimaru's brow furrowed as he suddenly remembered something and asked in a deep voice, Has Sasori had private interactions with Ikehara Kageura? Have they? Nagato looked at Orochimaru in surprise. Sasori, that guy! Orochimaru recalled how Sasori of the Red Sand once threw him down the steps of the Akatsuki base and muttered, It's very likely someone from Ikehara Kageura's group. Moreover, Sasori and Yakushi Kabuto had once conspired to torture him together. These two were under Ikehara Kageura's orders, aiming for the Edo Tensei technique in his hands. Kabuto had mentioned this before. Nagato's eyes widened in shock. Sasori was one of the most trusted members of the Akatsuki for him and Conan, even saving them once. How could such a person be a spy for Ikehara Kageura? I suffered a lot because of that guy back then. Orochimaru smirked, a strange smile appearing on his face. I just remembered Kabuto is still in the village. Tsunade immediately thought of something and said in a serious tone, Yesterday, he reported to me about the Konoha hospital. That guy must be one of Ikehara Kageura's men. Feeling like she had finally caught a loophole of Ikehara Kageura, Tsunade quickly instructed the Anbu around her. Send people to the Konoha orphanage to detain Kabuto and have the interrogation team extract all information about Ikehara Kageura from him. He might have already fled by now. Orochimaru shook his head, not holding out much hope, and chuckled. Over the years, with Ikehara Kageura's support, Kabuto has amassed a considerable number of powerful reanimated ninja, almost enough to form an army. Among them, there are at least 3 to 4 cage-level combatants. It won't be easy to capture him. Wait, let me think. Tsunade rubbed her temples again and continued. So, capturing Kabuto will require a significant number of people. Now, Tsunade realized a more serious problem. They needed to seal the 4 previous Hokages, which required mobilizing a large portion of Konoha's high-level combat forces, possibly even all the Jounin-level fighters, to avoid any mishaps. At the same time, they needed to capture Kabuto, who had 3 to 4 cage-level figures under his control, also requiring high-level forces. Konoha's combat strength seemed somewhat insufficient. Tsunade's face turned extremely grim. Since she became the 5th Hokage, she had never considered that Konoha's combat power would be inadequate. Historically, Konoha's strongest combat unit was the Root. Members of the Root were all dual Kekkei Genkai ninjas with the Sharingan and Wood Release, each one being an elite Jounin-level fighter. In addition, there was Ikehara Kageura, the village's strongest combatant, who could single-handedly take down a major nation's ninja village, relieving Tsunade of any worries about insufficient combat power. However, in the situation where Root and Ikehara Kageura might become enemies, Konoha's combat strength suddenly showed a large gap. Tsunade never imagined that one day she would face such a dilemma. When had she ever fought such a difficult battle? Moreover, adding insult to injury. Just as Tsunade was calculating whom to send to capture Kabuto and who to help seal the 4 previous Hokages. Wait, someone is coming! Nagato's strong sensing ability quickly detected a terrifying chakra approaching Konoha. A powerful chakra is heading towards Konoha. Akihara Kagura! Everyone present believed that the approaching individual might be Akihara Kagura. No, it's not Akihara Kagura. Nagato shook his head, his body trembling slightly with unease. This person's chakra is strange, feeling both unfamiliar and somewhat familiar. Everyone, stay alert. Tsunade could only shout out loudly. Konoha had not yet resolved its internal issues, and now an external threat had appeared. All the Ambu quickly spread the word, and the defense units immediately went on alert, with piercing alarm sounds echoing throughout the village. He's here! Nagato suddenly looked in one direction. The direction Nagato was looking at was the Nagato suddenly looked in one direction. The direction Nagato was looking at was the Hawkage Rock of Konoha. Regardless of where you were in Konoha, you could see the Hawkage Rock as it was the village's sacred ground. A figure in red armor ignored Konoha's barrier, descending from the sky and landing directly on the Hawkage Rock, looking down arrogantly at the view of Konoha. HMPH! Konoha, Konoha Village. This name is well known throughout the ninja world. However, for the man standing on Hawkage Rock, it was merely a name he came up with on a whim when he saw a hollow leaf. A group of Konoha ninjas watched the proud man on Hawkage Rock vigilantly. Konoha had long since passed 60 years. It was unlikely anyone would still remember the man's name. Only those truly wise and insightful ninjas could deduce the man's true identity based on various facts. That man! Jiraiya saw the cracks on the man's face typical of an Edo Tensei, and his appearance remarkably similar to the statue in the Valley of the End. Orochimaru's lips curled into a grin, his face breaking into a cold sweat as he uttered a name that sent chills down the spine. It seems to be Uchiha Madara. Edo Tensei. Tsunade had to consider the reason for Uchiha Madara's appearance. Her brows furrowed. Did Kagura send Uchiha Madara to aid the escape of the 4 previous Hokages? Or did he have Madara cooperate with the 4 previous Hokages to attack Konoha? The other Konoha ninjas were still unclear about the situation, and some informed high-ranking officials suspected if it was a rogue Edo Tensei ninja from the root. However, this was the greatest danger Konoha had faced since its establishment, even more terrifying than the Nine Tails rampage, a danger that could lead to destruction if not handled carefully. Despite the unease in her heart, as Hokage, Tsunade, along with Orochimaru and Jiraiya, rushed forward first, she could not retreat in the face of the enemy at this moment. I need to ask. Tsunade clenched her fist and said in a deep voice, if it is the enemy, we must protect Konoha at all costs. I'll go with you. Jiraiya tore off his hospital gown and turned to Orochimaru. Hey, Orochimaru, can you still fight? Orochimaru glanced at Jiraiya but followed Tsunade nonetheless. Although Orochimaru did not want to take any risks, he knew very well how troublesome these legendary figures could be, but he could not suppress his curiosity. Thank you, both of you. Tsunade felt a sense of comfort and confidence welling up inside her. Jiraiya and Orochimaru, her companions for decades, were once again by her side in the most dangerous moment, and they had always been reliable on the battlefield. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The former 3 legendary Sannin of Konoha reappeared. The 3 of them landed instantly in front of Uchiha Madara. Tsunade clenched her fists and immediately questioned the man in front of her. Uchiha Madara, were you sent by Akihara Kagura? That brat! Uchiha Madara smirked, seemingly mocking why they would think he was under that kid's command. Orochimaru's voice lowered and he whispered, it seems Kagura is quite confident as he didn't erase Madara's will. Of course, they did not believe that Uchiha Madara had broken free from control. Since even the first Hokage Senju Hashirama could not break free from Edo Tensei's control, it was unlikely for Madara, who was acknowledged to be slightly weaker than Hashirama, to do so. Enough! Uchiha Madara glanced at the 3 legendary Sannin with a look of disdain and impatience. I'm not interested in children, nor do I want to talk much with you. Uchiha Madara's chakra exploded instantly. With his arms still crossed over his chest, he suddenly smiled. My original goal was to challenge Hashirama again, but I didn't expect to find a pleasant surprise here. What an unexpected joy. Uchiha Madara had already sensed Senju Hashirama's chakra, but hadn't expected to also sense Nagato's chakra here. Coming to one place, he could achieve 2 goals. Uchiha Madara's gaze slowly turned towards Konoha Hospital, his smile becoming increasingly cruel. Young ones, hand over Nagato. Absolutely not. Tsunade coldly rejected Madara's demand. The 5th Hokage of Konoha clenched her fists tightly, her voice resolute. Konoha will never let the Rinnegan fall into your hands. Huh! Uchiha Madara tilted his head, seemingly unable to understand Tsunade. With a cold sneer, he said, did you just say? You cannot let the Rinnegan fall into my hands. You think you found something precious and want to keep it for yourself, not returning it to its rightful owner, the Rinnegan. But those are my eyes. Suddenly, Uchiha Madara's chakra burst out. He swiftly moved toward Konoha Hospital, intending to reclaim his eyes before Nagato could destroy them. Bang! Tsunade blocked Madara's path, sending the legendary figure flying with a punch, her face resolute and determined. Seal him! Tsunade glanced at her two companions and gave a stern tactical order. First, break the body of the Edo Tensei, then use the sealing technique to bind him. We'll go together and eliminate one of Akihara Kagura's pawns. Orochimaru slowly nodded. The three legendary Sannin of Konoha. Jiraiya's face showed a hint of a smile, seemingly unconcerned about their opponent, focusing instead on their reunion. Finally gathered together again. With those words, the three figures charged at Uchiha Madara. The once famous three legendary Sannin of Konoha reunited at this moment to face a formidable enemy, just as they had done many years before. Orochimaru stood to the side, releasing a long snake towards Madara, intending to bind him. Tsunade leaped and smashed her fist towards Madara. Madara smashed the snake's head into a blood mist with a punch and ducked to avoid Tsunade's fist, which shattered the ground. The next moment, Madara supported himself on the ground with his palm and kicked Tsunade away. The most battle-hungry ninja of the Warring States era faced off against the best coordinated trio in Konoha's history. Even though the three legendary Sannin had been apart for nearly 20 years, their combat synergy seemed ingrained, immediately knowing what to do. Their attacks were well coordinated. Jiraiya quickly formed hand signs, and in the moment Madara kicked Tsunade, filled the gap in their offense, spitting out a ball of flames. Fire release! Fire dragon flame bullet! A ball of flames instantly surged towards Madara. It seemed Madara couldn't form hand signs in time to stop it and was hit directly by the flames, his body sent flying. Now! Jiraiya sharply looked at Orochimaru. Orochimaru's fingers swiftly formed a seal, producing a sealing scroll as he charged towards Madara. In the next moment, Madara kicked Orochimaru away. Madara nonchalantly extinguished the flames on his body, showing a contemptuous smile, yet he praised, "I recall this is a Sarutobi clan fire technique. Not bad, but—" Madara's fingers moved lightly as he watched the Sannin attacking again, bringing his fingers to his lips. Compared to the Uchiha, it's far inferior. Fire release, great fire annihilation. A massive wave of flames swept towards them, causing Tsunade, who was in the lead, to retreat hastily with a look of surprise. The flames of the great fire annihilation were as fierce as a fire phoenix rising on the Hawkage rock. Earth release, earth-style wall! Jiraiya and Orochimaru swiftly clapped their hands together, simultaneously pressing their palms on the ground, raising a huge wall to block the waves of flames. This guy! Jiraiya, still somewhat shaken, said in a deep voice, "This level of fire technique is almost comparable to Kagura." "Who are you praising?" Orochimaru glanced at Jiraiya. Just as they took a brief moment to catch their breath, Uchiha Madara's Susanoo suddenly emerged, its third form raising a glowing blue sword and shattering the earth wall in front of them. Susanoo! The eyes of the three legendary Sannin were filled with astonishment. Tsunade gritted her teeth, swinging her fist towards Susanoo. Bang! The entire Susanoo trembled. Same monstrous strength as Hashirama. Uchiha Madara raised his hand to reinforce his Susanoo. A hint of curiosity and surprise appeared in his eyes, yet he still unhesitatingly controlled Susanoo to punch Tsunade away. Inside the Konoha village, a giant toad leaped up and caught Tsunade. Gamabunta had accompanied his father, Fukasaku, to deliver a message to the Konoha. Gamabunta had accompanied his father, Fukasaku, to deliver a message to the Konoha village. Upon seeing the battle between Uchiha Madara and the three Sannin, he immediately came to support them. Gamabunta! A look of joy flashed across Jiraiya's face. He realized that the battle situation was turning in their favor, saving him from having to use a summoning technique. Gamabunta and Fukasaku, who had been staying in the Konoha village, could fight without time limitations from summoning techniques and stay to assist them in battle. After setting down Tsunade, Gamabunta wielded his giant short sword and heavily slashed at the blue Susanoo on the ground. Mount Maiboku! Uchiha Madara had heard of the name Mount Maiboku. Unconcerned, he controlled Susanoo to raise its blue ninja blade, forcibly blocking Gamabunta's attack. Push him to the rear mountain! Jiraiya instructed his summoned beast while giving orders to his teammates. This is the core of the Konoha village. Continuing the battle here will endanger innocent people. Summoning technique! Tsunade bit her finger. A huge slug appeared in front of them. Gamabunta and the slug joined forces to ram into the third form of Susanoo. Taking advantage of the moment, Tsunade punched Uchiha Madara, sending him flying backward. Behind the Hawkage rock in the Konoha village lies a vast forest. The next moment, Orochimaru landed in the forest, forming a summoning hand seal. The second generation Manda spiraled out of the forest, opening its mouth to bite Uchiha Madara. "You really know how to seize opportunities." Uchiha Madara smiled lightly, praising. However, after this compliment, the towering Susanoo reformed around him. This time, Susanoo appeared with legs, making it extremely agile. It kicked Manda's head in midair, causing Manda to tumble into the forest. Boom! The three giant summoned beasts also fell into the forest. The silhouettes of the three Sannin stood on their summoned beasts' heads, watching Susanoo confronting them. Despite facing the massive Susanoo, they showed no fear. Now, this was the form of the three Sannin. It really brings back memories. A naive and gentle voice came from the slug's mouth, sounding like a child's. "It's been a long time since we fought together like this, hasn't it? But why is Lord Orochimaru Lady Tsunade's ally now?" Tsunade found it difficult to answer. "Because Orochimaru is helping me protect the ninja world." Jiraiya shamelessly credited himself, grinning widely. "He used to help me a lot." "Idiot!" Orochimaru's eye twitched, but he didn't rebut. "Times have changed." Gamabunta glanced at Manda II, holding his pipe in his mouth, exhaling a cloud of smoke. "I hope this new partner gets along well. Please take care of me." The Manda II, the largest of the three summoned beasts, lay on the ground like a mountain, yet it had a very docile temperament. "Let's end the reminiscing for now." Tsunade looked at the Susanoo before them and spoke solemnly. "First, let's take care of this guy in front of us. There are still many troubles awaiting us." There were still many Edo Tensei resurrected individuals within the Konoha village. The sudden appearance of Uchiha Madara was just the first Edo Tensei target that the three Sannin needed to seal together. Root Base. This base had long been abandoned. 4 Hokages reanimated by the Edo Tensei resided here. The first Hokage, Hashirama, and the second Hokage, Tobirama, immediately recognized who was arriving when Uchiha Madara appeared. "This is Madara's chakra." Hashirama's expression was grave. "It's that guy's chakra." Tobirama, more sensitive to Uchiha Madara's chakra, placed his fingers on the ground and muttered, "That guy is fighting Tsunade and the others. It seems he was also revived by Akihara Kagura. What is his purpose in sending Uchiha Madara?" "Uchiha Madara is not very obedient," a voice echoed in their minds. Akihara Kagura's voice sounded somewhat leisurely, his will controlling the reanimated Hokages. "Konoha already knows you are under my control." However, Uchiha Madara still has great confidence in the first Hokage. He seems to believe that the first Hokage is not under the control of the Edo Tensei and is still protecting Konoha. "Then let Uchiha Madara know. Help me teach him a lesson and show him that the era of the ninja world has changed." "Madara will not submit." Hashirama immediately spoke on behalf of his former friend. "Does Konoha know the truth?" The third Hokage, Saruto by Hiruzen, frowned. Compared to the issue of Uchiha Madara, he was more concerned about the relationship between Konoha and Akihara Kagura. He was well aware of how terrifying Akihara Kagura's power was. Has Konoha already fallen out with Akihara Kagura? Dealing with Madara, huh? The second Hokage, Tobirama, was concerned about both matters and then asked another question. "So you intend to betray Konoha after all? You still have a bit of time to settle things with Konoha. The next time you meet, it might be on the battlefield." Akihara Kagura's voice faded from their minds. Now he just needed a bit of time, waiting for Hanzo of the Salamander and Tsunade to contact other major ninja villages to jointly crusade against him, the one who sought to destroy the ninja world. At that time, it would be the opportunity to revive the Ten Tails, and the chance to revive the Ten Tails shell within him. Behind Konoha, the battle continued. This time, the main characters of the battle had changed. Gamabunta wielded his short sword, contending with the blue Susanoo, while Katsuyu continuously spat corrosive acid on the side, and Manda II occasionally charged in to assist. Uchiha Madara, controlling Susanoo, forced Gamabunta back with a single strike. Katsuyu's acid splashed onto Susanoo, instantly causing corrosion, which even surprised Uchiha Madara. Crunch! Tsunade took the opportunity to smash the corroded Susanoo with a punch. The entire Susanoo seemed about to collapse in an instant, but Uchiha Madara's expression remained unchanged. Another pair of arms grew from Susanoo's arms, and a fist punched Tsunade, sending her flying. Hiss! Manda II coiled around Susanoo, trying to crush the blue giant by squeezing it tightly. The blue Susanoo swung its glowing giant sword, attempting to slice through Manda II's body. Gamabunta pushed off the ground with his hind legs and leapt, using his short sword to deflect Susanoo's blade. With the joint attack of the three great summoning beasts, Susanoo seemed finally unable to hold out, quickly starting to crack. "It's about time!" Uchiha Madara looked up, his expression unchanged, with even a hint of a smile as he observed the cracking Susanoo. HMPH, Hashirama will finally be here soon. Playtime is over. What did he say? Gamabunta was displeased, gripping his short sword tightly and embedding it into the cracks of the blue Susanoo's body. The next second, Susanoo suddenly expanded. Manda Ai in pain had its body cracked open by the expanding Susanoo, then disappeared in a puff of smoke. The blue Susanoo's body grew larger, its armor thickening, and a terrifying red light appeared on its face. Gamabunta was flung away by the armor. Susanoo raised its fingers, and its arms suddenly clasped together in a hand seal, astonishing everyone present. The next moment, Susanoo's body expanded again. The body of the blue Susanoo grew step by step, directly entering its complete form, and the armor on it appeared even more robust. A tall blue warrior god stood at the back of Konoha village. Its light steps caused the entire village to shake, and everyone could see its figure. Is this Uchiha Madara? Orochimaru looked at the towering form of the complete Susanoo, his body slightly stiffening. He forced a smile at the corners of his mouth, as if not wanting to lose face. The legendary power of the Uchiha clan is indeed formidable. Be careful! Tsunede's arm trembled incessantly as she looked at Susanoo with some fear. Its power might be enough to destroy Konoha. Children's games end here. Uchiha Madara stood within the crystal of Susanoo, his eyes glancing at the 3 Sannin on the ground before looking back at a few figures rushing from the distance. From now on, it's a game for adults. Uchiha Madara manipulated Susanoo to draw its ninja blade, suddenly raising it high and striking straight towards Konoha. Before the slash even landed, the 3 Sannin of Konoha realized its terrifying power, but were too intimidated by the complete Susanoo's aura to move. Madara, it's not good to bully children. A tall wooden figure hurriedly emerged from the ground, clapping its hands together to forcibly catch Susanoo's blade, preventing the destruction of Konoha. Senju Hashirama arrived just in time, controlling the wooden figure to hold Susanoo's blade while turning to look at the younger ones in the village. Tsunade, are you all right? I'm okay. Tsunade's face still showed some lingering fear. You all should retreat now. Tabarama landed beside them, speaking in a deep voice. The upcoming battle is not one you can participate in, nor even we can. Yes, second grandpa. Tsunade nodded, her face then turning grim. Wait, I have a question. Have you always been controlled by Akihara Kagiura? You finally noticed. Tabarama watched Tsunade intently. Why? Tsunade frowned, questioning in a deep voice. Why didn't you tell me? Akihara Kagiura hasn't erased your will at all. If we told you everything and let Akihara Kagiura know that the 5th Hokage of Konoha wants to kill him, could you deal with him? Tabarama looked at the frowning Tsunade and posed a crucial question, shaking his head with a sigh. Now you have seen the consequences of confronting Akihara Kagiura. We could only try to leave hints, hoping you would become aware and find a way to deal with him. But Tsunade had never taken any action. Her expression turned somewhat unpleasant as she tried to recall the hints Tabarama had given her. When did you hint about Akihara Kagiura? Every time we had a meeting. Tabarama crossed his arms, speaking coldly. Every time during discussions in the Hokage building, I would specifically mention that Akihara Kagiura was too extreme. Didn't you understand what extreme meant? Tsunade's expression turned strange. Everyone above the rank of Jonin in Konoha knew that Akihara Kagiura was extreme in nature, actions, and methods. Even if she heard it, what could she do about it? Before she succeeded as Hokage, Jiraiya had also told her about Akihara Kagiura's extreme nature, asking her to be more lenient. After succeeding, the 2 Hokage advisors had also said Akihara Kagiura was extreme, asking her to tolerate him more. Such words, Tsunade had long been accustomed to hearing them. Tabarama glanced at the fierce battle between the wooden figure and Susanoo, coldly reminding, Uchiha Madara is somewhat unruly. That kid asked my brother to handle it. You should seize this opportunity to seal us. However, after speaking, Tabarama added, the 4th Hokage and I are proficient in the Flying Thunder God technique. You won't be able to catch us, but you can try sealing the monkey. Sarutobi Hiruzen hesitated and stood still, glancing at Tabarama, the 2nd Hokage, unable to refute the 2nd Hokage's words. After all, without the help of the 2nd and 4th Hokages, he indeed could not escape, nor could he match the strength of the 1st Hokage. He was the most likely to be sealed. As Sarutobi Hiruzen pondered this, Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru exchanged glances and then collectively turned their gaze towards Sarutobi Hiruzen. Clang! Jiraiya suddenly threw a hidden weapon at Sarutobi Hiruzen. Sarutobi Hiruzen raised his hand and caught the hidden weapon. In his aged voice he began, Jiraiya, if you want to launch a sneak attack. The next moment, Sarutobi Hiruzen's voice abruptly stopped. because when he opened his palm he found a bell in it. This type of bell carried many memories for Konoha ninjas from their time as genin. "You idiot!" Tsunade glared at Jiraiya, feeling he was being entirely too troublesome. "At this moment you're still messing around. Hurry up and seal the old man. It's also a kind of memory." Jiraiya looked embarrassedly at Tsunade. "This is not bad." Orochimaru did not oppose Jiraiya's actions. His gaze was fixed on his teacher. Orochimaru did not oppose Jiraiya's actions. His gaze was fixed on his teacher, his fingers itching to move. All right. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at the bell in his hand, then at his three disciples, and a smile appeared on his face. "Then let's start the final exam now. If you seal me, consider it as passing your assessment." The three legendary Sannin of Konoha heard the elders' intentionally relaxed words, but their faces gradually turned solemn. They recalled their past, being personally nurtured by this elder. The three legendary Sannin of Konoha were different from other ninjas. Because they graduated from the ninja school at a very young age, they had been by Sarutobi Hiruzen's side almost since they were children until they became Jonin and participated in the war. "The final test begins!" Sarutobi Hiruzen shook the bell in his hand and charged at his disciples, a shuriken appearing in his hand, which he immediately threw at them. "Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu! Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu!" Orochimaru also quickly threw a shuriken, his fingers rapidly forming seals, and immediately countered his teacher. "Fire release! Fire Dragon Flame Bullet!" Jiraiya spat out a flame towards Sarutobi Hiruzen. This was not the ordinary ninja test of the past. Sarutobi Hiruzen was in his Edo Tensei form with no concern for death. Their task was to defeat this elder as quickly as possible. "Ninja Art, Multi-Shadow Clone Jutsu!" Sarutobi Hiruzen swiftly formed seals, creating two shadow clones. One of the shadow clones raised a hand and released a Fire Dragon Flame Bullet, blocking Jiraiya's attack. Facing the long-term cooperation of the three legendary Sannin of Konoha, only by dividing and conquering could there be hope of victory, although Sarutobi Hiruzen did not wish to win in his heart. Boom! Tsunade punched the ground. The ground suddenly cracked, turning into rubble. Under Tsunade's monstrous strength, Sarutobi Hiruzen's two shadow clones were dispersed into smoke with a single punch. In the next instant, the three legendary Sannin of Konoha charged at Sarutobi Hiruzen from three directions. Orochimaru's arm grew a long snake that wrapped around Sarutobi Hiruzen's body. Tsunade raised her fist towards him, and Jiraiya pulled out a scroll, forming seals to prepare the sealing technique. "Hiruzen-sensei, farewell!" The three legendary Sannin of Konoha looked at their teacher, their eyes filled with complex emotions. They were ninjas raised by Sarutobi Hiruzen, who had once questioned, even opposed, their teacher, but ultimately came to understand him. This teacher always liked to talk about the will of fire, about the hope for Konoha's future lying in the next generation, and he loved to nag at the ninja school. Sarutobi Hiruzen's body shattered. Jiraiya extended a scroll, enveloping Sarutobi Hiruzen's body, sealing his teacher within the scroll. Until the final moment of being sealed, Sarutobi Hiruzen still had a smile on his lips as he spoke his last words to his disciples. "Congratulations! You passed the test!" Sarutobi Hiruzen was sealed. The third Hokage became the first Edo Tensei to be sealed. The three legendary Sannin of Konoha engaged in a decisive final bell test with their teacher, defeated him and sealed him directly. Compared to their battle, the other battlefield was much more intense. The battle between Hashirama and Madara was unprecedentedly fierce. The tall wooden golem and Susanoo clashed, causing the ground to shake with each step. However, Hashirama was clearly more concerned about Konoha and didn't want the village to become a casualty of his fight with Madara. Constantly tried to move the battlefield of the two giants outside the village, even attempting to persuade Madara. "Madara, this is the village we created together. Does it matter, Hashirama?" A disdainful smile tugged at the corner of Madara's mouth as he controlled Susanoo to strike at the wooden golem again. He said coldly, "Konoha is just the illusory ideal of peace from our naive youth. Since it's an illusion, it will inevitably face destruction one day." Madara! Hashirama's expression turned grim and he seemed a bit disheartened. "I never thought that our reunion would be like this. This was always going to happen." Madara gazed at Hashirama, recalling the last time they met in life. His face gradually became emotionless. The moment darkness was born in Konoha, it was destined to reach this day. It was bound to fall. Hashirama! Madara suddenly sneered as he looked at Hashirama. "This time my resurrection is probably thanks to the current Hokage of Konoha. Akihara Kagura would indeed do something like that." Hashirama nodded solemnly and continued, "I've long suspected that little guy would revive you. He surely wouldn't miss the chance to use you as a tool." Madara's brow furrowed. Madara stared at Hashirama and suddenly burst into laughter. Ha ha ha! Hashirama, did you just say that brat is using me as a tool? Hashirama, you guessed wrong. Madara's face immediately turned arrogant, and he sneered loudly. I'm the one using that brat as a tool. My resurrection is just to ensure the success of my plan. This moment of resurrection was within my expectations. In fact, it was completely unexpected. However, Madara knew that his resurrection through Edo Tensei was Black Zetsu's suggestion. Black Zetsu was his will, considering everything for him. Hashirama hesitated as he looked at Madara, a bit confused. Wasn't that little guy using you as a tool like us? Madara, can you actually break free from Akihara Kagura's control? What can't be broken free from? Madara found it amusing and shook his head with a laugh. Even Edo Tensei has its limits. Do you think people of our level would become tools? You can't possibly have not broken free. Madara's expression changed, feeling something was off. Wait, Hashirama, do you mean? Impressive. Hashirama seemed to see a glimmer of hope, looking at Madara in amazement. That little guy's power is even stronger than mine was in life. As expected of you, Madara, to break free from his control. No wonder. Hashirama sighed softly as he looked at Madara. No wonder that little guy ordered me to stop you, hoping you would obey his commands. Wait a moment. Madara raised his hand, signaling Hashirama to pause as he needed clarification. Did you just say that brat is stronger than you were in life? Yes. Hashirama nodded gravely and said solemnly, even in this Edo Tensei body, which can almost display my full strength, I still can't defeat him, nor can I break free from his control. But Madara placed his hand on his forehead, pondering his encounter with Akihara Kagura. That brat told me you had long broken free from control. Hashirama's expression immediately became innocent. Clearly, this innocent expression was more convincing than any words. Madara frowned, slowly clasping his hands together, attempting to use the hand signs he had devised to break the control of the Edo Tensei. He had researched this long ago. After Tobirama developed the Edo Tensei, Madara worried that he would be resurrected by Tobirama after his death. Thus, he preemptively studied these hand signs. Are you trying to break free from the control of the Edo Tensei? Hashirama noticed Madara's movements and proactively reminded him, Madara, don't bother trying. Tobirama has already tried many times. Madara's expression suddenly turned grim. As the tall man struggled to clasp his hands to form the next hand sign, he found he could not proceed no matter what. No, this is not right. Something has gone wrong with the plan. That brat named Akihara Kagura was supposed to be a tool for the Eye of the Moon plan, yet he has used me as a tool for resurrection. What is that brat thinking? This is impossible. Chakra erupted from within Madara, and his eyes instantly turned into Rinnegan. He desperately tried to separate his hands to form the next hand sign. However, he could not proceed no matter what. Lord Madara, are you going to betray the Eye of the Moon plan? Akihara Kagura's will suddenly descended into Madara's body, leisurely questioning him. Everything is under our plan now. The Eye of the Moon plan is about to succeed. Do you want to escape my control and betray our plan? Brat, you are controlling me. Madara's face was full of gloom and resentment. You want to take my Rinnegan, you want to take over my Eye of the Moon plan. As a proud man, Madara never thought of surrendering. The only person in this world who could make him bow his head was Hashirama. That was never your plan. Akihara Kagura's voice was very calm, even somewhat leisurely. Moreover, that plan is rather poor. You want to collect the tailed beasts to revive the 10 tails and become the second sage of 6 paths, just for the sake of infinite Tsukiyomi. Infinite Tsukiyomi is the true path to save the ninja world. Madara could not tolerate anyone slandering his plan. Furiously rebutting Kagura and his Madara could not tolerate anyone slandering his plan, furiously rebutting Kagura in his mind. But his spiritual form was even smaller than Kagura's. The Sage of 6 Paths created ninjutsu. Akihara Kagura's spiritual will continued. In ancient times, everyone could understand and communicate with each other through chakra. Kagura picked up again the teachings of Jiraiya. So why don't we destroy this ninja world, kill its ninjas, learn from the Sage of 6 Paths to recreate ninjas, and create a world where everyone understands each other? The Sage of 6 Paths was wrong. Madara coldly rebutted, as long as everyone in the ninja world lives in infinite Tsukiyomi, getting what they desire, there will be no more wars. Your idea of killing everyone is too extreme. A false world is ultimately just fake. Kagura nonchalantly rebutted, indifferent to Madara's thoughts. A false world will only lead to real-world stagnation. Besides, if people in the ninja world stop striving for their dreams in reality and only pursue false satisfaction in a virtual world, eventually they will pay a terrible price in reality. Even with infinite Tsukiyomi, one must not be too indulged. Kagura shook his head, his will slowly retreating from Madara's mind. Everything is under my control now. All you need to do is act as a tool for my destruction and creation of the world. If you refuse, I believe your old friend will show you the consequences of disobedience. Brat! Madara roared in fury, venting his anger in his mind. Do you think Hashirama now can still be my opponent? Outside the Konoha village, Susanoo behind Madara grew wings. The complete Susanoo leaped into the sky, slashing towards Hashirama's wood golem. Madara! Calm down! Hashirama clasped his hands together, 3 wood dragons sprouting from the wood golem, binding Susanoo's body and reducing its downward force. The wood golem raised its hand to firmly block Susanoo's sword. Boom! The entire ground trembled under the aftermath of the slash. The earth cracked inch by inch under the slash. Hashirama! Madara clenched his fist, controlling Susanoo to repeatedly strike the tall wooden figure. He watched as the wooden figure, under the control of Ikehara Kagura, fought against Hashirama. This proud man looked at his old friend, his anger intensifying on his face. Since your resurrection, have you been content to serve as that kid's tool? Hashirama's expression immediately turned despondent. Did he have a choice in the matter? If possible, Hashirama also wanted to eliminate the threat posed by Ikehara Kagura to Konoha, but he lacked the strength to do so. He couldn't even break free from the control. Hashirama! Madara controlled Susanoo to wield its sword, finding an opening and severing the wooden figure's arm with one strike. Look up at me! However, it was futile. The wooden figure's arm quickly regenerated. Madara's eyes narrowed as he watched his retreating old friend and contemplated how to break free from the Edo Tensei control, besides using the release technique. There was actually another way to escape control. That was to use the Rinnegan's Rin rebirth technique to fully resurrect. However, this required cooperation from Black Zetsu. Madara himself couldn't achieve all this. He could only stall for time and inform Black Zetsu of everything happening to him. Underground, Black Zetsu continued to observe the battle. This mastermind, hidden for a millennium, felt a bit anxious, because upon seeing Hashirama, Madara seemed to have forgotten all about the Eye of the Moon plan and insisted on dueling Hashirama. What was the point of this duel? As long as Nagato was used for resurrection and the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki was revived, Madara could manipulate Hashirama as he wished. However, Madara quickly sent a message. Right now, I cannot break free from Ikehara Kagura's Edo Tensei control. He wants to seize my Rinnegan and take over the Eye of the Moon plan, intending to kill all ninjas in the world with it. Ikehara Kagura's idea is too extreme. Even Black Zetsu found Ikehara Kagura's plan overly extreme. However, Madara soon sent another message. Go control Nagato for me, bring him here, and find a way to make him use the Rin rebirth technique to fully resurrect me. Only then can I break free from Ikehara Kagura's control. That's a good idea. Black Zetsu flew into hiding beneath Konoha. Coincidentally, Nagato was in Konoha village. Black Zetsu was confident it could control Nagato's body because Nagato was too weak. Black Zetsu was confident it could control Nagato's body because Nagato was too weak to break free from its control. On the other side, in Konoha village, the 3 legendary Sannin had sealed the 3rd Hokage, Saruto, by Hiruzen. The 4th Hokage, Minato, and the 2nd Hokage, Tabarama, had little interest in fighting them. They simply used the Flying Thunder God technique to keep a close watch on Nagato, seemingly waiting for an opportunity to seize his Rinnegan. With no other choice, Tsunade had to personally arrange for the ANBU to tightly guard Nagato. Black Zetsu, still hiding underground, felt it couldn't find an opportunity. Its strength was inadequate to confront a group of Konoha ninjas. Now, what should we do? This situation cannot continue. Jiraiya, watching Minato and Tabarama lurking near the Konoha hospital, took the initiative. If they find even the slightest opening, they might seize the opportunity. I'm more worried about something else. Tsunade's brows remained furrowed, more concerned about Uzumaki Naruto, the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, and Uchiha Sasuke. What about Yakashi Kabuto? Orochimaru, after some thought, spoke up. Yakashi Kabuto should know a lot about Ikehara Kagura's intelligence. It might be a good idea to deal with him first. Yakashi Kabuto. As Tsunade was contemplating when to address the Yakashi Kabuto issue, she noticed a medical ninja in a Konoha Jonin uniform, wearing glasses, holding something strange, talking with the ANBU at the entrance of the Konoha hospital. Wait a minute! Tsunade was momentarily surprised, unable to believe it, and looked in disbelief at the ANBU beside her. Is that Yakashi Kabuto? Why was Yakashi Kabuto delivering himself at this moment? Yakashi Kabuto is a medical ninja. As a medical ninja, he should not face any obstacles when entering the hospital. However, this time, when he entered Konoha Hospital, the Ambu ninjas stationed there seemed to be on high alert, and even the Sannin personally came to greet him. Please do not harbor any hostility towards me. When Yakashi Kabuto saw Tsunade, he wore a gentle smile on his face. If I am not mistaken, is Kaguya about to turn against the entire ninja world? You know his plan. Tsunade's face immediately turned grim. As she looked at Yakashi Kabuto, she began to contemplate whether to immediately capture him and send him to the interrogation department. I know a bit. Yakashi Kabuto adjusted his glasses, the lenses glinting in the sunlight. After all, Kaguya and I are both from the same orphanage. He even told me about his intention to go against the ninja world, but unfortunately I couldn't persuade him to change his mind. Why didn't you report this to the village? Tsunade's face was stern as she questioned Yakashi Kabuto. Kaguya is one of the village's top officials. Yakashi Kabuto looked up at Tsunade, a mocking smile on his face. If I had reported this to you, wouldn't you have chosen to kill me to prevent a conflict between the Hokage and her advisor? I am the most senior member of Root. I've been in Root since the first leader, Shimura Danzo, was still in charge. Root assassinated many ninjas who wanted to report Shimura Danzo to the third Hokage, and I've seen many intelligence reports laid on the third Hokage's desk that he never acted upon. Tsunade was momentarily speechless because everything Yakashi Kabuto said was true. Even when she was younger, Tsunade knew some things about Danzo. Shimura Danzo indeed committed many infractions, and even if someone reported him to the third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, those matters were never addressed. If Shimura Danzo could do so much, what about Akihara Kaguya, who is even more powerful than Danzo? If Yakashi Kabuto had reported these matters to her at that time, Tsunade might not have killed him to keep Akihara Kaguya in line, but she would have certainly imprisoned him. During that period, Konoha could afford to lose a Yakashi Kabuto, but it absolutely couldn't lose a Akihara Kaguya. Until Akihara Kaguya completely turned against Konoha, Tsunade could only find ways to make him change his mind, rather than spark internal conflict. Speaking openly about it, the higher-ups in Konoha had indeed wronged the ninjas who were sacrificed. Now that you are here, Tsunade looked at the bark-like object in Yakashi Kabuto's hand, frowning slightly. Is it to provide us with information on Kaguya? Yakashi Kabuto shook his head, then nodded, taking the initiative to explain, I don't know Kaguya's intentions, but this object should be very important to him. After speaking, Yakashi Kabuto handed the bark to Tsunade. What is this? Tsunade signaled an Ambu member to take the bark from Yakashi Kabuto. I don't know. Yakashi Kabuto shook his head, indicating that he wasn't sure. He fabricated a story. I have only seen Kaguya use his wood-release chakra to check the information on it. The material of this bark is very hard and seems to be ancient. Yakashi Kabuto looked at the bark and continued, I also researched it secretly. It seems to be able to absorb a lot of chakra. I was afraid that using powerful jutsu might destroy the information on it, so I didn't dare to tamper with it too much. This bark must be extremely useful. Kaguya always kept it close to him when he was in the orphanage. After leaving the orphanage, he hid it. When he returned to Konoha, he retrieved it and kept it in his office. I took it while he was away. Tsunade frowned, puzzled by the bark she had received. If it requires wood-release chakra to read the information on the bark, if Kaguya has held on to it since he was a child. Orochimaru glanced at the piece of tree bark, and his expression suddenly became grave. He thought of something extremely terrifying. When I picked him up back then, it wasn't by chance, but that little guy deliberately wanted to get close to me. Orochimaru's face turned exceptionally ugly, and his heart started beating faster. He felt a fear as if he were falling into an abyss. Akihara Kaguya! This was all his plan. He needed to awaken the wood release, so he deliberately approached me. That's right. I remember now. Orochimaru recalled the incident in the laboratory in the Land of Grass. That little guy approached me on his own, gained my trust, and proposed the experiment to transplant cells from the first Hokage. His goal was to transplant the first Hokage cells to awaken the wood release. Tsunade and Jiraiya faces also changed. How old was he back then? Could that child have had such a scheming mind at that age? If all these plots were strategies Akihara Kaguya devised as a child, it would be too terrifying. No one had any inkling of it. The three legendary Sannin of Konoha simultaneously envisioned a scene. A little boy with a sinister face staying at the Konoha orphanage, tightly holding a piece of tree bark, knowing that it hid a great secret. However, to unlock the secret of the tree bark, wood-release chakra was required as the key. To obtain wood-release chakra, the first Hokage cells had to be transplanted. But these were Konoha's secrets. How did this child obtain them? Regardless of how the little boy learned the secret of Orochimaru's experiment with the first Hokage cells, he deliberately let himself be captured by Orochimaru, who loved scientific experiments, to gain his trust and eventually be transplanted with the first Hokage cells, successfully awakening the wood release. After awakening the wood release, the little boy took advantage of Orochimaru and Shimura Danzo's secrets to return to Konoha, retrieve the tree bark he had hidden in the orphanage, and uncover the secret information on it, thus beginning to execute the plot he had devised since childhood. We need to return to the beginning. Orochimaru, being very clever, said in a deep voice, "How did Akihara Kagura know that the tree bark hid a secret? From what source did he learn about it, and why does the tree bark require wood release to unlock it?" While Tsunade and Kabuto were talking, the second Hokage, Tabarama, and the fourth Hokage, Minato, simultaneously received an order. "Go and seize that piece of tree bark." Akihara Kagura's will appeared in their minds, coldly giving the order. "Kabuto has betrayed me and stolen my possession. That piece of tree bark must not fall into Konoha's hands." Tree bark. Tabarama heard a familiar term in surprise. The second Hokage immediately recalled something. Back then, in their investigation of Uchiha Madara, they had visited the Naka shrine to see the stone tablet passed down through the Uchiha clan for 1,000 years. At that time, it was somewhat strange that there were no historical records from the Senju clan who were on par with the Uchiha clan. At that time, Akihara Kagura had casually mentioned the possibility of a piece of tree bark belonging to the Senju clan. Does this mean Akihara Kagura had already obtained that piece of tree bark? He was probing Tabarama and his brother Hashirama to find out if the tree bark belonged to the Senju clan. Tabarama immediately confirmed that the piece of tree bark might belong to the Senju clan and that Akihara Kagura had already obtained it. It contained the secrets of the Senju clan. However, Tabarama and Minato could not defy Akihara Kagura's order. They instantly charged towards Tsunade to seize the tree bark in her possession. "They're moving!" Jiraiya's face showed shock. Jiraiya and Orochimaru simultaneously intercepted the two Hokages. While being forced to fight Orochimaru, Tabarama conveyed his guest to Tsunade. "Tsunade, that piece of tree bark is an heirloom of the Senju clan. It must contain extremely secret historical information and must not fall into the wrong hands." "I understand." Tsunade immediately reacted. "You must quickly decode the information on it." While swinging his kana at Orochimaru, Tabarama reminded her. "It is a treasure passed down through the Senju clan, possibly recording the history of the ninja world or its secrets." Tabarama continued, "The Uchiha clan's stone tablet can only be deciphered with the Sharingan. Uchiha Madara used his Sharingan to uncover the secrets of the tablet, and thus secretly began his plan to gather the tailed beasts. As the once opposing Senju clan of the forest, perhaps there is a secret record that could thwart Uchiha Madara's plan. We must ensure that the piece of bark does not fall into our hands and quickly uncover the secrets it holds." "Understood." Tsunade nodded and quickly agreed. "Konoha is not without wood-release ninjas. On the contrary, currently Konoha has many wood-release ninjas. According to Yakushi Kabuto, this piece of bark requires wood-release chakra to read the information on it. I just need to find a wood-release ninja." "Wait, something seems off." Tsunade suddenly realized something. Most of Konoha's wood-release ninjas are in the route, and they are all out on missions. The only wood-release ninja under the Hokage, Yamato, was also sent out leading Team 8. This is bad. At this moment, Konoha doesn't have any wood-release ninjas. Underground, Black Zetsu also saw the piece of bark. Compared to the short-sighted Konoha ninjas, Black Zetsu immediately recognized the true nature of the bark. It was the outer skin of the Ten-Tails shell, the shed skin of the Jido statue of the Outer Path. In other words, only one person in history could have created this, the Sage of Six Paths. Only the legendary Sage of Six Paths, Hagoromo Otsutsuki, could have made this, and only he would record information on such bark and leave it to the Senju clan. Both the Uchiha and Senju clans are descendants of the Sage of Six Paths, Hagoromo Otsutsuki. One inherited his eyes, the other his physique. The Uchiha clan has a stone tablet that records history. How could the Senju clan not have a historical record? Black Zetsu had never found any historical record from the Senju clan. After Hagoromo Otsutsuki's death, it searched everywhere for traces of his recorded history, only finding the Uchiha clan's stone tablet, leading Black Zetsu to believe that the Senju clan had no such historical record. But now, Black Zetsu suddenly realized it was wrong. The ancestors of the Uchiha Indra and the Senju Asura clashed, and their chakra continually reincarnated and clashed. The Uchiha clan has a historical record. How could the Senju clan not have one? No. Senju clan's bark must not expose the secrets of the ninja world. Black Zetsu moved frantically underground, hidden beneath Tsunede's feet, ready to snatch the bark at any moment. No, there must be more information I've missed. Black Zetsu eavesdropped on the conversation, pondering why the bark ended up in Akihara Kagura's hands and how Kagura knew the secrets on the bark. The Senju clan. Black Zetsu shuddered, realizing that kid, Akihara Kagura, is a Senju. The Senju clan. Orochimaru, also very clever, fighting Tabarama, recalled, Akihara Kagura is a Senju. Only then does everything make sense. Akihara Kagura is a Senju, even a direct descendant, which is why he could successfully transplant the first Hokage cells and awaken wood release, precisely because Akihara Kagura is a Senju. That kid knows the secrets of the bark. Indeed. Tabarama, equally wise, quickly figured it out. During the Warring States period, the Senju clan had lost many members. Even the children of the clan leader lived precariously. War meant sacrifice and even disappearance. Perhaps a clan leader's descendant who war meant sacrifice and even disappearance. Perhaps a clan leader's descendant who knew the secret of the bark stole it and vanished, leading to the complete loss of this historical artifact. The bark was very portable, unlike the immovable Uchiha stone tablet. Tabarama could even imagine the historical figure who stole the bark, a scheming and cunning individual like himself, but with ill intentions, aiming to seize the clan's secrets. Akihara Kagura is a descendant of that Senju clan member. Akihara Kagura, descendant of the Senju clan. Everyone present heard this matter. The second Hokage, Tabarama and Orochimaru, the disciple of the third Hokage, the most intelligent individuals in Konoha's history, were the first to uncover the secret behind the bark. Tabarama kicked Orochimaru away, grabbed a kunai, and rushed towards Tsunade while revealing the truth he had deduced. Orochimaru's guess is correct. Akihara Kagura is indeed a descendant of the Senju clan. Tabarama had no goodwill towards Akihara Kagura, another member of the Senju clan, and coldly stated, in the 1,000-year history of the Senju clan, the ancestors of this branch learned the secrets of the Senju clan, betrayed their kin, and secretly stole historical relics during the Warring States period, hoping to use wood-release chakra to unlock their secrets. Unfortunately, this branch never awakened the wood-release Kekkei Genkai and could only guard the Senju clan's treasures without uncovering their truths. In other words, Orochimaru pulled out the kunai lodged in him and continued Tabarama's deduction. After the first Hokage's death, when Konoha began researching his cells, Akihara Kagura and his kin discovered a chance to awaken wood release. Orochimaru even chuckled at this point. They found out that I was researching the wood release bloodline. If nothing went wrong, Orochimaru recalled Yakashi Kabuto mentioning the bark. This branch of the Senju clan eventually had only Akihara Kagura left, who, to enter Konoha legitimately, first went to the Konoha orphanage. Unfortunately, Orochimaru's eyes narrowed slightly, and he gritted his teeth when talking about Akihara Kagura's scheme. The wood release experiments were halted by the old man, and I was forced to defect after being caught conducting illegal human experiments. To obtain the wood release bloodline, Akihara Kagura left Konoha, hid the Senju clan's relics in the orphanage, and on my escape he approached me, making himself my test subject, eventually succeeding in awakening the wood release bloodline after I transplanted the cells. To reclaim the Senju clan's relics, Akihara Kagura always sought to return to Konoha, even attempting to kill me on the day he gained the wood release bloodline. When Orochimaru reached this point, he remembered the attack on him by Akihara Kagura on the first day of awakening wood release and gritted his teeth. At that time, Akihara Kagura pretended to lose control of the experiment, trying to kill me and return to Konoha. Fortunately, at that time, Orochimaru had sealed Akihara Kagura's body with a curse mark, and recalling the subsequent events, he still felt annoying hatred towards Akihara Kagura. That brat also used my desire to make him a vessel and the alliance between me and Danzo to finally return to Konoha, and even used his identity as a wood-release genius to escape Danzo's control, returning to the orphanage to retrieve the bark he had hidden. It was then Akihara Kagura colluded with Uchiha Obaido. Not colluded. Akihara Kagura merely used. Tabarama interrupted Orochimaru, solemnly adding, because the Uchiha clan's steel also contains the secrets of the ninja world, and Uchiha Madara had long seen these recorded secrets, Uchiha Obaido was merely a pawn of Madara. But the Senju and the Uchiha have always been opposing existences. The historical secrets recorded on the Uchiha clan's stele and the Senju clan's relics should be the same. Akihara Kagura realized that Uchiha Obaido also knew some secrets of the ninja world, so he pretended to collude with Obaido while hiding his own knowledge. That brat intended to usurp the plan of Uchiha Madara and Obaido for his own use. Tabarama patiently filled in the rest of the story. With the tacit cooperation of Tabarama and Orochimaru, they believed their deduction of Akihara Kagura's story was close to the truth. At least, everyone present knew the background of Akihara Kagura. Even Yakushi Kabuto pushed up his glasses, seemingly unable to believe the depth and darkness of Akihara Kagura's identity and thoughts. Black Zetsu listened in astonishment. If Akihara Kagura was aware of the ninja world's history through the Senju clan's relics, would his plan still succeed? No, if Akihara Kagura was indeed a knowledgeable insider, why would he still try to seize the Rinnegan and betray the ninja world? Why wouldn't he worry about the revival of the Ten Tails and Kaguya? This doesn't add up. Because Akihara Kagura attacked Nagato and disrupted the process of reviving the Ten Tails, this guy wants to control the Ten Tails himself and has never hidden this intention. That guy, does he want to become the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails? No, something else doesn't seem right. Black Zetsu felt like his head was about to explode. Never mind that. Black Zetsu shook his head and made a decision. I must first find out what secrets are recorded on the Senju clan's bark. Moreover, if nothing unexpected happens, it should be similar to the original content of the Uchiha clan's stone stele, which I modified after that bastard Hagoromo Otsutsuki died. However, there will definitely be some subtle differences. After all, Hagoromo knew that his second son, Asura, was a fool. Hagoromo would definitely leave something special for Asura's descendants. The most troublesome part would be Kaguya's secret. This is not a big problem. I can find a way to persuade Madara to be cautious of Kaguya or not to worry about her. Uchiha Madara already believes in me. The Uchiha clan's stone stele was originally meant to pass on history and warn Indra's descendants, and I just slightly altered it to lure Madara into merging Hashirama's power, collecting the tailed beasts, and initiating the Eye of the Moon plan. Based on the timeline, the original content left by Hagoromo Otsutsuki on the stone stele wouldn't mention my name. If nothing unexpected happens, the Senju clan's bark won't mention my name either. As long as my name isn't mentioned, there is still room to maneuver. Black Zetsu suddenly felt relieved. He had slowly figured out how to expose the true history on the bark and how to persuade Uchiha Madara. First, I can't hide this from Madara because Akihara Kagura, that descendant of the Senju clan, must have already read the bark. He must already know the history of the ninja world from it. Even if I hide it from Madara, that descendant could still leak the secret. Secondly, if Madara really doubts the historical truth, I'll use his favorite rhetoric to lure him. The Uchiha and Senju clans are inherently oppositional. This all needs to be considered after seeing the contents of the Senju clan's bark. As long as my identity remains a secret, everything is still within my control. Black Zetsu, hidden underground, revealed a sinister smile. To Madara, I am his will incarnate and I won't deceive him. Now, first, find a way to get the bark. Only by obtaining the Senju clan's bark can I learn its secrets and figure out what that brat Akihara Kagura is thinking. Black Zetsu immediately formulated his plan. He also assessed the situation in Konoha. Akihara Kagura was controlling the reanimated second Hokage and fourth Hokage to compete for the Senju clan's bark, and Konoha's ninjas were trying to protect it from being taken. So, who would care about Nagato? With a change of mind, Black Zetsu quietly shifted his focus towards Nagato, intending to control him to revive Uchiha Madara while Konoha Hospital was understaffed. Meanwhile, the battle for the Senju clan's bark continued. This bark likely contained great secrets of the ninja world, perhaps even a solution to the current crisis. Otherwise, Akihara Kagura would never have let two Hokage fight for it. Do you need my help? Kabuto looked at Tsunade, raised his finger proactively, and said, I should be able to stop them. All right. Tsunade nodded slowly. Akihara Kagura's actions to destroy the ninja world and recreate it would inevitably anger many in the ninja world, so Kabuto's betrayal was not surprising. Kabuto raised his eyebrows slightly. Although he didn't know the full truth, he knew one thing for sure. Kagura would never harm him or director Yakushi Nano. Moreover, Kagura definitely didn't really want to take that piece of bark. Because that piece of so-called Senju clan bark was personally handed to me by Akihara, Kagiura, asking me to deliver it to the fifth Hokage, Tsunade. So, this was a scheme. Kaguya wanted everyone to know the bark's value. Can you use the Edo Tensei to summon Jonin Dan Kato? Yakashi Kabuto asked Tsunade very politely. No need. Jiraiya interrupted Kabuto's words while still battling his disciple Minato. I can handle Minato, teacher. Minato was somewhat helpless. If he hadn't been holding back, he would have assassinated his teacher long ago. Now is not the time for sentimentality. Forget it. Tsunade shook her head and said softly, if possible, let Dan return to the underworld. Do not disturb the souls of the deceased. Understood. Kabuto complied readily. Above Konoha's buildings, Nagato raised his hand, intending to summon the 6 paths of pain. However, Konan, worried about Nagato's health, volunteered to go help. Nagato, this is a crucial moment. You are needed to confront Akihara Kagiura in the future. Now is not the time to recklessly use the 6 paths of pain. I'll go down and help deal with the enemies. All right. Nagato finally nodded in relief. Konan's paper flew off her body as she leaped down, sending countless sheets towards the second Hokage, Tabarama, and the fourth Hokage, Minato. The 2 Hokage were forced back instantly by her paper. In addition to being used as paper shuriken, the paper could even serve as a sealing power. Once countless sheets of paper stuck to them, it would bind their movements. With the addition of Konan and Kabuto, Konoha immediately fended off the attacks of the second and fourth Hokage. The next moment, the situation above Konoha's buildings shocked everyone. A pitch-black figure fell from the ceiling, clinging to Nagato's body. Half of Nagato's body was his own, while the other half was covered by a layer of inky black substance. Black Zetsu had taken advantage of the situation to attach itself to Nagato. What is this? Nagato, are you all right? What happened? Tsunade was somewhat horrified, fearing that something might happen to Nagato. If this piece of bark might unlock the secret of Akihara Kagiura, then Nagato, with his Rinnegan, was their hope to eliminate Akihara Kagiura. The second and fourth Hokage seemed to notice the new situation atop Konoha Hospital and instantly moved away from the battlefield to investigate. Other ninjas also jumped up, worried about Nagato and the Rinnegan, especially Konan, who had just rushed down to help. She almost immediately spread her paper wings and flew back up. Do not panic. Nagato calmed everyone down, though he himself was very nervous. He tried to reassure the startled ninjas protecting him. This guy is a member of the Akatsuki without much combat power. Don't worry. Do not act rashly. Black Zetsu's hoarse voice laughed as it looked around at everyone present, warning them not to act rashly. If you kill me, Nagato will die instantly too. Zetsu? Konan questioned Black Zetsu coldly. What do you want? Are you helping Akihara Kagiura to take Nagato's Rinnegan? Of course not. These Rinnegan do not belong to Nagato. Black Zetsu sneered, half his face smirking as he spoke slowly. Nagato, do you think you received divine favor to awaken these sage eyes? You all should know the origin of the Rinnegan comes from the Uchiha clan's Sharingan. How could a mere descendant of the Uzumaki clan like you obtain these eyes? Nagato, these eyes belong to Madara. You are merely a tool to nurture the Rinnegan and execute the plan for Madara. Black Zetsu was immensely pleased. It had found an excellent opportunity to possess Nagato, and with the power of yin-yang release, it could easily control Nagato's body. This was a moment of particular joy and pride for Black Zetsu. Even though Black Zetsu considered this merely a rehearsal before the grand performance, it felt a certain thrill in manipulating people's minds and did not hide the things it and Uchiha Madara had done to Nagato. Since you were a child, Madara worried that his Rinnegan would lose its vitality along with his life, so he transplanted the Rinnegan into your body. Additionally, because of the Uzumaki clan's bloodline, the chakra vitality in your body was sufficiently abundant, allowing you to use the power within the Rinnegan with your chakra and life force. To avoid wasting your life and to ensure the success of the plan, I have been secretly controlling your life, prompting you and Yahiko to establish the first generation of the Akatsuki organization. This was orchestrated by Albedo and me in the shadows. When Hanzo of the Salamander and Danzo besieged you, the first generation of the Akatsuki members were annihilated. This was also done by Albedo and me in secret. Only through this, having experienced the pain of this world, you would obediently follow the plan to collect the tailed beasts and execute the Eye of the Moon plan. You! Nagato widened his eyes in disbelief. Even Konan was so shocked that her body stiffened. No one would want to admit that their life was controlled by others, that their seemingly steadfast steps were manipulated like a puppet. This truth was too cruel for them. When Nagato and Konan learned from Black Zetsu's words that their past lives had been manipulated, everything in their minds shattered like fragments. Their lives were like a drama with a pre-written script. Yet, they knew nothing about it. A group of Konoha ninjas looked at Nagato and Konan with eyes slowly filled with sympathy, understanding their feelings. Nagato's throat choked with a suffocating breath as he struggled to regain control of his body. A flash of madness appeared in his Rinnegan. I don't believe it. Yahiko was real. The former Akatsuki was real. I am real. The facts are as they are. Your eyes were given to you by Madara. If Madara wanted to, he could take them back at any time. As Black Zetsu said this, it smiled smugly and continued, This ninja world has never been real. Everything is just an illusory dream. Nagato, when you secretly controlled pain to lead the Akatsuki, you thought you were the god behind everything. But in reality, you were just a pawn we manipulated. Black Zetsu controlled Nagato's hands to slowly clasp together, its voice growing colder. If it weren't for the brat Akihara Kagura trying to seize the Rinnegan, you would have collected the tailed beasts according to our plan to revive the so-called weapon of war. At that time, I would have controlled you to revive Madara. Unfortunately, you didn't meet our expectations. You didn't even complete the collection of the tailed beasts before being defeated by Akihara Kagura, even hiding in Konoha, the village you've hated since childhood like a beggar in the gutter, saved by the mercy of your enemies. I will kill you. Sheets of paper immediately started flying off Konan's body. Don't act rashly, Konan. Jiraiya quickly stopped his disciple and said sternly, If you kill him now, Nagato will also die. Kill me. Nagato's throat squeezed out a voice, looking at his hands clasping together uncontrollably. He struggled to control his mouth and shouted angrily, Kill me now! It wants to use the Rinnegan and force me to use the Samsara of Heavenly Life technique. Nagato! Konan's eyes widened in shock. The Samsara of Heavenly Life technique! A group of Konoha ninjas didn't understand the meaning of this technique. The Samsara of Heavenly Life technique! While manipulating Nagato to form seals with his hands, Black Zetsu laughed and explained, It can truly resurrect the dead, bringing them back to the world of the living with a living body. A living Madara would be even stronger than during the Edo Tensei. Quick, kill it! Tsune decisively gave the order. A group of Konoha ninjas hesitated for less than a second before Orochimaru decisively raised his palm, feeling no psychological burden in killing Nagato. However, Black Zetsu directly controlled Nagato to stop forming seals and preemptively unleashed Shinra Tensei, a repulsive force that erupted within the ward, flinging Tsunade and others out. Nagato also has combat capabilities. Black Zetsu grinned at the people flying backward and continued with a sinister smile. Black Zetsu grinned at the people flying backward and continued with a sinister smile. Only 3 people in the world can kill Nagato, and none of you here are among those 3. You are no match for Nagato. In theory, there are only 3 people in the ninja world who can truly defeat Nagato: Akihara Kagura, Uchiha Madara, and Hashirama. Everyone knows these 3 names, which represent the pinnacle of ninja power. Outside Konoha village, 3 individuals were engaged in another battle. Uchiha Madara had already prepared for Black Zetsu to act, still unwilling to submit to Akihara Kagura. His eyes were filled with madness, striving to resist Kagura's control. Uchiha Madara repeatedly attempted to break free from Kagura's control, trying to use the hand seals to undo the Edo Tensei. Indeed, he could be controlled. However, such control must allow him to break free at any time. Madara resisted Kagura's control while attempting to use the battle to awaken his old friend, jointly resisting Kagura's will. Hashirama! Madara roared. Have you forgotten your pride? Do you want to be controlled by that brat forever? The pride of the Uchiha clan manifested vividly in Madara. This forever proud man never wanted to be subjugated, nor did he want to see his old friend submit to a youngster's threat. Madara was furious. This man was angry at Hashirama's behavior. Madara couldn't discern whether his battle with Hashirama was to wake his old friend or to prove his unyielding will to Kagura. Hashirama! Madara, controlling the full-body Susanoo, roared. Despite the pain of resisting Kagura's mental control, he forcibly manipulated Susanoo to slash at Hashirama's wooden giant, chopping off its hand. Madara! Hashirama glanced weakly at Madara. His palms slowly and laboriously closed, and vines emerged from the wooden giant, reforming a new hand. Sage mode! Hashirama suddenly clasped his hands together. It was evident. Hashirama was about to use his strongest technique. Madara, feeling disappointed, also formed a hand seal with Susanoo. Does that brat think this will make me submit? The dark clouds in the sky suddenly parted. A meteor began to descend from space. Even if the meteor landed outside Konoha, it would cause massive casualties and possibly destroy Konoha. This is... Hashirama looked up at the sky. Everyone in Konoha couldn't help but look up. They all felt an astonishing pressure, their bodies trembling uncontrollably at the sight of the meteor. Inside Konoha village, Black Zetsu controlled Nagato to form the seals for Rin rebirth, grinning at the Konoha ninjas terrified by the meteor. "See that? This is Madara's power!" The Konoha ninjas were collectively speechless. However, Konoha was not without a savior. Sage art would release true several thousand hands. A gigantic Buddha statue suddenly appeared under Hashirama, its 1,000 arms rising simultaneously to shatter the meteor in the sky. After destroying the meteor, Hashirama looked at his old friend. "Madara, this technique endangers Konoha's safety. Now is not the time to say such things." Madara, without hesitation, summoned another meteor. His eyes had already transformed into Rinnegan. "You are disappointing, Hashirama, submitting so easily to Brat's control." This battle was on a different level from the rest of the ninja world. Madara, benefiting from the infinite chakra granted by Edo Tensei, could fight indefinitely. So could Hashirama. To protect Konoha from the meteor and driven by Kagura's command to defeat Madara, the giant Buddha statue raised its fists again, shattering the falling meteor. "Madara! Hashirama!" Madara, controlling his full-body Susanoo, flew straight toward the true several thousand hands. "That brat wants to steal my plan and use it to destroy the ninja world. Even now, you can't wake up. If we join forces, we can resist that brat's control over us." Uchiha Madara stood within the crystal of Susanoo, his brows tightly furrowed, clutching his fist. "Hashirama, as long as we break free from control and eliminate that brat together, we can achieve true peace." At that moment, it was as if the identities of the two had been swapped. Once, Hashirama had constantly called out to Uchiha Madara, hoping he would understand the peace he desired. Now, it was Uchiha Madara who persistently called out to Hashirama, hoping his old friend would rise up and resist Akihara Kagura's will, striving for the peace he sought to bring. But Hashirama hesitated for a moment, speaking softly. "Madara, your plan must also be very evil, right? That brat extremely wants to destroy the ninjas." Uchiha Madara looked at Hashirama with a mix of anger and frustration, nearly wanting to berate him harshly. "No matter what my plan is, at least the people of the ninja world can survive. Can you not understand the difference between me and that brat?" Hashirama's expression instantly darkened. "Pull yourself together," Uchiha Madara scolded once more. All right, I'll try." Hashirama quickly tried to raise his fingers, attempting to gather strength to resist Akihara Kagura's control, when suddenly he received a summoning from a summoning jutsu. "This is..." Hashirama looked in astonishment towards the direction of the summoning. "This is..." Uchiha Madara also squinted his eyes. In Konoha village, the Konoha hospital had become bustling again. A group of Konoha ninjas were desperately trying to stop Black Zetsu from controlling Nagato to revive Uchiha Madara. Black Zetsu directly controlled Nagato to fight, summoning the 6 paths of pain. Tabarama suddenly raised his fingers. Uchiha Madara and Hashirama, who were fighting in the distance, were simultaneously summoned. The moment their bodies flew over, the complete Susanoo and true several thousand hands Buddha statue dissipated. Akihara Kagura's voice emerged from Tabarama's throat, his tone almost calm and indifferent. "Kill Zetsu and Nagato, seize Nagato's Rinnegan, and reclaim the bark recording the Senju clan's history." Uchiha Madara's palm suddenly condensed a black rod. This black rod, which was meant to be thrown at Nagato, was forcefully stabbed into his own leg, a method to prevent his body from uncontrollably attacking Nagato. Akihara Kagura, that brat! The control over the reanimated ones was gradually becoming stronger. That brat! Is he serious this time? All the Konoha ninjas present found themselves in a dilemma. They didn't know whether to kill Black Zetsu and Nagato to prevent Madara's revival, or to stop the reanimated ninjas from attacking Black Zetsu and Nagato to prevent them from seizing Nagato's Rinnegan. It was a difficult choice, for both Uchiha Madara and Black Zetsu had their conspiracies. Akihara Kagura also had his own schemes. Summoning Jutsu! Black Zetsu controlled Nagato to directly perform a summoning jutsu. A massive Jido statue suddenly descended, its shell not yet fully restored, seemingly severely damaged from a previous battle. However, its combat power was still intact. Black rods of yin-yang release shot out from the Jido statue, directly targeting the reanimated ninjas, preventing them from approaching. The reanimated ninjas could only retreat quickly. Only Uchiha Madara had several black rods stabbed into his body, rendering him immobile, which suited him perfectly. Just a few seconds, as long as Black Zetsu could revive him. While commanding the Jido statue to attack, Black Zetsu controlled Nagato to form the hand signs for the Samsara of Heavenly Life technique. At this moment, Black Zetsu had an illusion as if he were fighting against the entire world. However, we are about to succeed. Black Zetsu controlled Nagato to clasp his hands together, as if praying to the heavens, letting out a suppressed low roar. Outer path, Samsara of Heavenly Life technique. A white light suddenly emerged from Uchiha Madara's body. In the next moment, Uchiha Madara felt the sensation of being controlled dissipate, the shackles in his mind vanishing. Brat! Uchiha Madara's lips curved into a sinister smile, not caring about the Black Rod's injuries after his revival. Taking advantage of the remaining time of the reanimation jutsu, he conveyed a message to the rapidly retreating will in his mind. It seems this time I have won. Uchiha Madara was confident, knowing how powerful he would become after reviving and re-implanting his Rinnegan. His tone became increasingly contemptuous. In the end, my Rinnegan will return to its rightful owner. As for what you wanted them to take, I will gladly accept it. Congratulations. Contrary to Madara's expectations, Akihara Kagura was not enraged. Akihara Kagura's emotions seemed unperturbed, as if he did not care about Madara's revival. His voice, along with Madara's revival, gradually faded until it completely disappeared from Madara's mind. However, I'm curious about one thing. Akihara Kagura sat by the lake in the Valley of the End, watching the violently shaking fishing rod, indicating a catch. He calmly pulled the rod, asking his final question. Uchiha Madara, after truly reviving, have you completely escaped the fate of being a pawn inside Konoha village? A surge of scorching white smoke rose from Uchiha Madara's body. The corners of this man's mouth curled up as the Rinnegan from the Edo Tensei fell from his eye sockets like shredded paper. His eyes turned completely black, rendering him totally blind. However, this still couldn't dampen Uchiha Madara's exhilaration, because he could feel the vitality within his body reviving. No longer did he feel like empty paper ashes, but rather a truly vibrant and energetic body. Accompanying this, naturally, was intense pain. Several black rods were still pierced through his body. For others, this pain might be unbearable, but for Uchiha Madara, it brought endless pleasure, making him feel alive. These pains were merely minor embellishments of his resurrection. Uchiha Madara pulled out the black rods from his body. The wounds quickly healed, showing his body's remarkable regenerative abilities. Kill him! Tsunade immediately recognized the opportunity. Compared to a ninja under the Edo Tensei, a living person is obviously easier to kill. As long as Uchiha Madara was alive, they had hoped of killing him. Moreover, now was the most vulnerable moment for Uchiha Madara. Without the Sharingan and Rinnegan, he couldn't use many of his abilities. They might indeed have a chance to kill him. Although Uchiha Madara wasn't allied with Black Zetsu and Akihara Kagura, he was still an enemy that threatened the ninja world and needed to be eliminated. The three legendary Sannin of Konoha charged at Uchiha Madara. However, Uchiha Madara removed his heavy red armor with ease. His body was incredibly agile and strong, his powerful arms striking Jiraiya, sending him flying. Jiraiya was directly knocked away. Uchiha Madara flipped his body, kicking Orochimaru, who was trying to release a long snake, and sent him flying with a kick. Ha! Tsunade swung her fist down. Uchiha Madara raised his arms, forcibly enduring Tsunade's monstrous strength, but his body was involuntarily sent flying. Boom! Uchiha Madara fell directly into a heap of ruins. Fire release! Dragon flame bullet! Jiraiya quickly spat out a flame toward the ruins. Lightning release! Thunder strike! Orochimaru also spat out a lightning attack toward the ruins. Fire and lightning intertwined, instantly engulfing the ruins. A loud explosion followed, and a tall Susanoo rose from the ruins. This scene immediately stunned everyone present. Everyone was shocked by Uchiha Madara's terrifying power. Can he activate Susanoo without his eyes? Tsunade looked at the towering Susanoo rising from the ruins, landing before them again with a face full of shock. How was this possible? If this was the case, what could they do? The Mangekyou Sharingan is just the key to unlocking or learning Susanoo. Tabarama watched this scene and said in a deep voice, "For an Uchiha who has already mastered Susanoo, it's like how my brother's wood golem jutsu is created from wood release chakra. Susanoo is merely a manifestation of the yin attribute chakra." This was Tabarama's hypothesis. However, Tabarama's hypothesis was immediately confirmed by Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara closed his eyes, but there was a mocking expression on his face. "Tabarama, you really understand the Uchiha?" It was truly ironic. Many Uchiha might not understand the mechanism of the Sharingan, as well as many Uchiha might not understand the mechanism of the Sharingan as well as Tobirama. Uchiha Madara even learned from Uchiha Sasuke that Tobirama had analyzed why the Uchiha awakened the Sharingan. This man, who always considered himself the enemy of the Uchiha, even the most hated by the Uchiha, was actually the one who understood them the best. But you are not an Uchiha. Uchiha Madara spread out his hands, sneering as he spoke. It's just some outsider's research, and you'll never understand how many secrets the Uchiha clan hides. Black Zetsu! Uchiha Madara extended his hand. His Susanoo quickly dissipated. He stood not far from Nagato, commanding loudly, "Bring me the Rinnegan, I need to fight with it now." "Yes!" Black Zetsu raised his hand and directly gouged out a Rinnegan from Nagato, swiftly bringing it to Uchiha Madara. "Don't think you'll succeed!" Countless paper pieces floated from Conan's body, transforming into dense paper shurikens aimed to kill Black Zetsu on the spot. Everyone else also rushed towards Uchiha Madara at that moment. Uchiha Madara, even without using the Rinnegan, possessed terrifying power. Once he obtained the Rinnegan, who knew how much more powerful he would become, Tobirama and Minato also wanted to take action. Even Hashirama hesitated for a moment, contemplating rushing towards Uchiha Madara. Theoretically speaking, both Akihara Kagura and Uchiha Madara pose a threat to the ninja world. They should belong to the faction of Akihara Kagura's destruction, while Uchiha Madara and Black Zetsu belong to another faction that also aims to endanger the ninja world. These two factions are mutually antagonistic. Tobirama's thoughts were very straightforward. He wanted to take advantage of the opportunity, while Akihara Kagura and Uchiha Madara were at odds to eliminate Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara had always been hostile and even wanted to kill Tobirama, and Tobirama had also longed to get rid of Madara as soon as possible. However, their actions were instantly controlled. Tobirama did not quite understand Akihara Kagura's intentions. Through their mental connection, Tobirama voiced his doubts to Akihara Kagura, who was controlling him. Now is a perfect chance to kill Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara is a necessary tool. Akihara Kagura's voice was very calm, continuing nonchalantly. Instead, it is the bark of the Senju clan that hides a great secret. Taking that piece of bark is most important. If Uchiha Madara learns the secret on the bark, it will hinder my plan. What secret does the bark hold? Tobirama could not understand, and he shouted in a deep voice. Your faction once betrayed the Senju clan for that bark, and yet you still won't reveal it. The bark contains secrets about the Sage of Six Paths. Akihara Kagura finally revealed a bit of crucial information, continuing softly. It is the greatest secret in this world, recording the history of the Sage of Six Paths family, the origins of the Senju and Uchiha clans, the darkness of the Sage of Six Paths, and the secrets of becoming a new Sage of Six Paths. Tobirama and Hashirama were both stunned. No one in the ninja world had ever glimpsed ancient history. People only knew that the Sage of Six Paths created the world and the flourishing ninja sects of ancient times. Now, Akihara Kagura told them, that piece of bark records so much information from ancient times. It even includes the dark secrets of the Sage of Six Paths, the most revered figure in the hearts of ninjas. If these contents were to be leaked, it would undoubtedly cause an uproar in the ninja world. Akihara Kagura was still leisurely fishing, using the connection between the reanimated and the summoner to explain his reasoning. If Uchiha Madara gets the secret on that bark, he will abandon his plan, but this will interfere with mine. Tobirama raised an important question. If we don't stop Uchiha Madara from obtaining the Rinnegan, his increased power will surely allow him to seize the bark. Then I have no choice. Akihara Kagura's voice seemed somewhat helpless. Uchiha Madara must obtain his Rinnegan to continue his plan. Can't you team up with Uchiha Madara to deal with Konoha? One side gets the bark, the other gets the Rinnegan. But, Hashirama weakly spoke up, do we really need to team up with Madara to deal with little ones like Tsunade and the others? Then forget it. Akihara Kagura did not mind, his thoughts seemingly all on the bark of the Senju clan. You must take the bark and let Uchiha Madara get the Rinnegan. Inside Konoha village, the fierce battle continued. Everyone else attacked Uchiha Madara and Black Zetsu wildly, not wanting Uchiha Madara to obtain the Rinnegan, even though Black Zetsu only held one. Black Zetsu, hide! Uchiha Madara suddenly raised his hand, forming a hand seal. His face turned cold. Fire release, dust cloud technique. A mass of high-temperature smoke instantly spewed from his mouth. This high-temperature smoke enveloped everyone around in an instant, causing a violent explosion that blew everyone present away. Black Zetsu hurriedly escaped underground with the Rinnegan a second before Uchiha Black Zetsu hurriedly escaped underground with the Rinnegan a second before Uchiha Madara released the dust cloud technique. It re-emerged only after the battle ended. Uchiha Madara slowly reached out to take the Rinnegan that Black Zetsu handed him and inserted it into his eye socket. The healing power quickly healed the wound around his eye, and the Rinnegan restored his vision. "This Rinnegan is mine." Uchiha Madara caressed his eye socket, cherishing the light he regained. "Only I can truly wield the power of the Rinnegan. Nagato using it only brought it shame." Everyone present watched as Uchiha Madara regained his eye. They could all feel that his aura had changed. "Humph, humph, humph!" Uchiha Madara assessed the situation on the scene, looking with great interest at the wrecked Konoha hospital, the terrified Konoha ninjas, and the grim-faced Hashirama. Now he had achieved his goal. As long as he could be resurrected and regain the Rinnegan, the plan would still be under his control, and he could proceed to the next step without any hesitation. As for that Akihara Kagura who wanted to use him, Uchiha Madara suddenly burst into laughter, his laughter gradually becoming arrogant and wild. "Ha ha ha, Hashirama and that boy manipulating you from behind, this time I have won, whether it's the Rinnegan or the Eye of the Moon plan. Everything is mine." Uchiha Madara clenched his fist forcefully. From this moment on, Uchiha Madara's eyes narrowed tightly, and his expression became somewhat sinister and terrifying. "Let this world know that the destiny they must accept has arrived." Madara, Hashirama didn't know what to say. However, Tobirama and Minato moved swiftly, rushing directly toward the piece of bark that had somehow fallen to the ground. "Lord Madara!" Black Zetsu's expression also became somewhat respectful. It cautiously watched the bark being fought over, and to maintain Madara's trust, proactively said, "That piece of bark may contain secrets of the ninja world's history. I've already seen those on the clan's steel." Uchiha Madara laughed lightly, seemingly uninterested in the bark. Watching Tobirama and Minato's actions, he sneered contemptuously. "However, it can serve as a trophy for the victor. Want to take it?" Uchiha Madara slightly raised his eyes, the pupils of his Rinnegan vibrating, then witnessed the true power of the Rinnegan. "Limbo, border jail, watch out!" Tobirama hurriedly reminded. However, there was silence in the field, because nothing happened. It seemed that Uchiha Madara merely uttered the name of his technique, which appeared to have no effect, and there wasn't even any chakra fluctuation in this area. Everyone was puzzled by Uchiha Madara's actions. The next second, Tobirama was suddenly sent flying backward. The former second Hokage Tobirama received a heavy blow, as if struck by an invisible person, with no chance to counterattack, and was kicked away. Minato instantly raised his hand, placing a Rasengan in front of him, thinking the opponent might be invisible. However, the Rasengan landed on empty air. Minato's neck suddenly took a hit. The invisible enemy delivered a heavy blow to Minato's neck, causing his body to crash to the ground. Absolutely no signs. Minato lay on the ground, still struggling to understand what went wrong. "I tried to judge the enemy's attack path, but there was no chakra fluctuation, not even a disturbance in the air current before the attack." Tobirama crouched hastily, attempting to use his chakra sensing to discern who was attacking him. However, he found no trace of anyone. Perhaps it wasn't an invisible person, but rather a mysterious technique that had attacked him. "Madara, is this your ability?" Tobirama suddenly looked at Uchiha Madara, the man he feared the most, the one most likely to use such bizarre abilities. Tobirama charged toward the bark again, this time extremely calm and cautious, ready to use the Flying Thunder God technique to evade any attacks. However, the attack came again without any sign. Tobirama's body was once again sent flying backward. Hashirama had just begun to make a move, his hands barely clasped together when his arm was inexplicably twisted behind his back, mysteriously restrained. "I told you, this time I have won." Uchiha Madara walked towards the piece of bark lying on the ground with a face full of arrogance. Black Zetsu cautiously followed behind Uchiha Madara, hoping to take the opportunity to peek at the secrets on the bark. "The overall situation has been determined." This was Uchiha Madara's thought. No one present could stop him anymore. Now, Uchiha Madara only wanted to see what secrets were recorded on the bark, taking it as a bit of amusement and letting his old friend, Hashirama, know the secrets of their clan. There were still flaws. This was Black Zetsu's thought. Now Black Zetsu also wanted to see what was recorded on the bark. It intended to continue leading Uchiha Madara to disregard the history of the ninja world based on the content of the bark. Besides them, everyone present wanted to see this piece of bark, because this bark passed down by the Senju clan must record astonishing secrets, a realm they had never touched, especially Tobirama, a member of the Senju clan. HMPH! Uchiha Madara picked up the piece of bark, and the first thing he did was touch its texture, feeling a strange familiarity. He chuckled lightly. This texture is similar to that of our clan's flame fan. It seems that Uchiha and Senju are indeed opposites. Black Zetsu only sneered silently. Isn't this obvious? The materials are of course the same, because the Uchiha clan's flame fan is made from the bark of the divine tree, and this piece of bark is also from the divine tree. Their materials are certainly connected. Madara, you don't have wood-release chakra. Hashirama frowned, hesitatingly asking, I'm also a bit curious about what is recorded on our clan's heirloom. It should be similar to our clan's stone tablet records. Uchiha Madara chuckled, reaching out his hand with interest. The combination of the yin and yang poles, the union of opposites, can bring about all things. Hashirama, at that time I learned this secret from the stone tablet, then found a way to get your flesh, transplanted your cells, and awakened the Rinnegan. Naturally, I also awakened wood release. A trace of wood release chakra appeared in Uchiha Madara's palm, falling onto the bark. He continued to smile lightly. Back then, I shared the inscriptions on the Uchiha clan's stone tablet with you. Now let me admire the secrets of the Senju clan. If there's no surprise. As Uchiha Madara lowered his head to look, he said, the record here should be something like taking our clan's eternal Mangekyou Sharingan, transplanting it into your Senju clan, and also awakening the Rinnegan, right? Let me take a look. The secrets of the Senju clan. Using wood-release chakra, Uchiha Madara activated the bark, and the characters on it started to move. A hint of disdain appeared on his lips. This way of uncovering secrets can only be opened with wood release. Is it intended to prevent even the Senju clan from discovering the secrets on it? Uchiha Madara knew a little about the issues with wood release. Wood release is not a hereditary bloodline of the Senju clan. Very few within the Senju clan have awakened wood release. Among those he knew, only Hashirama had done so. It was only with the development of Konoha's technology that the method of transplanting Hashirama cells was born. Before the Warring States period, awakening wood release in the Senju clan was entirely based on luck. Uchiha Madara frowned as he read the beginning on the bark. Another history of the Sage of Six Paths, Otsutsuki Hagoromo, creating the world. But why does the Senju clan's secret record the planting of the divine tree by the Sage of Six Paths? Black Zetsu behind Uchiha Madara immediately perked up. What kind of history is this? When did Otsutsuki Hagoromo plant a tree? When did Otsutsuki Hagoromo plant a tree? Thousands of years ago. Otsutsuki Hagoromo planted a divine tree in the ninja world, received the blessings of the divine tree. He divided chakra among the people, created the ninja world. However, as Black Zetsu looked at the bark in Uchiha Madara's hand, its face became gloomy. This history had been tampered with. This historical record is certainly wrong. It was clearly Otsutsuki Kaguya who planted the divine tree. It was clearly Otsutsuki Kaguya who received the power of the divine tree. Why does it say Otsutsuki Hagoromo? Is Otsutsuki Hagoromo trying to hide Kaguya's existence by altering the past history on the bark? It seems that our clan's historical records have many similarities. As Uchiha Madara continued reading, he nodded slowly at the records about the divine tree and the 10 tails. The origin of chakra from the divine tree and the 10 tails is the same. There are still some slight differences. But your Senju clan's bark records that the Sage of Six Paths, Otsutsuki Hagoromo, received the blessings of the divine tree and divided chakra among the people. Our clan's stone tablet records that a woman named Otsutsuki Kaguya, the rabbit goddess, ate the fruit of the divine tree, and since then the ninja world has had chakra. That woman angered the divine tree, which turned into the 10 tails to kill her. This was recorded on the Uchiha stone tablet. Uchiha Madara had also told Uchiha Abido the secret of the 10 tails. Black Zetsu suppressed its fury, because it knew the true origin of chakra. The so-called Sage of Six Paths receiving blessings was false. The records on the Uchiha stone tablet were correct. The records on this bark are all false. This bark, what on earth is going on? However, before Black Zetsu could get angry, Uchiha Madara saw the next section, and upon seeing it, a look of surprise appeared on his face. Wait a moment! When Uchiha Madara saw what was beneath the tree bark, he looked surprised at first, then suddenly understood and nodded hurriedly, saying, I was always curious why there were so few records about Otsutsuki Kaguya, the progenitor of chakra in the ninja world, on our clan's stone tablet. It turns out her secret was recorded on the bark of your Senju clan's trees. Otsutsuki Hagoromo founded the ninja world. He had 3 children. The eldest son, Indra. The second son, Asura. The youngest daughter, Otsutsuki Kaguya. And moreover, there is something even more interesting. Uchiha Madara chuckled and looked at the restrained Hashirama. The ancestor of our Uchiha clan is named Indra, the eldest son of the Sage of Six Paths, who inherited his sage's eyes. Your Senju clan's ancestor is named Asura, the second son of the Sage of Six Paths, who inherited his sage's body. Hashirama, our two clans' ancestors were actually blood brothers. When Uchiha Madara said this, he was somewhat excited, even smiling. This piece of history is truly astonishing hidden. How is this possible? Tobirama's face showed immediate doubt and uncertainty. Who could have imagined that the Uchiha clan and the Senju clan, known to be eternal adversaries during the Warring States period, had ancestors who were actually blood brothers, children of the Sage of Six Paths? What a joke! The ancestor of the Senju clan and the evil ancestor of the Uchiha clan being blood brothers. But this is a historical relic of the Senju clan. If both the Senju and Uchiha clans are descendants of the Sage of Six Paths, no wonder they both possess such formidable power, able to dominate before the Warring States period. Our ancestors were blood brothers. Hashirama showed a look of surprise, but soon felt happy. No wonder when I first met you. Our Senju and Uchiha brothers. All the Konoha ninjas present were astonished. Although many had forgotten the former glory of the Senju clan, they knew the story of the rivals and friends, Uchiha Madara and Hashirama. Unexpectedly, they were actually brothers, but that was 1,000 years ago. Uchiha Madara chuckled again, suddenly frowning in thought. No wonder when I transplanted your cells there was no rejection reaction, and I awakened the Sage of Six Paths Rinnegan. No wonder it happened this way. Everything can be explained. The so-called forces of positive and negative are all powers of the Sage of Six Paths. No wonder, Tobirama frowned, pondering something. No wonder Akihara Kagura, that kid, knew that transplanting my brother's cells into the Uchiha wouldn't cause experimental failure, but would rather awaken both Wood Release and Sharingan Kekkei Genkai. It all makes sense. Since the Senju and Uchiha clans once shared an ancestor, the powers of the Senjus Wood Release and the Uchiha's Sharingan can be merged into one. This is also why Akihara Kagura wanted to save the Uchiha clan, knowing that once the Uchiha transplanted Hashirama's cells, they could awaken dual Kekkei Genkai, creating a batch of powerful subordinates. This is recorded on the Senju clan's bark. Uchiha Madara raised the bark in his hand and mentioned another insignificant matter with a hint of disdain. The bark also records the origin of the Hyuga clan. The ancestor of the Hyuga clan is named Otsutsuki Kaguya. Hearing this name, Black Zetsu's expression suddenly turned tense. If it weren't for the inappropriate occasion, Black Zetsu would have snatched the bark from Uchiha Madara's hand. It hadn't even gotten a good look at what was recorded about Otsutsuki Kaguya. Otsutsuki Kaguya? What exactly does this bark record about Otsutsuki Kaguya? This was an especially tense moment for Black Zetsu. It needed to use the records to make Uchiha Madara lower his guard against Otsutsuki Kaguya. How interesting! I've finally learned some secrets. Uchiha Madara chuckled again, mocking the ancestor of the Hyuga clan with interest. This Otsutsuki Kaguya, who was merely mentioned in passing as the rabbit goddess on our Uchiha clan's stone tablet, turns out to be the youngest daughter of Otsutsuki Hagoromo, the Sage of Six Paths. No wonder her name always appears in these ancient historical secrets. Black Zetsu was struck as if by lightning. Wait a minute. What did Uchiha Madara just say? What does he mean Otsutsuki Kaguya is the youngest daughter of Otsutsuki Hagoromo? What is this? What is this bark? What on earth is this damned bark recording? Black Zetsu's expression turned grim and cold. Suppressing its anger, it forced itself to speak calmly. Madara, could it be that you misread? Perhaps you misinterpreted it because you only used one eye. Uchiha Madara chuckled lightly and even continued. It's a pity that Otsutsuki Kaguya, the younger daughter of the Sage of the Six Paths, did not inherit anything. That's probably why this ancestor of the Hyuga clan was never valued by her father, the Sage of the Six Paths, and there's hardly any notable record of her. Black Zetsu was genuinely furious. What kind of nonsense history is this? Who recorded this history? Can they show some respect for history? What on earth is this nonsense about the Senju clan's tree bark? Historically, Otsutsuki Kaguya was the mother of Otsutsuki Hagoromo, so why does this record say that Otsutsuki Hagoromo is Kaguya's father? Black Zetsu truly felt like killing someone. What kind of behavior is this? As Kaguya's will, Black Zetsu genuinely wanted to kill someone. Black Zetsu couldn't tolerate anyone desecrating Otsutsuki Kaguya, especially when it clearly knew the hopes Kaguya placed on her children. However, Otsutsuki Hagoromo is here overturning the heavens. If sealing Otsutsuki Kaguya could be justified by saving the ninja world, then altering history and even switching their identities is just going too far. This piece of tree bark. What kind of nonsense is recorded here? Yet Black Zetsu could not correct these errors, as it had been constantly erasing records of Otsutsuki Kaguya. It was merely Uchiha Madara's will and had no authority to explain these ancient histories, as that would expose its true nature. Could it tell Uchiha Madara that Otsutsuki Kaguya was not an insignificant daughter but an omnipotent goddess? Endure, it must endure this for now. Senju, Hyuga, Uchiha. Uchiha Madara muttered the names of these noble ninja clans from the Warring States period, finding it quite interesting. 1,000 years ago, the ancestors of these three clans were all descendants of the sage of the six paths, Otsutsuki Hagoromo. 1,000 years later, the descendants of these three clans are all in Konoha. After speaking, Uchiha Madara continued reading. He looked at the tree bark, nodding slightly. Hashirama, your clan recorded quite a few secrets. Uchiha Madara didn't notice that Black Zetsu's face was becoming increasingly sinister. He just continued reading the records with interest. Your clan's tree bark even records Otsutsuki Kaguya consuming the fruit of the divine tree. Black Zetsu's expression grew even more tense. Uchiha Madara slowly summarized the historical records. Because the sage of the six paths was considering giving the position of heir to his eldest son, Indra, or his second son, Asura, this displeased his younger daughter, Kaguya. So she consumed the fruit of the divine tree and in her anger transformed into the 10 tails, initiating the infinite Tsukuyomi. HMPH. Interesting. Uchiha Madara chuckled lightly, finally finding what he wanted. It seems that the Senju clan's tree bark also recorded the story of the infinite Tsukuyomi. No wonder that brat Akihara Kagura knew about my plan. Uchiha Madara sneered and shook his head, continuing to read with restored calmness. Although the historical records were somewhat inaccurate, the contents were indeed correct. The sage of the six paths reclaimed the 10 tails, divided its chakra into the 9-tailed beasts, and sealed his daughter Otsutsuki Kaguya. Indeed, the 9-tailed beasts were the chakra divided from the 10 tails. Uchiha Madara had long known this, but he hadn't expected the backstory of the 10 tails division to be so peculiar. So, the 10 tails rampage 1,000 years ago was due to a dispute over the succession of the ninja world. However, there's no mention of the effects of the infinite Tsukuyomi here. Uchiha Madara shook his head and continued reading the contents recorded on the tree bark, as there were still many secrets of ancient times he wanted to explore. After sealing his younger daughter, Kaguya, Uchiha Madara was more interested in another matter. He looked at Hashirama with interest and asked, "I'm curious, who do you think was chosen as the successor of the ninja sect?" "Hashirama, who do you think it was?" "I'm not interested in these things." Hashirama didn't care at all. He had never been interested in power or authority, just like his ancestor, Asura. However, Uchiha Madara, like his ancestor Indra, was very interested in potential competition and even recalled the former struggle for the position of Hokage. "Our ancestors once competed just like us." Uchiha Madara shook his head and was about to continue reading when he saw not the successor of the ninja sect, but a record about the sage of the six paths, Otsutsuki Hagoromo, falling into darkness after sealing his daughter Kaguya. Black Zetsu was very interested in the secrets of the tree bark. It leaned closer to Uchiha Madara, inwardly grinding its teeth in anger, yet continued reading beside Uchiha Madara. It found that the records about Kaguya on this piece of tree bark didn't pose much trouble. Although this tree bark recorded a lot about Kaguya, it wasn't a threat to Black Zetsu's plan, as it didn't mention Kaguya's resurrection. This piece of tree bark only humiliated Otsutsuki Kaguya's history. However, as long as it didn't affect the plan, Black Zetsu believed it could tolerate this momentary hatred and anger, as long as the Eye of the Moon plan continued. As long as Kaguya could be resurrected, everything in the future would be settled. The crisis seemed to have been averted. Black Zetsu's mood gradually relaxed. Otsutsuki Hagoromo sealed his younger daughter. A part of his will split into darkness. Uchiha Madara read the records on the tree bark, his brow furrowing in impatience until he saw the last line of text. "This part of the dark will is called Black Zetsu." Uchiha Madara muttered Black Zetsu's name, his body suddenly stiffening. His gaze slowly shifted, looking at the Black Zetsu beside him. Black Zetsu's gaze also moved from the tree bark. It seemed to have finished reading that passage and involuntarily turned to look at the cold and eerie eyes of Uchiha Madara. The scene was silent. Uchiha Madara looked indifferently at Black Zetsu. Black Zetsu returned Uchiha Madara's gaze with unease. Black Zetsu had always been worried that the bark of the Senju clan would record the detailed history of Kaguya Otsutsuki. He was constantly pondering whether the records on the bark would cause Uchiha Madara to doubt the Eye of the Moon plan, and he had even thought of how to persuade Madara to forget about it. However, who could have imagined? This piece of bark was not targeting Kaguya. This piece of bark was clearly targeting him. Black Zetsu's heart was now quite in turmoil. Which bastard from the Senju clan left behind this historical record, and why does it contain his name? It even portrays him as the will of the Sage of the Six Paths. Where did this history come from? Where did this history come from? Who wrote this history? Where on earth did this history come from? Who wrote it, and why is it here? The content recorded on this bark overlapped too much with the history of the ninja world, even including many people's names and some real historical events. And since this bark was a legacy of the Senju clan, no, he didn't have time to think about this. Black Zetsu realized he couldn't dwell on these thoughts. What was most important for Black Zetsu was to find a way to dispel Uchiha Madara's suspicion. All his hopes were pinned on Madara. Now, how was he going to explain that he was not the will of the Sage of the Six Paths? Black Zetsu! Uchiha Madara raised the bark in his hand, showing a strange smile. The content on this bark seems quite interesting. Could it be that in ancient times? Black Zetsu's mouth twisted into a sinister smile, chuckling softly. Did another Black Zetsu like me also emerge from the Sage of the Six Paths? It's not impossible. Uchiha Madara also smiled, seemingly dispelling his doubts. The legendary Sage of the Six Paths, with his immense power, creating a Black Zetsu wouldn't be unusual, especially since I was able to create you. I am your creation through yin-yang release. Black Zetsu quickly calmed himself and nodded along with Uchiha Madara. The Sage of the Six Paths also possessed the Rinnegan. It's not surprising that his will and soul could create another Black Zetsu using yin-yang release. Black Zetsu immediately thought of an explanation, taking the opportunity to discredit the Sage of the Six Paths. The Sage of the Six Paths' desire for immortality gave rise to that Black Zetsu, and I was born from your strong will to bring peace to the ninja world. Uchiha Madara nodded noncommittally, his gaze returning to the bark, seemingly letting the matter drop lightly. However, this bark also records some stories about the Black Zetsu that split from the soul of the Sage of the Six Paths. Oh, Black Zetsu's body trembled again. He had to keep thinking about how to convince Uchiha Madara that this bark was fake, lest it contain more information unfavorable to him. However, the rest of the bark was full of information detrimental to Black Zetsu. Uchiha Madara's face grew darker as he read the information on the bark, his expression becoming increasingly grim. Black Zetsu is the dark side of the Sage of the Six Paths' heart, inherently possessing the power of immortality. But it seeks to become the ruler of this world. So, since Black Zetsu's birth, its goal has been to revive the Ten Tails and its daughter Kaguya Otsutsuki to control Kaguya and harness the power of the Ten Tails. Black Zetsu's body shook violently. Although the information here was strange, Kaguya Otsutsuki was not a so-called daughter but his creator. He did indeed aim to revive the Ten Tails. Black Zetsu! As Uchiha Madara continued reading the content on the bark, he smiled sardonically. It seems our plan overlaps with that of this Black Zetsu from the Sage of the Six Paths legend. By the way, where could that immortal Black Zetsu be hiding? Perhaps in places we cannot see. Black Zetsu's mind raced as he suddenly thought of a line of reasoning and quickly said, could it be that Black Zetsu is controlling Akihara Kagura from behind the scenes? That's why Akihara Kagura knows so much information, and to prevent others from discovering its whereabouts, it manipulated the reincarnated to try to seize this bark. What on earth is going on with this bark? Why is there so much half-true content recorded, and how could these half-true contents cause me such trouble at this moment? If Uchiha Madara becomes suspicious of me, how can the Eye of the Moon plan proceed? However, Uchiha Madara did begin to have doubts about this matter. He pondered the information mentioned on the bark. If we truly revive the Ten Tails as the bark says, will we really revive Kaguya Otsutsuki, the youngest daughter of Hagoromo Otsutsuki? Kaguya is not the youngest daughter of Hagoromo Otsutsuki. Kaguya is the mother of Hagoromo Otsutsuki. You descendants of rebellious children dare to slander your ancestors here. Black Zetsu inwardly cursed Hagoromo Otsutsuki and Uchiha Madara, but had to explain, I am not very sure. However, once we find the other Black Zetsu, we will know. Nonetheless, the infinite Tsukiyomi should still be able to save the ninja world, right? Now, I need to clear this suspicion from myself. Uchiha Madara seemed to be pondering Black Zetsu's words. It appeared he did not want to believe his plan was fake, possibly because there was more information on the bark. Black Zetsu breathed a sigh of relief, seeing that Uchiha Madara seemed temporarily deceived and continued to read the content on the bark. Black Zetsu felt slightly relieved again. However, Black Zetsu relaxed too soon. As Uchiha Madara thoughtfully nodded while continuing to look at the information on the bark, he suddenly spoke. This bark records matters related to our Uchiha clan, and the Sage of the Six Paths also recorded information about the other Black Zetsu on the stone tablet, even assigning the task of sealing him to our ancestor Indra. Then let's find that other Black Zetsu and seal him. Black Zetsu immediately became energized, expressing his loyalty to Uchiha Madara as if embodying his will. This is our plan. You are right. Uchiha Madara slightly turned his body, letting Black Zetsu stand beside him, but doubts had already sprouted in his heart. Before uncovering the truth and finding the other Black Zetsu in the ninja world, Uchiha Madara had already become wary, realizing he could no longer fully trust the Black Zetsu he created. Uchiha Madara lowered his head and continued looking at the bark in his hand, a look of displeasure flashing in his eyes. It finally mentions the matter of the successor. The Sage of the Six Paths actually passed the responsibility to his elder son Indra and the succession to his younger son Asura. No wonder. Uchiha Madara's gaze fell on Hashirama, sneering and sarcastically saying, no wonder it ended in ruin. Now that the Senju clan rules Konoha as Hokage, it will eventually face the same. Hashirama frowned deeply. Isn't this purely a general attack? Can the demise be attributed to the succession by their Senju ancestor Asura? Could it not be due to other reasons? Black Zetsu felt more relaxed. According to the information recorded on this bark and his memory of history, the next part should be about the battle between the brothers Indra and Asura. Next, there should be nothing about himself. What's next for the ninja world? Only a few sentences about Asura succeeding the ninja world. Uchiha Madara was somewhat dissatisfied as he flipped through the bark. He wanted to glean more secrets from it, but it only mentioned the matter briefly. The next section once again mentioned Black Zetsu. It even mentioned the Uchiha clan's stone tablet again. Black Zetsu learned that Hagoromo Otsutsuki left a stone tablet about his own birth secrets and quietly modified its content. Uchiha Madara's face changed dramatically, his gaze suddenly becoming extremely dangerous. That stone tablet is a treasure passed down through the generations of the Uchiha clan. That stone tablet was actually modified by Black Zetsu. Uchiha Madara's eyes narrowed and his voice turned cold, even exuding an unspeakable chill. The history recorded on the Uchiha clan's stone tablet, the information I obtained from the tablet, was actually altered by a Black Zetsu. Black Zetsu was deeply shocked. How could this piece of bark even know about such a thing? The fact that it had modified the stone tablet was actually recorded on this piece of bark. What the hell? What should it do now? Uchiha Madara would definitely suspect the stone tablet of the Uchiha clan. What could it do now? How could it prove that the content on the Uchiha clan's stone tablet had not been altered? What should it do? What on earth should it do? Should it claim that this piece of bark was fake? That all the content on it was false? However, it was clear that Uchiha Madara already believed much of the information recorded on this piece of bark, because the information on the bark was more complete than the records of the Uchiha clan, especially since this piece of bark recorded a lot of enlightening information. For instance, the relationship between the Senju clan and the Uchiha clan. Because the Senju and Uchiha were brothers, their powers could merge. Moreover, it could not question the bark. Because Black Zetsu dared not reveal that it was not the Black Zetsu from 1,000 years ago, it had always posed as Uchiha Madara's will. How could it question the authenticity of the content left from ancient times on this piece of bark? This identity had actually become a shackle. Despair had already started to well up in Black Zetsu's heart. The content on this piece of bark was a huge pit, rendering all its years of hard work futile. However, Black Zetsu's despair was still a bit premature. Just as Black Zetsu was pondering how to lure Uchiha Madara had already seen the next section, which completely shattered his mindset. Black Zetsu, claimed to be a will that emerged after Indra's power grew, lured Indra to attack Asura. Indra attempted to capture all the tailed beasts in the ninja world to revive the 10 tails. This kind of thing is indeed familiar. Uchiha Madara's fist suddenly clenched, his eyes turned fierce and dangerous, and he didn't even want to look at the rest of the content behind the bark. What is it, Madara? Black Zetsu's mood suddenly became tense. Black Zetsu! Uchiha Madara laughed in extreme anger. He lightly tapped his arm with his fingers and said with a smile, this piece of bark records that a Black Zetsu had once lured the Uchiha ancestor, Indra. Black Zetsu's heart filled with panic. This kind of thing had also been recorded. It had indeed lured Indra to attack Asura. That Black Zetsu had even done such a thing. Black Zetsu calmed itself and responded with a light laugh. Indeed! Uchiha Madara looked at Black Zetsu's still calm smile, unable to help but smile and nod, not exposing Black Zetsu's disguise, but instead continued to watch it with a smile. That Black Zetsu's approach is quite interesting. Because it only has the ability of immortality and no combat power, it chose to impersonate the will born after Uchiha's ancestor Indra became strong, luring Indra to help it collect the tailed beasts to revive the 10 tails. Black Zetsu's expression suddenly stiffened, because this story was too suggestive. Moreover, Uchiha Madara was not a fool. The story of Uchiha's ancestor Indra. Uchiha Madara seemed unperturbed by Black Zetsu and even smiled. Black Zetsu, this is indeed a familiar story, familiar enough to feel like. When Uchiha Madara spoke here, he frowned as if in thought. How should I put it? It feels like. Uchiha Madara seemed to have finally thought of something. His frown suddenly relaxed, and a murderous intent appeared on his face, his chakra erupting instantly. Like, this story happened to me. None of the people present could fully understand the feelings of Uchiha Madara. The only one who could completely understand Madara's emotions was Black Zetsu, who had been forced by Madara because it was the origin of Madara's rage. However, Black Zetsu was in despair. Who deliberately left this piece of bark? Why was this piece of bark used to slander its mother, Kaguya Otsutsuki? And why did it also accuse it of once impersonating Indra's will? Such slander! It was deadly for it. Now, Black Zetsu looked at the enraged Uchiha Madara and was acutely aware of the imminent crisis. Even if it continued to insist that it was the work of another Black Zetsu, Uchiha Madara might not choose to believe it anymore, as the story of deceiving Indra was too obvious a reference. No matter what, Uchiha Madara was undoubtedly suspecting that Black Zetsu was deceiving him in the same way it deceived Indra by impersonating his will. But it really hadn't done it. The only person it had ever deceived was Uchiha Madara. The information on this piece of bark, it seemed intent on destroying it. Now, Black Zetsu was no longer worried about whether Uchiha Madara would doubt the Eye of the Moon plan. It only feared whether Uchiha Madara would kill it on the spot. Black Zetsu! Uchiha Madara's smile was somewhat dangerous. His anger and killing intent seemed ready to be unleashed upon Black Zetsu at any moment. Now, do you have anything to tell me? Madara, I am your will! Black Zetsu's body trembled, trying hard to maintain a smile on its face, but the smile looked particularly sinister and terrifying, making it hard to believe. But it still wanted to make a final attempt to persuade Uchiha Madara. Oh! Uchiha Madara's smile widened, but it carried a hint of sarcasm. If I'm not mistaken, Uchiha Madara's smile widened, but it carried a hint of sarcasm. If I'm not mistaken, you told Indra the same thing 1,000 years ago when you deceived the ancestor of the Uchiha clan into reviving the 10 tails, didn't you? You claimed you were his will, right? No, it's not. Black Zetsu shook its head repeatedly, continuously retreating, still trying to deceive Uchiha Madara. Madara, those were done by another Black Zetsu. Really? Uchiha Madara's smile turned eerie, as if mocking Black Zetsu's stupidity, or perhaps mocking himself for being deceived in the past. The strongest man in the history of the Uchiha clan suddenly sneered. At this point, do you still want to deceive me? Everything was the same. The actions were the same. The experiences were the same. Uchiha Madara's experiences were exactly the same as those of his ancestor Indra. Both wanted to revive the 10 tails, both had a Black Zetsu, and both were told by this Black Zetsu that it was their will. At this point, how could he believe that Black Zetsu was innocent? At this point, who would believe that Black Zetsu was innocent? The anger in Uchiha Madara's heart was rising. As the proudest man of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Madara once thought he would be the savior of the ninja world after seeing the secrets recorded on the Uchiha clan's stone tablet, believing he bore the future of peace for the ninja world. He never expected that all of this was manipulated from behind the scenes. Suddenly, Uchiha Madara recalled what Akihara Kagura had said before their communication was cut off. Wouldn't he become a pawn after being truly resurrected? That kid had already seen the content on the bark. That kid had already known that he was merely a pawn controlled by Black Zetsu. The stone tablet was altered. Uchiha Madara coldly looked at Black Zetsu, his hand clenched into a fist so tightly that his knuckles cracked. The Eye of the Moon plan is fake, and you are not my will. Black Zetsu, in your fabricated dream, what exactly is real? Black Zetsu kept retreating. In the next moment, Black Zetsu gritted its teeth. A trace of malice appeared on its face. This object created by Kaguya Otsutsuki using yin-yang release suddenly revealed the truth with a chilling tone. Madara, if you say everything is false, then the most false thing right now is this piece of senju bark. Everything recorded on it is fake. Black Zetsu also harbored anger in its heart. It decided to first find a way to overturn the content on the bark, then figure out how to justify its own identity and continue to lure Uchiha Madara into the Eye of the Moon plan. Madara, I am indeed not your will. Black Zetsu looked at Uchiha Madara and admitted something with a sinister voice. However, I am not the will of Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the sage of the Six Paths either. Then whose will are you? The residual anger on Uchiha Madara's face had not dissipated. The anger of being deceived by Black Zetsu could not possibly be quelled just like that. A man as proud as him would never tolerate being deceived, especially when he felt like a clown being played with. I am the will of Kaguya. Black Zetsu's voice suddenly calmed down. Perhaps it was to reveal its identity at this moment, or perhaps it was to fabricate a new story in a short time. Black Zetsu's mood suddenly became peaceful again. However, this peace lasted less than a second. Black Zetsu looked at the bark thrown on the ground by Uchiha Madara, and its voice turned angry again. The historical record on that bark is wrong. It blasphemes the goddess of the moon. Kaguya was never the youngest daughter of Hagoromo Otsutsuki. Kaguya is the mother of Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the sage of the Six Paths. Everyone present widened their eyes. They were already shocked by the history recorded on the senju bark, but now Black Zetsu had suddenly made a reversal. This pitch-black creature is actually the will of Kaguya Otsutsuki. This guy has actually survived for thousands of years, and Kaguya Otsutsuki is not the youngest daughter of the sage of the Six Paths, but rather the mother of Hagoromo Otsutsuki. This reversal is too astonishing. However, is all this true? But whether true or false, when Black Zetsu said these things, it meant that it had been deceiving Uchiha Madara all along. Uchiha Madara's face remained furious, with a cold smile on his lips. So you have been deceiving me all along? Black Zetsu, Madara, listen to my explanation. The ninja world has so many secrets. Suddenly a familiar sigh echoed in the room. This voice seemed somewhat helpless, as if suddenly a familiar sigh echoed in the room. This voice seemed somewhat helpless, as if persuading Uchiha Madara. Madara, why bother seeking the truth? Wouldn't it be better to obediently become Black Zetsu's pawn? Obviously, Akihara Kagura could not miss such an event. Or rather, Akihara Kagura had been waiting for this moment, wanting to push Black Zetsu into a corner, which had to be done by appearing at the right time. If he appeared too early, Black Zetsu would certainly deny its identity and might shift all the blame onto Akihara Kagura himself. If he appeared too late, Black Zetsu might rewrite the facts with another excuse. Now was the perfect time. Black Zetsu had admitted its identity, but had not yet had the chance to state historical facts. Akihara Kagura! Black Zetsu heard Akihara Kagura's voice. Brat! Uchiha Madara's expression was unpleasant, but he could tell that although Akihara Kagura's words seemed comforting, his tone was mocking. This guy dares to mock me like this. This guy only knows I'm Black Zetsu's pawn because he read the history recorded on the Senju clan's bark. That's why he mocked me the moment I was resurrected by the Edo Tensei. I always wanted to prevent Lord Madara from getting the bark. Akihara Kagura didn't think he was mocking Madara. In fact, his attitude became respectful. I always tried to stop Lord Madara from being resurrected and escaping control because I was worried that after learning the secrets on the bark, he wouldn't be able to handle the psychological impact of these ancient mysteries. It's such a pity. All my efforts were in vain. Akihara Kagura's voice came from Minato's mouth. He seemed surprised by Black Zetsu's actions and asked, Black Zetsu, why did you use the Rin rebirth to fully resurrect Lord Madara, freeing him from my control? Black Zetsu felt like cursing. Of course, it was because I didn't know what was on the bark. According to the history recorded on the Uchiha clan's stone tablet, the history recorded on the Senju clan's bark shouldn't be much different. Who would have thought? The history recorded on the Senju clan's bark is so outrageous. I just didn't expect. Black Zetsu gritted his teeth in hatred for that piece of bark. The history recorded on the Senju clan's bark is fabricated like some rural legend. Moreover, calling it a rural legend is a compliment. What kind of rural legend can't even get the historical relationships right and just makes things up out of thin air? Are you saying the contents of the bark are fake? Akihara Kagura's voice seemed a bit surprised, and he proactively asked, But I have a question. How can you prove that you are the will of Kaguya? Everyone present turned to look at Black Zetsu. Black Zetsu's body started trembling. Damn it, why do I have to prove myself? How am I supposed to prove my identity at this moment? What kind of ridiculous error is this where I have to prove the truth I've already spoken? No, that's not right. The person who knows the contents of the bark knows. The person who created that bark knows my identity. However, Black Zetsu couldn't imagine who created that piece of bark. He looked at the reincarnated Minato as if he could see Akihara Kagura controlling things behind the scenes. Akihara Kagura! Where did this bark come from? Black Zetsu suddenly realized something and demanded in a sinister tone, "Tell everyone quickly, where did this bark come from? The person who used this bark to forge history must know my identity. He must have left the real history somewhere else, and that will definitely prove my identity." "But," Akihara Kagura's voice seemed hesitant. He calmly explained, "I believe the history recorded on this bark is real. Kaguya Otsutsuki is scarcely mentioned in the history of the ninja world. Her fame doesn't seem comparable to the Sage of Six Paths, right? The story of Black Zetsu, the dark desire split from the Sage of Six Paths' heart, wanting eternal domination over the ninja world, sounds much more convincing to us." The present ninjas nodded one after another. Comparatively speaking, the version on the tree bark was indeed more believable. Kaguya Otsutsuki, the rabbit goddess, did not have a particularly notable reputation in the ninja world, whereas the Six Paths Sage had a much larger reputation. Black Zetsu was somewhat helpless. This guy Akihara Kagura, obviously everything he said was true. The information on the tree bark was originally false. Everything was originally false. Black Zetsu really was Kaguya's will. Could he still deceive them at this point? Black Zetsu felt a great sense of grievance and wanted to voice it, but his mind could not afford to stop, frantically searching for a way out. He had to find a way to survive. Only by reviving Kaguya would there be hope. Even if this generation's Uchiha Madara did not want to continue the Eye of the Moon plan, the Uchiha clan was not extinct. Waiting another 1,000 years was not an issue. Of course, it would be best if he could still make Uchiha Madara believe him at this moment. Black Zetsu's brain was spinning rapidly. At this moment, how should he rewrite history? No, when revealing these things, he still had to be careful not to be backstabbed. Because the ninja world might still have the true history, he had to present a history that was convincing enough, one with no flaws. "If you really want to know, then I'll tell you what the truth is." As Black Zetsu gradually calmed down, he began in a deep voice, 1,000 years ago, there was no chakra in the ninja world. The humans on this land did not know what chakra was. However, one day, this world was discovered by a terrifying enemy, and a woman named Kaguya from beyond the heavens arrived first. Kaguya planted a god tree on the earth, nurturing it to bear chakra fruits, hoping to gather the earth's power to resist the enemies trying to destroy the world. Unfortunately, war continued within the ninja world. No matter how humans evolved, war seemed to be an ever-present theme with them. Kaguya could not understand why humans initiated wars. She hoped humans could unite against the enemies from beyond, but was naturally not good with words. To quell the wars, Kaguya had no choice but to consume the chakra fruit. Kaguya did not want to execute these humans, so she used the power of the chakra fruit to activate the Eye of the Moon, pulling all the war initiators into the infinite Tsukuyomi, preventing them from causing more conflicts in the ninja world and letting them live out their lives in their desired dreams. "So," Uchiha Madara frowned, seeming somewhat displeased, "at this point, do you still want to tell me that the infinite Tsukuyomi can bring peace to the ninja world?" But Akihara Kagura's voice came through the reincarnated soul, still convinced of his tree bark's information. "The infinite Tsukuyomi will also extract their chakra, right? Humans of that era did not have chakra." Black Zetsu shook his head and bit his teeth, knowing that some history could not be hidden because hidden history would have flaws. He continued to reveal the truth he knew. However, after living out their lives in the dream, humans would gradually transform into a type of being called White Zetsu. "Wait!" Uchiha Madara interrupted Black Zetsu, his gaze turning dangerous again. "Didn't you tell me that White Zetsu was a creature I cultivated using Hashirama cells?" "Madara, I did deceive you back then." Black Zetsu sighed, seemingly helpless. "To make you believe in the existence of White Zetsu, I took out some White Zetsus hidden in the Jido statue, falsely claiming that they were cultivated from Hashirama's cells." "Black Zetsu!" Uchiha Madara's gaze truly wanted to kill on the spot. He did not care about the truth of history. No matter what, he wanted to kill Black Zetsu. "How many more things have you deceived me about, Madara?" There was a hint of panic on Black Zetsu's face as it involuntarily took a step back and cautiously said, "I chose to deceive you because you are the strongest ninja. Only you possess the ability to resurrect the 10 tails, and only you can save the ninja world. I merely exploited your desire for peace in the ninja world. What I said is true. Now, everything I say is true." Black Zetsu could clearly feel Uchiha Madara's killing intent. Black Zetsu was well aware that Uchiha Madara with his Rinnegan might not be able to seal a powerful ninja, but he could definitely seal an entity like itself, which was created by yin-yang release and had no significant power. Interesting, Uchiha Madara sneered. Do liars have their own reasons? Right now, Uchiha Madara was eager to kill Black Zetsu, who had deceived him without delay. Madara, why not listen to what it has to say first? The voice of Akihara Kagura came again from Minato's mouth, seemingly persuading Uchiha Madara. Although Black Zetsu fabricated other historical stories to conceal its identity as the dark will of the Sage of Six Paths, listening to the will of the Sage tell us some interesting stories can still be quite entertaining, can't it? I am telling the truth. This time, everything I say is true. Black Zetsu's voice was filled with pain and despair. This time it was indeed telling the truth, though there were some slight differences. I still want to hear more. Akihara Kagura chuckled, using Minato's body to transmit the sound. I can only hope this story is more interesting than the real history recorded on the bark. I am the one telling the truth. Black Zetsu felt as if its heart was twisting. It stared fixedly at Minato's body, shouting in agony. The records on the bark are false, they are all false. After Kaguya quelled the war, she gave birth to 2 children. One of the children is named Otsutsuki Hagoromo, the father of Indra, the ancestor of the Uchiha clan, and Asura, the ancestor of the Senju clan. The other child is named Otsutsuki Hamura, the ancestor of the Hyuga clan. However, these 2 children couldn't understand Kaguya. As I said before, Kaguya was inherently poor with words. They always believed their mother was harming the world, so they fought against her. In the end, Kaguya was sealed by her son Otsutsuki Hagoromo. When she was being sealed, she created me. I am indeed her will. Black Zetsu clenched its fist, staring intently at Uchiha Madara in front of it, hiding its intention to resurrect Otsutsuki Kaguya. Before Kaguya was sealed, she believed she had no hope left and ordered me to help her resurrect the 10 Tails, to give birth to a new 10 Tails Jinchuriki in the ninja world. This was Black Zetsu's final defiance, because Black Zetsu still wanted to make an effort. After all, resurrecting Kaguya through the 10 Tails Jinchuriki had never been done before. It wanted to try deceiving Uchiha Madara one last time. Unfortunately, someone present didn't want to see it continue deceiving. The story is quite ordinary. Akihara Kagura's voice carried a hint of laughter, seemingly mocking and ridiculing. Black Zetsu, your story doesn't seem very exciting. A creature that has lived for over 1,000 years telling us it is to resurrect the 10 Tails to resist foreign invaders. If it is to save the ninja world, why can't these things be said openly? Anyone could hear the mockery in Akihara Kagura's words. However, Black Zetsu felt it was being greatly wronged. If it could cry, it could flood Konoha with its aggrieved tears. But no one present seemed willing to believe its words anymore. The chakra in Uchiha Madara's body grew stronger and stronger as he stepped closer to Black Zetsu. His fingers clenched one by one. He just wanted to personally eliminate this deceiving scoundrel. Madara! Black Zetsu looked at the approaching Uchiha with a touch of despair on its face. This time I really didn't lie to you. I will never deceive you again. It doesn't matter. Uchiha Madara spread his palm, coldly stating, No matter what you say, I won't believe you anymore. In fact, believing a little doesn't hurt. Akihara Kagura's voice sounded somewhat interested, speaking slowly. I believe some of what Black Zetsu says is true, and of course some of it is false. Because I have a historical record of the Hyuga clan in my hand, it seems these records include what happens when one becomes the Jinchuriki. Black Zetsu looked despairingly at Minato's body. Damn you, this bastard had an ace up his sleeve. Why didn't he say so earlier? He had just attempted to deceive Uchiha Madara one last time, only to find out from Akihara Kagura that there was another set of historical records. Damn it, how many things are hidden in the ninja world? He still didn't know who recorded the Senju clan's tree bark. Otsutsuki Hagoromo left a stele, and even Otsutsuki Hamura left something behind. Now, do you have any last words? The killing intent from Uchiha Madara seemed to freeze the air. Anyone could see how determined this man was to kill someone. Right now, Black Zetsu didn't dare say anything. Anything it said now would be wrong. It had to hide and wait for the next opportunity to deceive another Uchiha born in the future. Anyway, in the next 1,000 years, there might be another chance. Save Black Zetsu! Akihara Kagura's voice suddenly appeared, and his laughter finally became normal. Although Madara wants to kill it, Black Zetsu and I have the same thoughts. With Akihara Kagura's order, Tabarama and Minato simultaneously rushed towards Black Zetsu. Uchiha Madara leapt up and kicked them both away. However, this couldn't stop the 2 flying thunder god users from rescuing someone. As Madara kicked them away, black rods condensed in his hand, intending to control Tabarama and Minato directly. The two Flying Thunder God users instantly disappeared, avoiding the black rods of yin-yang release, then reappeared, continuing to charge towards Black Zetsu. Madara's eyes flashed, and the repulsive force of the Rinnegan exploded, sending Minato and Tabarama flying again. "Black Zetsu, you can escape on your own now." Akihara Kagura's voice came from Hashirama's body, calmly saying, "Come find me. I will tell you everything and let you know the reasons behind all this. You have no other choice, right?" Black Zetsu's body instantly burrowed into the ground. Akihara Kagura was right. It really had no other choice. Although it didn't know why Akihara Kagura would save it, this was undoubtedly a godsend. Most importantly, Black Zetsu also wanted to know some answers from Akihara Kagura to understand the hidden secrets and dangers behind all this. Only by resolving these unknown dangers could it plan to resurrect Kaguya again in the future. Madara looked at the fleeing Black Zetsu, instantly furious. A powerful chakra surged from him as he entered the Susanoo state. A blue ninja sword suddenly stabbed into the ground. However, Black Zetsu had already disappeared using the Mayfly technique. "Kagura, what are you planning to do?" Jiraiya solemnly questioned his student. "You should know that guy has a huge conspiracy. Maybe it wants to dominate the entire ninja world, just like what's recorded in the Senju clan's tree bark." "Jiraiya-sensei." Akihara Kagura's voice sounded somewhat innocent as he reminded Jiraiya, "Have you forgotten? I want to destroy the entire ninja world. What does this have to do with me?" Jiraiya almost forgot. His student's actions were far more extreme than Black Zetsu's. Perhaps Black Zetsu just wanted to dominate the ninja world, but Akihara Kagura wanted to destroy it and recreate the ninjas. Akihara Kagura! Madara's eyes flashed, staring at his old friend Hashirama, knowing Akihara Kagura was observing through Hashirama's eyes. "Give Black Zetsu to me, Madara." Akihara Kagura's voice indeed came from Hashirama's mouth, slowly saying, "Everything that happened today has only one purpose, to reveal Black Zetsu's true nature and separate it from you." "What are you saying?" Madara's expression changed. "Where should I start?" Akihara Kagura spoke as he controlled the appearance of 3 Edo Tensei Hokage. His voice gradually became ethereal. "If I had to say, it was probably when Jiraiya-sensei went to investigate the Akatsuki. From that time, I devised a plan. That plan led to everything happening today. The mass deployment of Root Ninja to hunt down Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Obaido was merely a distraction to draw the attention of Obaido and Black Zetsu. I took the opportunity to attack Nagato-senpai under the pretext of using the Rinnegan and weapons of war to destroy the ninja world, forcing him to betray the Eye of the Moon plan for the safety of the ninja world. I never cared about Nagato-senpai's Rinnegan. My goal was to force him to betray the Eye of the Moon plan. Of course, the most important purpose was undoubtedly to let you know that Nagato-senpai had betrayed the Eye of the Moon plan. At that time, you would definitely want to reclaim Nagato-senpai's eyes, and Nagato-senpai's whereabouts were always under my control. I calculated that after resurrecting you with Edo Tensei, you and Black Zetsu would arrive in Konoha at the perfect time. Then, I needed to make you understand one more thing. You, revived by Edo Tensei, could not escape my control. The pride of the Uchiha would inevitably drive you to break free from my grasp, and the collapse of the Eye of the Moon plan would make you desperate for freedom. So you would do everything possible to make Nagato-senpai use the Rin Rebirth Jutsu to fully resurrect you, just in time. Black Zetsu also wanted your complete resurrection. Everything was so well coordinated. You, revived by Edo Tensei, finally achieved your goal, fully resurrected through the Rin Rebirth Jutsu, regaining your body's freedom and acquiring the eyes from Nagato-senpai. Then, you obtained the bark. At this point, Akihara Kagura's voice became somewhat gentle. Very cleverly, this piece of bark appeared in my plan as well. Everyone looked in the direction of Yakashi Kabuto. Yakashi Kabuto adjusted his glasses, feeling an inexplicable calm. Probably when I became the leader of the Root. When Akihara Kagura mentioned Yakashi Kabuto, there was a slight chuckle in his voice. I announced to Yakashi Kabuto my plan to destroy the ninja world, but I knew he would never agree because he still cared deeply about protecting the Dean and the orphanage. Of course, he had no way to expose me, because he could not escape my control. The entire orphanage, including the Dean, was under Root's control. Yakashi Kabuto is a very smart person, so he knew that if he reported this to the Konoha higher-ups, he would end up being the only sacrificial pawn. Because Konoha would never sacrifice me, the wood-release genius. However, Yakashi Kabuto didn't choose to give up. Over the years, Yakashi Kabuto has always shown loyalty to me, even secretly collecting powerful Edo Tensei users, hoping to one day use them to stop me. When Akihara Kagura spoke of Yakashi Kabuto, he spared no effort in his mockery. The sight of a small ant trying to protect its nest before the flood is quite amusing, so I made sure he also knew a secret: the bark of the Senju clan. The secret of the Senju clan's bark was something I deliberately leaked, and I let him know that the wood release chakra could reveal the secret within the bark. However, Yakashi Kabuto never imagined the true significance of this bark is at this very moment. Yakashi Kabuto is a smart person. He has been observing the situation in the village, and when he saw the Edo Tensei ninja fighting in Konoha, he realized that my plan had started, so he immediately handed the bark to Lady Tsunade, hoping she could find a way to thwart my plan through the bark. Unfortunately, from the moment he saw the bark, its purpose was to pass through his hand step by step until it reached the final person's hand. That person is me. Uchiha Madara added the answer with a sinister tone.